Under the sky of the 26th year of Guangxu in Nuyenba County, Qinghai, a roaring blizzard devoured all signs of life, leaving animal skeletons buried beneath the vast white snow. A group of people trudged silently through the thick curtain of snow, each heavy step a struggle against fate. Suddenly, a young man at the back of the group slipped. His entire body sank deep, sliding down with the freezing snow, his face pale with panic. As death drew near, he desperately grabbed the leg of the person in front of him, screaming for help. The man whose leg was grabbed turned around, his eyes as cold as ice, and snarled, "Let go, you bastard!" The young man trembled, stammering, "Help! Help me!" Another person pulled the man up, but he showed no mercy, kicking the young man hard while screaming incessantly, "Damn it! I've been searching for so many years, and I'm almost there. How can I die in a place like this?" He roared, "Go to hell!" and without a moment's hesitation kicked him straight in the face. With nothing left to hold on to, the young man slid into the deep abyss, his eyes filled with despair. Suddenly, the leader of the group dashed forward like lightning, his firm hand catching the young man's arm just in time. Dan Tu said in a low voice, "Don't move." Eventually, the two continued on their journey. The young man walked listlessly behind him, muttering incessantly, "Taoist master, let me go. I regret it. I don't want to die." With a still haunted expression, he sighed, "Becoming an immortal doesn't matter anymore. I just want to live a good life." The man beside him glanced over, his tone sarcastic. "Who doesn't want to live a peaceful life? But who can actually do that?" Then he continued walking leisurely through the snow, his voice suddenly lowering. "In this world, human lives are as worthless as weeds. People are so wretched and debased, it's as if the apocalypse has descended. To save the world and its people, to bring peace to all, what must be done?" Finally, the two of them caught up with the group ahead. They stopped by a cliff where Dan Tu stepped forward, his deep voice echoing, "Unless divine power descends, what else can we rely on?" Before them, a deep black abyss opened up as if it contained the entire universe within. A resonant voice suddenly rang out, "Kunlun is neither hot nor cold, everywhere is a river of stars. Just visited the Jiaoji banquet with no wish for eternal immortality." The group erupted in loud cheers. A man with a brilliant golden mustache laughed heartily and bowed low. The young man who had nearly died was also excited, his voice trembling. "This is Kunlun, the home of the mountain of myriad gods." The person next to him chimed in enthusiastically, "Seeing the galaxy in broad daylight, this is unreal." The man from before burst out laughing, "I never thought I'd see the day I become an immortal." Suddenly, a few bubbles rose on the surface of the dark pit, and a shimmering, iridescent blue whale leaped out. It somersaulted in midair, sending shimmering water surging upwards. The whale glided over the group's heads, and sparkling droplets of water rained down on them. Someone exclaimed, "Shit!" Those glowing droplets of water descended like cranes. The whale dove back into the pit, but the surface of the water churned violently. A powerful tremor struck after the whale disappeared. The group stood stunned and dazed like soulless husks, silently gazing at the bizarre spectacle. In the sky, a bird circled before gliding down to land on the leader's shoulder. But his body began to decay. The others were not spared. Their bodies gradually turned into skeletons. The bird flapped its wings and flew away. Skeletons lay scattered in the snow. An unknown amount of time passed, and the sun gradually emerged from behind the blizzard. Flowers began to bloom all around. A skull shimmered with light, causing a nearby flower to glow brilliantly in response. Suddenly, a skeletal arm rose from the ground, flesh and skin miraculously regenerating upon it. The other skeletons followed suit, rising one by one as their bodies slowly regenerated. Someone asked in bewilderment, "What is this?" The leader calmly replied, "Using blood to grow flesh, new life from old fluids, death and rebirth." Suddenly, a piercing scream rang out from behind. A member of the group, enveloped in a red shroud, was writhing in agony on the ground. The person cried out as their teeth sharpened. When the shroud dissipated, he had transformed into another entity, unleashing a terrifying shockwave. A pillar of red and black light shot toward the sky. In the distance, beneath the bright moon and among the overlapping buildings, a figure appeared. By the pond, Jiang Tuyet stood silently. Her shimmering blue-black hair glistened as if she were waiting for something. She carried a mysterious object on her person. Suddenly, a tree branch behind her stirred and a figure lunged forward. It drew closer and closer. Jiang Tuyet spun around, her eyes flashing in the darkness. The creature charged with all its might, leaping to pounce on her. Intense bolts of lightning erupted around Jiang Tuyet. In a shabby rented room, wind blew through the window frame, making the curtain flutter as sunlight streamed in and lit up the space. Suddenly, a banging sound came from the nearby wardrobe. "That hurts like hell." The wardrobe door creaked open and a hand reached out. A young man with a grimy face lamented, "I must have done something terrible in a past life." Minwoo staggered out of the wardrobe. Glancing down at his tattered pants, he mumbled, "How did they get this dirty? Did I run headfirst into some forest last night?" He picked up his shirt and sniffed at a foul stench hitting his nose. He grimaced, dropping the shirt to the floor with a disgusted voice. "It stinks!" With a forced smile, Minwoo ripped the shirt to shreds and threw it on the ground. He stepped into the bathroom, but the sound of shouting from outside still echoed in his ears. "You're 30 years old, can't you find a decent job?" "Just holing up in the house all day, it's so damn annoying." He brushed his teeth and rinsed his mouth, but the scolding continued unabated. "You don't need to worry about me." The argument outside grew more intense. "You idiot, do you know how to drive? Who are you calling an idiot? You're the blind one, and you're blaming other people." Mouthwash spilled from Minwoo's mouth, but the argument dragged on. "Why did you hit him?" "So what if I did?" "I just gave him a little push." Minwoo put on fresh clothes, but the shouting relentlessly continued. "My head is killing me. I can't take it anymore." Trying to block it out, he gripped the curtain tightly. Even the cat outside seemed to be screaming, "You damn stray, daring to steal my fish again." Minwoo decisively pulled the curtain aside, and the noise from outside grew even more intense. He quickly put on his headphones, trying to block out the chaotic sounds, and then let out a helpless sigh. On the street, a yellow cat dashed past with a fish in its mouth. Minwoo sped by on his bike, startling both the cat and the fish into a panic. With music still playing in his headphones, he rode through the streets, suddenly thinking of Ma Ding and an anime he once watched where the main character woke up as a different person every morning. Minwoo grimaced and muttered, "I've had this habit since I was a kid, waking up in the strangest places." Memories flooded back. One time he woke up next to a whole family of pigs in a sty. Another time was even more dramatic on top of a high-voltage power line tower. "To this day, I still wonder how I managed to climb up there," he thought to himself. As a child, Minwoo would cry and scream for his life. Back in the present, he biked past a minor accident. The car's driver was pleading, "Hey man, wake up! I barely pushed you." The person on the ground feigned injury. "I'm hurt, pay up." Minwoo rode past. Then the driver pulled out a baseball bat from somewhere, pressed it against the other guy, and roared, "Fine! I have to pay you anyway." The other person fled in panic, shouting, "Wait!" Minwoo thought coldly to himself, "My hearing is so sharp I can hear everything within 100 meters. He recalled a doctor's visit where the old physician, after an examination, concluded it was just sleepwalking and overly sensitive, hearing nothing serious. Minwoo gave a bitter smile. This sleepwalking is going to get me killed. He pedaled harder, thinking, God only knows what I do while I'm sleepwalking. His bike passed the crowded school gate and the whispers grew louder. Despite wearing headphones, Minwoo could still clearly hear every whisper in the classroom. He sat near the back in front of a couple who were flirting animatedly and a table away from two girls who were whispering. The girl in the red dress said, "On the way to school, I saw her talking to a pretty girl." The other replied, "I don't know her, she was looking for someone." The girl in red continued, "She was looking for a guy named Cha Nam. He's cheating on her. That guy is playing around with so many girls at once." The girl beside her chuckled softly. Minwoo sat in silence, his ears ringing with their whispers. Anger surged within him as he thought, "Can't I have a single moment of peace?" The group continued their lively discussion, forcing him to listen as his expression grew dark. He has such a beautiful girlfriend, yet he still cheats. A wolf in sheep's clothing! So who is this Cha Nam at our school? What was his name? Minwoo twisted the cap on his water bottle and took a sip. But just then, the name Chu Minwoo rang out. It made him choke, spraying out the water he had just sipped. Coughing violently, he bent over his face, flushing red with irritation. Minwoo glared and shouted at the two girls, "Hey, you up front, can you stop spreading rumors? Who are you calling a scumbag?" The two girls turned around looking at him in astonishment and asked, "Who are you?" Minwoo puffed out his chest, his voice clear, "I'm Chu Minwoo." Hearing that, they whispered to each other, "He really is that scumbag. So creepy he was even eavesdropping on us. He's in our major, too. Let's just ignore him. Getting involved will only bring us trouble." Minwoo gritted his teeth, seething with anger. He thought to himself, is it this easy to start rumors nowadays? He plopped down casually, putting a hat on his head, his mind reeling. "I'm so pissed off. Where did this rumor even come from? Or is it just someone with the same name? Minvu buried his face on the desk, muttering, a scumbag. What right does a 19-year-old punk like me have to be one? Glancing at his phone, a notification popped up. He scoffed lightly, picking up his phone to read a message from an unknown number. Hello, Chu Minvu, I am Li Van Phi. I want to spar with you. Location 167 Vongsun Street. He smirked, his eyes as cold and sharp as if he wanted to devour the phone. He thought, you asked for this, just you wait. The sun set, casting an orange-red glow over the desolate land. Looking at the old dangling sign, Minvu read aloud, 167 Vongsun Street. He trembled with rage. He thought to himself, how long has this place been abandoned? Why do I feel like I'm being tricked? He cursed and kicked a piece of wood nearby. Suddenly, he heard the clicking sound of a coin being tossed. Minvu froze, his mind on high alert. What's that sound? Looking up, he saw a figure on the rooftop of a tall building sitting there flipping a coin. Minvu muttered, is someone up there planning to jump? At that thought, he rushed into the building, his feet flying. On the rooftop, the person was still casually flipping a coin, watching the sunset. Van Phi caught the coin, spun it in a neat arc, and cheered with delight. With a cheerful expression, he looked at the coin in his hand and muttered, looks like my luck isn't bad today. A loud noise came from behind. Minvu rushed onto the rooftop. He was panting, drenched in sweat, having to lean against the wall to stay upright. He approached, his voice urgent. Hey, buddy, calm down. Seeing the other person stand up, Minvu awkwardly rushed to say, think about your family, your mother. Don't break their hearts. I know life isn't easy, but if you die, what will your family do? He continued, his voice hurried. Think about the rent, the car payments, all the things you still have to pay for. Even if you die, your debts will still have to be paid. Besides, insurance doesn't cover suicide. You look older than me. Do you have kids yet? Formula, tuition, all kinds of insurance. Those are all problems. The images of debt and responsibility came alive with his every word. Van Phi turned around and asked blankly, what are you talking about? What was that? Minvu was stunned, his head full of question marks, and then he blurted out, huh. The other person jumped down and walked toward Minvu, exuding an imposing aura. Pointing at him, he said in a commanding voice, I've been waiting for a long time. I'm glad you came. Minvu frowned, looking at the other person suspiciously. Who are you? Do we know each other? The person came closer and replied calmly, allow me to introduce myself. I'm Li Van Phi. I heard a senior mention you before and was intrigued, so I came here to meet you. Minvu was dumbfounded, asking blankly, wait a minute. So you weren't planning to jump? Van Phi's eyes widened in surprise as he replied, jump. How could someone as handsome as me jump off a building? Minvu pouted in disappointment and cursed, damn it, why didn't you say so sooner? He sneered, you didn't ask. Minvu turned away angrily, snapping at Van Phi. Well, if this was just a misunderstanding, I'm leaving. Van Phi frantically spread his arms to block him. Wait, Chu Minvu. I'm not finished talking. You can't leave. Minvu stopped, his eyes narrowing. How do you know my name? Van Phi placed a hand on his chin, his voice mysterious. I not only know your name, I also know about the power hidden inside your body. Minvu turned his back, dismissing it firmly. I don't even know you. I have an appointment, Van Phi shouted, rushing to stop him. Wait, don't go. I was the one who asked you to come here. Minvu was stunned. He whipped around, pointed at Van Phi, and shouted angrily, that text message was from you? Van Phi puffed out his chest, admitting proudly, yes, it was me. Minvu roared, his anger exploding. You dare to admit it? You? Why did you spread rumors that I'm a scumbag? What did I ever do to you? Suddenly, Van Phi threw a gleaming object that grazed past Minvu's face. He stared in alarm at the trickle of blood on his cheek as a few strands of his severed hair drifted down. Looking back, he saw 2 spell-engraved nails stuck firmly in the floor, completely unaware of the overwhelming aura emanating from Van Phi. Van Phi held 3 similar nails in his hand, his voice cold. As for the rumor, I didn't do it. I sought you out to see the power of the Tiancao. With a solemn expression, he looked at Minvu. They say this power is different. I want to see exactly how it's different. Minvu broke out in a cold sweat, thinking to himself, Tiancao. What kind of power is that? His legs trembled, and he unconsciously took a step back. Seeing Van Phi approach, he quickly waved his hands. Bro, this has to be a misunderstanding. I'm just an ordinary person. I don't have any magical powers. Van Phi's eyes glinted with determination. Turning around, he flashed with strange sparks of light, his voice firm. Whether you do or not, I'll find out by fighting you. Without another word, Minvu turned and fled in an instant. Van Phi was stunned, stammering. He ran. Away! Minvu sprinted at full speed, dripping with sweat, cursing inwardly. Is this guy crazy? He wants to fight after one disagreement. He flew down the stairs, thinking in terror. This disaster came out of nowhere, and I even got ambushed. His figure flashed by like the wind. Minvu lamented internally. This is such bad luck. What kind of day is this anyway? He ran for his life out of the building. From the rooftop, Van Phi could still see his scurrying figure. From above, Van Phi threw another nail, intending to stop Minvu. He only had time to turn his head and let out a cry. Ah! His eyes filled with terror as he saw the nail hurtling toward him. 2 nails plunged into the ground right at his feet, releasing an astonishing wave of power. A bolt of lightning struck down. The aftershock caused Minvu to convulse, foam at the mouth, and fall face first to the ground amidst the dense smoke. Van Phi walked over, muttering, "How strange." He frowned in doubt. How could he not withstand a single blow? Could I have gotten the wrong person? Van Phi turned to leave. Looks like I came here for nothing. I might as well go home and play games. Just as he finished speaking from behind Van Phi, Minvu had transformed into a beast and stood up. His entire body erupted with a terrifying power, and an overwhelming oppressive aura exploded forth. The wounds on Minvu's body healed so quickly it was visible to the naked eye. He growled like a wild beast. Witnessing this, Van Phi was secretly thrilled, thinking to himself, I knew it. This guy was indeed hiding his true abilities. He raised his hand in a taunting gesture. Hey! If you're this powerful, why didn't you show your true strength sooner? Minvu responded with a deafening roar, planting his hands firmly on the ground. Van Phi muttered coldly, can't he hear me? He slowly approached, telling himself he wasn't beaten stupid, was he? Standing in front of Minvu, Van Phi waved his hand and called out repeatedly, Hey, are you really out of it? Minvu remained motionless, which made Van Phi a bit flustered. After that, Van Phi tried everything to snap Minvu out of his statue-like state. He flicked his forehead, poked his ear, and even pinched his cheeks, but nothing worked. Finally, Van Phi pulled at Minvu's cheeks apart, revealing sharp fangs. Suddenly, Minvu reacted, his hands that were gripping the ground tightened. In a flash, he lunged forward and gave Van Phi a powerful choke. Minvu's blazing red eyes seemed to be issuing a challenge. Van Phi smirked, but inwardly he was trembling at the terrifying sight. Power enveloped Minvu. He lifted Van Phi into the air, causing the surrounding rocks to levitate as well. Van Phi was being choked so hard that drool dribbled from his mouth. He tried to grab Minvu's arm, terrified, thinking, this power is incredible. Is he even human anymore? Van Phi's hands quickly formed a seal as he chanted inwardly, Vidyu chan kong than tiu triu kong. Lightning flared and the wind howled fiercely. 1 nail flew in from a distance while 2 others began to vibrate. Van Phi bent 2 fingers, his eyes full of expectation. 4 nails shot forward and embedded themselves in Minvu's face, accompanied by a terrifying explosion. Seizing the opportunity, Van Phi leaped away, coughing violently. He touched his neck, thinking, I was too careless. I didn't expect this guy to be so powerful. The dust and smoke gradually cleared. Minvu was still standing there unharmed after the explosion, only lightly rubbing his cheek against his shoulder as if it were itchy. Van Phi scoffed, frowning, and thought, is this the power of the heavenly hound? Minvu suddenly lowered his stance, ready to attack. In the blink of an eye, he disappeared. Van Phi was stunned, thinking to himself, he disappeared. But in reality, Minvu was already right beside him. A sudden uppercut shot out. Luckily, Van Phi managed to raise his arm to block. The good news, his chin and face were not hit. The bad news, his arm bone was broken. A powerful blow sent Van Phi flying into the sky, blood spilling from his mouth. Minvu didn't stop launching himself after him. Van Phi thought to himself, this isn't good. Minvu flashed a taunting smile. Van Phi, his mouth full of blood, smirked back as his hands quickly formed a seal, executing the divine firmament thunder method technique. Van Phi's figure flickered in mid-air like a broken screen, causing Minvu's punch to pass through nothing. While Minvu was still off balance, a nail on the ground below flashed. Van Phi instantly teleported to the nail, panting heavily. Wiping a streak of blood from his lips, he thought, good thing I left 1 nail on the ground. No more playing around, I have to finish this in 1 move. He quickly formed a hand seal. Minvu, realizing what was happening, landed on the ground, causing it to crack open. Van Phi silently chanted, subtle true void divine firmament reappears. Which god dares not submit, which demon dares to advance? Minvu's face grew even more excited while Van Phi trembled in fear, continuously chanting, "When the divine dragon appears, 10,000 demons are vanquished. I summon you now, descend at once!" A brightly glowing seal appeared at Minvu's feet, and a golden dragon erupted from the ground. Van Phi assessed the situation, thinking, "I didn't want to use this move on you, but I have no other choice. I refuse to believe you can block this." Minvu's arms and legs were tightly bound by lightning. A giant golden dragon faced him, lunging forward with its mouth wide open to devour him. The divine firmament ascending dragon strike submerged Minvu in lightning. Smoke and dust filled the air. Looking at the devastated battlefield, Van Phi said, "No matter how powerful you are, there's no way you're unscathed." He gave a wicked smile, thinking to himself, "So much fun I almost got burned playing with fire." Suddenly, a car sped over and screeched to a halt right behind him. The car door swung open and a familiar figure stepped out. The girl walked straight toward Minvu, her gaze resolute. Van Phi turned around curiously as she spoke without hesitation. "Could you leave first?" This is the person I want." Van Phi looked up at her as she approached Minvu, his voice laced with doubt, "Telling me to leave." She replied coolly, without hesitation, "Yes, you can still make it if you leave now." He smirked mysteriously. "I'm afraid you don't know my title." But she could hardly be blamed. With boundless confidence, Van Phi declared loudly, "Listen up! I am a powerful genius with an IQ of 180, a sorcerer, the likes of whom is seen only once every 500 years, loved by all who meet me." After listening, the girl remained silent, then turned and walked away from Van Phi. He immediately jumped up in protest. "Hey, that's incredibly rude of you to do while I'm talking. The least you could do is play along a little." In a flash, the sword in her hand was pressed against Van Phi's neck. She warned coldly, "If you get in my way, I'll kill you too." "Understand?" A dangerous glint flashed in her eyes. Hearing this, veins bulged on Van Phi's forehead as he seethed with anger. He drew 3 nails radiating intense killing intent and growled, "It seems I'll have to carve my name into your head for you to remember it." Suddenly, a voice cut through the tense atmosphere. A woman with short, chestnut-brown hair approached, sighing as she looked at them both. "You sorcerers are always so eager to fight and kill." She offered a suggestion, her voice tinged with weariness. "Could you wait until I'm long gone before you fight?" Without waiting for an answer, she quickly started the car, muttering in frustration, "I'm just a regular worker, not all-powerful like you people." She shifted gears, hit the gas, and sped away. Before she disappeared from sight, she called out, "Xiao Lei, call me when you're done." The girl beside Van Phi immediately replied, "Yes, Sister Zhao." Van Phi froze for a moment, a glint of realization in his eyes. He frowned, recognizing a sun-like symbol made of short and long strokes, the clear insignia of the Little Sun Agency. Van Phi thoughtfully recalled a senior's words, "After every plume of thick black smoke, there is always a figure resting their chin on their hand, a crow by their side." They specialize in handling commissions from the sorcerer community independent of any faction, yet no one dares to look down on them. All because that organization was founded by that asterisk person. Facing the girl, Van Phi sighed inwardly. "So this kid is from the Little Sun Agency. This is big trouble." Suddenly, a voice cold and sharp echoed in his ear. "Brat, get back here right now!" Sweat broke out on Van Phi's forehead as he heard that voice crying out inwardly, "Uncle! Uncle Dion!" On a rooftop, an imposing figure stood next to a flickering point of light. The old man held a staff, his booming voice scolding through a talisman. "You brat, you snuck off behind my back to find the Heavenly Hound, and now you dare provoke the Little Sun Agency. Get back here now or I'll break your legs." He waved his hand and the talisman turned to ash. His sharp, cold gaze fell upon Van Phi as he muttered, "How did I end up with such a troublesome kid?" Down below, Van Phi was crestfallen, his face filled with regret. Turning to the girl beside him, he said slowly, "All right. If you're interested in this person, I'll leave him to you." Hearing this, the girl's eyes lit up. She sheathed her sword and replied curtly, "Thank you for your cooperation." Van Phi persisted, asking, "You're here for the Heavenly Hound too, right?" The girl paid him no mind, silently walking away and leaving him behind. Van Phi tried again, his voice tinged with concern. "Hey, that guy's a tough one. If you can't handle him, leave him to me." But she didn't look back, walking straight into the thick screen of smoke. Within the dust cloud, a hazy figure was faintly visible. Minvu emerged, his body like a beast's back, hunched and ready to attack. But then he suddenly stopped standing up straight as gusts of wind blew away the surrounding smoke and dust. The girl advanced decisively, her voice cold. "We meet again." A flicker of regret crossed her face as she continued. "I failed to capture you last night." The image of Manhwa lunging at her the night before came to mind. She gritted her teeth. "I was careless and let you get away." Before she could finish her sentence, she drew her sword, her aura flaring. As she took her stance, everything around her began to freeze over from the grass to the street signs. The frost spread rapidly, heading straight for Manhwa. He stood exposed, his eyes glued to her attack. She softly chanted, "First form shattered jade," and shards of ice began to rain down. Manhwa growled, his eyes wide as the icy power enveloped him. Through a black veil, a clear blue sky appeared, and a voice echoed endlessly, calling to him, "Wake up, Manhwa." Wake up memories flooded back. A young Manhwa rubbed his eyes, waking from a dream. In front of him was a familiar figure. The stern old man, leaning on his cane, looked at him and yelled, "Get up, kid! Sleeping in again, get up and go home now." Manhwa cried out, "Dad!" The man ruffled his hair, teasing, "What, still half asleep? We're having braised pork for dinner." Manhwa beamed, took his hand, and hummed in agreement. The father carried the son on his back as they walked away, a devastated battlefield behind them. Manhwa mumbled pitifully, "I'm sorry. I lost control and ran wild again." The man glanced at him, his voice gentle. "It's okay. No matter where you run off to, I can always find you." Leaning against his father's back, Manhwa asked innocently, "Really?" The man frowned and replied, "Well, that's hard to say for sure. After all, there will come a time when I'm no longer by your side." Manhwa felt like he'd been struck by lightning and yelled, "But you just said you would find me." On the dirt path, he accused, "You lied, you're a liar." The man just smiled brightly. "Even if I'm gone, I still have friends. They might be weird, but they'll come help you." He turned back and added, "How could I possibly not have friends?" Manhwa asked, puzzled, "Then why have I never seen them visit you?" He scratched his cheek innocently. "You didn't get into a fight with them, did you? Will they still come help me then?" The man sighed. "Manhwa, look up at the sky." He said, "One day you'll grow up. You can't always depend on other people." The image faded, only his echoing words remaining. "And you can't always need me to come call you to find you. Sooner or later, you have to wake up by yourself and find your own way home." In the present, Manhwa's eyes snapped open just as a sword blade came slashing down. He yelped in alarm, "Holy crap!" and ducked to dodge the blade. The girl gave him no quarter spinning to land a kick squarely on his mouth. Manhwa coughed up blood as his body was sent flying into a wall, his face contorted in pain. She advanced with her sword. Manhwa trembled in fear, pointing and stammering, "Who are you?" "Stay away, help murder," she asked, startled. "You're back to normal." Manhwa said resentfully, "Stay away from me. I'm very powerful when I use my supernatural abilities." He suddenly froze, looking at his hands in horror. "It's gone. What's wrong with me?" Realizing he had turned into a monster, he panicked. "I've turned into a monster." She raised her sword, its tip pointed straight at his forehead, and asked coldly, "Chu Manhwa, have you really returned to normal?" Manhwa dodged and shouted, "Hey, no matter how you look at it, you're more abnormal than I am." Looking at the sword radiating killing intent, he demanded, "What do you want?" Manhwa gulped his hands, clutching the ground tightly as beads of sweat formed on his forehead. The girl sheathed her sword, her gaze sharp and cold, and spoke slowly. "Although I don't know the reason, it seems you've truly recovered. The sword and its soul have merged, and Manhwa has returned to normal." He was bewildered, his voice trembling. "Back to normal. What's going on?" She turned and walked away briskly, her voice resolute. "Come with me to meet someone." Manhwa exploded, his eyes glaring. "Who would go with you? You just tried to kill me." He rambled on, his voice filled with resentment. "Who on earth are you? Why do you want to kill me? You're not with that last guy, are you? I don't think you can fool me just because you're pretty. If you don't explain yourself, I'm calling the police." Before he could finish his sentence, she struck him across the face. Manhwa took the full blow, his face battered and bruised. Finally defeated, he gasped for breath. "All right, I'll listen. I'll go with you, okay?" On a building's rooftop, Van Phi observed quietly, his sharp eyes assessing the scene. He thought to himself, that kid was consumed by the Tengu's power, yet he woke up on his own. He propped himself up, a smirk playing on his lips. That girl isn't bad either, her power is formidable. How interesting, very interesting. He stood up, a menacing glint in his eyes. Next time I get the chance, I'll definitely fight them. Suddenly, Van Trung appeared from behind and furiously kicked Van Phi in the leg. He lost his balance, stumbling and nearly falling, but managed to grab a stone basin to steady himself. Van Phi turned around, panting and trembling as he spoke. "Uncle Dien, you almost fell to your death!" Van Trung, still not calmed down, yelled, "I've told you before, do not seek trouble with the Tengu. Are you trying to get yourself killed?" Van Phi jumped down from the stone pedestal, smirking evasively. All right, I won't look for him next time." He looked up and suddenly spotted a figure in white standing above, observing them quietly. Van Phi growled, "Who's there?" Van Trung turned his face, turned pale, sweat poured down, and he stared wide-eyed with his mouth agape. The man in white stood there looking down as placidly as a mountain. Van Trung stammered, "You fool, we're in big trouble." Din Ok frowned, his voice as cold as ice. "I heard someone was looking to die, so I came." He pointed down threateningly at Van Trung. "Do you need to explain yourself, huh?" Van Trung frantically waved his hands, trying to explain. "It's just a misunderstanding. This is all." But Van Phi, impetuous as ever, charged forward, shouting, "Let me explain. Who are you to call Uncle Dien by his name?" He threw 3 sharp nails toward Din Ok. Van Trung shouted, trying to stop him, "Stop!" But it was too late. The 3 nails, imbued with terrifying power, shot toward Din Ok. Din Ok didn't move an inch, simply raising his hand to stop them effortlessly. The power on the nails vanished instantly. Van Phi's eyes widened in horror, and he cried out, "How can this be?" Enraged, Van Trung swung his staff and hit Van Phi squarely on the head, causing him to clutch it in agony. He yelled, "You fool, if you want to die, don't drag me with you." Van Phi was bewildered, his face contorted in pain as Van Trung pushed his head down and apologized in a low voice. "He's just a child who knows no better, Your Excellency, please be generous." But Van Phi wouldn't be quiet, pointing at Din Ok and demanding of Uncle Dien, "Who is he?" "Why are you so afraid of him?" Van Trung roared. "Shut your mouth!" Van Trung hurriedly pushed his head down even lower, explaining urgently, "This kid is a new disciple. He doesn't understand anything, that's why he made a mistake. I will discipline him strictly when we return." Din Ok glanced over coldly, his gaze as sharp as a knife. "There's no need. A child who knows no better doesn't know the rules." As he finished speaking, he instantly unleashed his power. A single strike was all it took. Van Phi suddenly felt a horrifying pressure bearing down on his head. Van Trung stared at him, stunned, gritting his teeth with wide eyes. The force was terrifyingly powerful. In an instant, Van Phi was struck down by an invisible wave of energy. His head slammed hard into the ground, and he spat out a mouthful of fresh blood. Dazed, he tried to struggle, but was powerless, his entire body crushed flat as the ground beneath him caved in. Din Ok slowly floated over, making Van Trung's heart leap and pound in his chest. "Your sect agreed with me not to make contact with Minvu." His voice was slow, as if recounting an old warning. "You people were secretly monitoring him before, and I let it slide." Din Ok landed, his voice deepening with anger. "And now look at today. Not only did you seek him out, you directly forced the Tengu to appear." In an instant, he was in front of Van Trung, his voice like ice. "Old Dien mistakes have consequences, otherwise you'll never learn. Am I right?" Van Trung trembled, hastily explaining, "This kid Van Phi caused this disaster because I failed to discipline him properly." Van Phi remained motionless, panting. Van Trung tightened his grip on his sword, his hand trembling. "Sect Master, I beg you to spare his life. As for the consequences, your only option is to draw your sword." His voice was firm. "I am willing to bear it for him." Van Phi gritted his teeth, wanting to stop him, but unable to. Din Ok smirked coldly, his gaze sharp. "Then by all means." Then he waved dismissively, his mocking tone leaving Van Trung stunned. "You should take care of your health at your age. At your left shoulder, I've already sealed the pressure points to stop the bleeding." Van Trung looked back in shock to see 3 nails embedded in his left shoulder, blood seeping out without him realizing it. Din Ok added in a low voice, "Minvu will stay with me from now on." Only when he had left did Van Trung dare to sigh in relief, drenched in sweat. He looked at the sword in his hand, deep in thought for a moment, then gritted his teeth and aimed the blade at his left arm. Sweat trickled down his forehead as the blade began to cut into his flesh. A harrowing scream echoed as Van Trung's left arm was severed, blood spreading across the ground. He struggled to remain calm, using his sword to prop himself up as he sank to his knees, his voice trembling. "Kid, I never should have told you about the Tengu." Tears streamed down Van Phi's face, and despite his own pain, he gritted his teeth and choked out, "Uncle Dien, I was wrong." The scene was now utterly bleak, with blood pooled everywhere. Van Trung's severed arm lay on the ground while Van Phi was still collapsed on the rooftop. In the quiet of the late night, Din Ak leaped across rooftops and utility poles, returning through the darkness with a composed expression. Landing lightly in the courtyard from the roof, Din Ak opened the door and walked in his gait a bit unsteady. He thought to himself, "Good thing my reputation still precedes me, or that would have been a huge mess." Suddenly, he spat out a mouthful of blood, clutching his chest and gasping for breath as he tried to compose himself. Just by using a bit of his power, his old wound had reopened. Din Ak dragged himself to a chair, still clutching his chest as he tried to sit, thinking he couldn't let Tiu Tuye find out about his injury. As he was resting, Min Vu's voice came from outside. "It doesn't look like much from the outside, but it's not bad in here." Din Ak looked up, forcing enthusiasm into his voice. "You're back so soon." He stood up to straighten his clothes, thinking that he needed to make a strong first impression. Suddenly, the room started spinning, and Din Ak felt dizzy, clutching his head. A strange sensation overcame him, and he collapsed face first onto the ground. He wanted to cry for help, but had no strength. He suddenly realized he hadn't eaten in what felt like 2 days. Late at night, Min Vu stretched alongside Jiang Tuyet, his voice weary. Today was so tiring. She stopped and added, "We're here." He looked up to see 2 lanterns swaying in the wind. While Jiang Tuyet was opening the door, Min Vu asked, "This is the place?" "Yes." He didn't ask further, just turned to look at the sign, thinking Little Sun Workshop. A preschool Jiang Tuyet pushed the door open and called back, "Come on in." Min Vu raised a hand, hesitating. "Hold on." He scratched his head, looking awkward and timid as he asked, "Miss Heroine, can I ask just one question?" An image of Van Phi flashed through his mind. Min Vu asked in confusion, "Lady, what is it that you want?" "That other guy came to attack me. What does any of this have to do with you?" Jiang Tuyet looked at him for a moment with a placid expression before her reply left him speechless. "Didn't you say you were only going to ask one question?" "That's 2 questions. You're getting off track." Min Vu sighed, still scratching his head and muttering as he turned away. "Fine, so if I go in and meet this person you're talking about, it'll all make sense, right?" Jiang Tuyet frowned, her voice full of doubt. "That's 3 questions now. Which one should I answer first?" Min Vu stepped inside ahead of her with a sigh. "Fine, forget I asked." The moment he set foot inside, he was stunned by the completely unexpected sight. Sparkling fireflies fluttered about, creating a scene as dreamy as a painting. He looked up at the gently glowing lanterns, then curiously walked around even mischievously, sticking his head into the mouth of a stone lion statue. Jiang Tuyet could only stand and watch, a speechless expression on her face. Min Vu walked under the flower trellis, his voice full of delight. "It's so dilapidated and wild on the outside, but the scenery inside is so poetic and charming, isn't it?" "Yes." Suddenly he heard a strange sound. Min Vu turned and asked Jiang Tuyet, "Do you hear that strange sound?" He pointed in one direction. "I think it's coming from over there." The 2 of them headed in the direction he pointed. Sure enough, a mournful groan echoed from a distance. Min Vu asked again, his voice tense, "You hear it too, right?" "There is indeed a strange sound." He was at a loss for what else to say. Jiang Tuyet still didn't understand what was happening. Then, suddenly remembering her mission, she immediately drew her sword, stepped back warily, and opened the door to enter. Min Vu peeked in curiously, his voice a reminder, "Heroine, be careful." As soon as the door opened, a strange smell assailed their nostrils. Then a trembling hand reached out. Next, a pale, gaunt face appeared, its eyes bloodshot and red. Looking just like a hungry ghost, it trembled and cried for help. Min Vu was petrified by the sight and immediately collapsed. Meanwhile, Din Ak tried to whisper to Jiang Tuyet, "I'm starving to death." After a while, Jiang Tuyet and Min Vu sat in a corner watching Din Ak eat ravenously. Trash piled up behind him, a stack of 8 plates and wrappers growing ever higher with no end in sight. Din Ak continuously chewed on a bun, then picked up a bowl of noodles and slurped it clean, a satisfied look on his face. Min Vu muttered his assessment. "This guy eats like a monster." Chewing ravenously with tears welling in his eyes, Din Ak said in an accusatory muffled voice, "You were gone for 2 days." "Wanna starve me to death?" Min Vu kindly translated for Jiang Tuyet. "He said you were gone for 2 days and didn't come back, and asked if you wanted him to starve to death." She pondered for a moment, then replied, "But I left money for food." Din Ak slammed the table, his voice annoyed and muffled. "You still da say that the little bit of money wasn't even enough for a 10-pull. Min Vu continued to translate, though he was a bit speechless himself. "He's asking how you dare say that." That little bit of money wasn't even enough for him to do a gotcha pull. He couldn't even do a 10 pull. How can I even understand him? Jiang Tuyet stood up, her voice serious. But boss, we're out of money this month. She explained the situation. We haven't had a commission in 2 months. The electricity, water, and internet bills are 6 months overdue. If this keeps up, they'll cut off our electricity, water, and internet, Din Ok mumbled while gnawing on a chicken leg, but this time Min Vu couldn't translate, I can't make this one out. He chugged a large bottle of water, then let out a loud burp that left the other two speechless. Din Ok said calmly, don't worry about the money, I can handle it. You just need to do the job I give you. Min Vu spoke up, his voice tinged with surprise. Hello. Unexpectedly, Din Ok enthusiastically rushed towards him. If you hadn't spoken up, I wouldn't have noticed. Din Ok's hands moved quickly, feeling from his eyes down to his nose as he muttered, let me get a closer look. Then he quickly shifted his focus elsewhere. How are these legs smoother than a girl's? Din Ok casually patted his head, pinched his cheek, and then groped and hugged Min Vu's leg, making him increasingly uncomfortable. He tried to stop him, his voice sharp, wait, don't do that. But Din Ok wouldn't listen and continued to poke his cheek, making Min Vu's blood boil. Hey, are you going to stop or not? Suddenly, he blushed with embarrassment, hugged himself, and tried to run away. Hey, what are you doing? Din Ok, as if he had discovered something strange, stopped his playful expression, vanishing. He frowned, rested his chin on his hand in thought, then shook his head and did nothing. Looking at the situation, Min Vu seemed to be in a difficult position. Min Vu blushed and shouted, what do you mean by that? I think you're just taking advantage of the situation. Don't think you can do whatever you want just because you're handsome. Din Ok laughed it off, waving his hand nonchalantly. Don't be so tense. It's really nothing. Then he added nonchalantly, but your little life is about to be lost. Min Vu sighed in relief, his voice light. Is it just that my little life is about to be lost? I thought it was something serious, but immediately after he realized something was wrong. He immediately turned back, his face blank and eyes wide, shaking from shock. He pointed to himself, his voice cracking. What do you mean my little life is about to be lost? Din Ok distractedly pretended to clean his ear, whistling. Min Vu glared angrily. He thought to himself, this guy is really asking for a beating. Suddenly, Din Ok remembered something and exclaimed, I almost forgot. He enthusiastically waved to Jiang Tuyet, Xiao Tuyet. We have a job. Meanwhile, Min Vu tried to interject, his voice annoyed. Hey, don't ignore me. Din Ok cheerfully clasped his hands and said to Jiang Tuyet, Sister Wang's cat from next door is missing. Can you see if you can find it? Jiang Tuyet frowned, questioning, sir. Finding a cat again. This is the 3rd time this month. You haven't forgotten what kind of work we do have you. Din Ok put on an innocent look, drooling and making an eating gesture that left her speechless, eating. You see, the company needs to stay afloat. He pulled out a photo and continued enthusiastically. Sister Wang is a rich lady. The reward is 5,000. Here, this is the photo. The photo showed a cat with a grumpy face with a phone number written below. Isn't it adorable? Din Ok tried to persuade Jiang Tuyet. It's probably just near Teha Park. Jiang Tuyet nodded. Yes, all right. She took her sword and walked out. Din Ok waved excitedly, cheering, wishing you a swift success. Be back soon. This month's hopes are all riding on this money. Min Vu tried to call after her. Hey, can I say something? He hurriedly voiced his questions. What do you guys actually do? The sign on the door says Little Sunshine Workshop. I thought it was a kindergarten class. Din Ok smiled brightly and replied, That's just a disguise. Min Vu was bewildered. What do you mean? Din Ok explained patiently, his voice calm. There are many extraordinary people in the world, so our work requires confidentiality. We take commissions from them, so we need to put up a disguised sign. Min Vu was still full of questions. Was finding the cat just now also a commission? Din Ok pulled a chair up to the dining table and replied casually, That's just a side job for when we're free. Min Vu persisted, No, then why were you looking for me? Did you accept a commission from someone? Din Ok pulled up his chair, his voice cheerful. We were indeed commissioned to save your life. Min Vu was stunned and confused. Save me? Who commissioned you? Din Ok revealed without hesitation. The client is a close friend of mine for many years, who is also your father. Min Vu was extremely surprised and quickly asked again, You know my father? Din Ok calmly picked up a pastry, but his expression immediately turned sour. Chewing ravenously while putting both feet on the table, he mentioned Min Vu's father, his voice boiling with anger. More than just no, it was a fateful, accursed relationship. Then Din Ok recounted, his eyes flashing with memory. The last time I saw him, I had a bit too much to drink. And as a result, guess what? He recalled the image of himself dead drunk and slumped over a table, appearing vividly, his voice annoyed. In the middle of the night, a waiter woke me up to say the place was closing. When I came to, I found out your dad had bailed, and the staff member who woke me up was some muscular pervert brandishing the bill. When I asked, they said he'd been gone for a while and told me to pay. Din Ach shuddered, the terrible memory still haunting him. How could I have had any money then? 30 minutes later, Min Vu was numb with boredom from listening. Din Ach, however, excitedly jumped onto the table and continued his story. After working for half a year, I finally became a master chef skilled in the art of cooking. Then someone came to wreck the place, tore down the sign, and suppressed the whole crowd in the blink of an eye. Min Vu trembled, foaming at the mouth, his voice sarcastic. You a master chef, more like a master eater. Din Ach suddenly turned and pressed him. In the end, guess what? But Min Vu had heard enough, and it was all going in one ear and out the other. That's enough. Din Ach paid no mind, excitedly pointing to himself. I haven't even gotten to the exciting part yet. Min Vu shook his head in refusal. Stop. No, that's enough anymore, and you'll be off searching for legendary cooking tools. He frowned in annoyance. After all that talk, who are you anyway, mister? Din Ach scratched his head, feigning modesty. I don't really like to show off my titles, but since we're practically family. Then he introduced himself formally. Tuyet Din Ach, that is my name. Min Vu was stunned and quickly asked, Could you be? But Din Ach immediately cut him off. It's not me. I don't abuse cats, and don't you go around slandering my name. Min Vu feigned indifference. You know I was sick once, and I think my dad mentioned he had a friend who could help me. It couldn't be you, could it? Din Ach's brow furrowed, his voice lowering. The sickness in your body is the Tien Kao, the thing that will take your life. Min Vu recalled what Van Phi had said and muttered, I remember that guy saying the same thing. What exactly is this Tiangu Ding Yi? Slowly explained. The Tiangu we're talking about is not the same as the Tiangu in the traditional sense. As for the story of the Tiangu eating the moon, that's just a folk legend, it's not real. Basically, you'll turn into some kind of psycho or lunatic, Ming Yu said anxiously, his voice urgent. Isn't there any way to get rid of it? My dad said you could help, didn't he? Ding Yi replied calmly. If even your dad is out of options, what can I do? Ming Yu was dejected and disdainful. Then why did you tell me so much? You just said you could save me. Ding Yi smiled brightly, putting an arm around his shoulder, his voice confident. It's impossible to completely eliminate it, but I have a way. He patted his chest and declared, I've found a way to help you suppress the Tiangu. Ming Yu was stunned, then it dawned on him, and joy flashed in his eyes. Really? Ding Yi leisurely walked towards the bookshelf, his voice low and steady. Over the years, I've been constantly searching for a way to completely resolve the Tiangu threat. Finally, after integrating a lifetime of ultimate skills with the techniques of 100 schools, I created a marvelous method that can turn the Tiangu into your own possession. He looked up his eyes, scanning the shelves, searching for a book. Hearing this, Ming Yu felt a flicker of doubt about his words. Ding Yi reached out and pulled an old notebook from the top shelf. Without hesitation, he pulled down his hood and carefully examined the notebook. Ding Yi held the notebook out to Ming Yu. This is it. The old notebook in his hand was covered with cute, childish drawings, a complete contrast to the majestic name Erlang Shen's divine art. Ming Yu shook his head, finding it hard to believe this tattered notebook could be reliable. He flipped through the pages, growing more bewildered the more he looked. It looked just like an elementary school student's scratch pad. Ming Yu curiously read a passage. Jiang Shui, my dream is to grow up to be a robber, specializing in robbing capitalist banks and local tyrants, and give the money to the poor so they can buy houses and cars and live happily. Jiang Shui's comment, your dream is wonderful. When you grow up, don't forget your teacher. Keep it up. You should pay attention to your desk mate. His dream is to be a police officer. Ding Yi chuckled, a bit embarrassed. This was Yao Shui's homework notebook from when she was a child. She only used half of it, so it was a waste. I wrote the divine art in the back. Hearing this, Ming Yu immediately flipped to the last page, only to be startled to find that the scrawled handwriting was even worse than the elementary school students' writing in the front. Ding Yi snatched the notebook back in annoyance. Learn it if you want, stop being so picky. Am I saving you, or are you saving me? His face darkened and he hugged the old notebook tightly. If it weren't for your dad, I wouldn't even bother with you. You're ruining my secret manual. Ming Yu quickly tried to soothe him, his voice conciliatory. Don't be angry, I'll learn it, I'll learn it, I'll learn it. He tried to persuade him, then pointed to the chicken scratch handwriting. You translate it for me. Ding-E confidently opened the notebook. Fine, I'll read it for you so you'll know. But his confidence didn't last long. The smile vanished from his lips. Ding-E's face fell and his hands trembled, unsure of what to do. He quickly used the notebook to hide his embarrassment. Ming-Yu was speechless, thinking to himself, could it be that he can't even read his own handwriting? Ding-E scratched his head defensively. It's been a while. He cheerfully tucked the notebook into his shirt and said sheepishly, but it's still a technique I created myself. In about 10 days to half a month, I can probably translate it. Then he put his arm around Ming-Yu's shoulder, his tone friendly. The world of sorcerers is extremely interested in the Tiangu. It's not safe for you outside. Just stay here for now. Hearing this, Ming-Yu was overjoyed. Isn't that just perfect? Ding-E waved his hand and chuckled. There's nothing not perfect about it. The spare room is just sitting there anyway. Then he casually calculated the cost and held out his hand. $2,900 a month cash or transfer. Ming-Yu froze in confusion, wondering if he had misheard. But Ding-E's hand remained outstretched, confirming there was no mistake. Ming-Yu yelled in frustration, "What, I have to pay rent?" Ding-E cheerfully walked to the door, scrolling on his phone. For your convenience, I even sent someone to move your things. They should be back soon. Before Ming-Yu could recover from his shock, a car horn sounded outside. Oh, what did you say? They're here, they're here. Just as Ding-E stepped out the door, the moving truck rolled up. Sister Zhao raised an eyebrow, pointing behind her. Lao Shui, I've brought this kid's stuff. Ding-E beamed, patting her shoulder, his voice full of satisfaction. Satisfied, Sister Zhao jumped out of the truck, smiling brightly. You brat, you're looking well, that's great. Then she held up her phone, gesturing for payment. The moving fee is $600. Pay up, Ming-Yu snapped angrily. So you two have latched onto this sucker and plan to fleece me, is that it? Just then, the back door of the truck opened and Jiang Shue's voice rang out clearly. Sister Zhao, you can't take 600 RMB for the moving fee. She stepped out of the truck, her voice firm. Our little sun studio is not a group of black-hearted merchants. Ming-Yu was secretly overjoyed. He never expected this strange girl to be the most normal person here. A cat poked its head out from Jiang Shue's shirt. She said tiredly, I just checked online. She struggled to herd a group of cats through the gate, panting. The moving fee for this distance should only be about 520 win. Jiang Shui puffed out her cheeks, annoyed at being overcharged by 80 win. But Sister Zhao quickly placated her with a bright smile. With the extra money, I'll buy you new things. You should also wear more makeup. Hearing this, Ming-Yu's head spun and he collapsed to the ground. I was wrong. Everyone here is abnormal. Wang Ding-E leisurely walked over to Jiang Shui. Xiao Shui, you're back so soon? She presented the cats she had just found. Can you see which one belongs to Miss Wang? I couldn't tell, so I caught them all. She was covered in cats and dogs. Ding-E pondered for the moment, then pointed at the cat curled up in Jiang Shue's shirt. I have no idea either, he sighed. How about we call Miss Wang tomorrow to identify it herself? For now, just let them in the house. Yeah, let's do that. Jiang Shui immediately let all the cats and dogs down and wearily dragged herself to her room. She said, then I'll go to my room to rest first. Ding-E encouraged her in a warm voice. Xiao Shui, you worked hard today. Once she was out of sight, he instantly reverted to his money-grubbing self, his eyes sparkling. He turned to Ming-Yu, enthusiastic. Classmate Ju, do you need help moving your luggage next? Ming-Yu replied irritably. No need, I'll do it myself. He thought to himself, this guy definitely wants to rip me off. It was late at night. Ming-Yu lay in the messy room, his mind in a turmoil. He was outed as a scumbag and even got beaten up. Little Sun Studio. Could Dad also know about the Tiangu? Is it possible that Dad is also a sorcerer? Finally, he closed his eyes and pulled the blanket over his head. I'm so tired today, I have to sleep. Suddenly, the incessant meowing of cats rang out. Ming-Yu tried to cover his ears, determined to sleep. In Jiang Shue's room next door, Ding-E had secretly climbed onto the ceiling, snapping pictures furiously with a camera. She was hugging a cat in her sleep, talking, I can't eat anymore. Xiao Shui looks so cute when she's sleeping. Ding-E gleefully raised his camera with a large lens and took pictures enthusiastically. The meowing from next door made it impossible for Ming-Yu to fall asleep. His eyes shot open, and he texted his classmate Xiao Ai, how do you make cat soup? The reply came, take the tender leaves of a bok choy, use clean water. The next morning, Ming-Yu dragged himself out looking sleep-deprived. From the courtyard, a woman's cheerful voice rang out. "Miss Wang, I've finally found you." Miss Wang hugged the cat tightly while making a transfer on her phone. "You found my Miss Wang in just one night." "Hello, Xiao Shui, you guys are very reliable." She added 1000. Ding Yi's eyes crinkled into a smile as his phone showed the new account balance. "It's what we're supposed to do, you're too kind." As Miss Wang left, he didn't forget to wave, "Miss Wang, just let us know if you need anything in the future." Turning to Jiang Shui, he gave her an enthusiastic thumbs up. "I told you Miss Wang is a rich lady." She wondered, her voice curious. "But that cat is clearly a male, so why call it Miss Wang?" Ding Yi shrugged his eyes, twinkling with amusement. "Maybe their cat is gay. So that's how it is, it's possible." Ming Yu let out a tired yawn and shuffled out of his room, his hair a mess. "What are you two discussing so early in the morning?" Ding Yi flashed a bright smile, patting his shoulder enthusiastically. "You're up. Today I'll have Xiao Shui show you around the neighborhood to get you familiar with the place, and then I'll teach you some basics." Then he suddenly paused, looking surprised at Ming Yu's appearance, a school bag dangling from his shoulder. "Why are you carrying a school bag going out after what happened yesterday? You surely don't still want to go to school, do you?" "Do you have to be such a nerd?" Ding Yi sighed, his voice full of distress. "I often oversleep and have been marked down several times. If I get caught skipping class, I'm done for. Nowadays, everyone has a master's degree or higher. People from Tsinghua and Peking University are all studying hard. If I don't have a degree, people will look down on me when I enter the workforce." Ding Yi and Jiang Shui stared at each other blankly, their eyes filled with a silver-like haze of confusion. Neither of them had ever held a job or set foot in a university, so they couldn't possibly understand. "Oh, is that so?" Din Ok nodded, then turned to Jiang Tuyet, his voice cautious. "It's too dangerous for him to go out alone these days. What if he gets sneak attacked again, or his animalistic nature erupts and he attacks someone else? That would be a huge problem." Jiang Tuyet nodded vigorously before he even finished, "Okay." Min Vu suddenly became wary, his eyes narrowing. "Wait a minute. This protection service doesn't charge a fee, does it?" Din Ok frowned, his voice annoyed. "What kind of person do you take me for?" The scene shifts to the south gate of the Third University of Science and Technology, where an old van sputters to a stop. Min Vu jumped out of the van, grinning from ear to ear. "Sister Triu, thanks a lot." But Sister Triu was quick as a flash, her voice deadpan. "The fare is 168. Min Vu was startled, lost his footing, and fell flat on the ground. His face pale, he clutched his wallet and begged for mercy. This little lamb was about to be fleeced. Sister Triu burst out laughing and waved her hand. "Sorry, just kidding." Then Jiang Tuye gently opened the car door and stepped out with a poised demeanor. Min Vu looked up, saw her walking toward him, then glanced behind her, his voice tense. "I'd advise you to get up." Around them, students started whispering, "What's with that guy? A pervert lying on the ground staring at a girl's thighs. Unbelievable, why don't people like him just die? Ugh, so disgusting. That girl looks so familiar." Rumors spread like wildfire across campus. "Isn't that the girl who was going around looking for a scumbag earlier?" "The scumbag crawling on the ground seems to be Min Vu." "Really?" Min Vu sat up, his face contorted, not knowing what expression to make. He pointed at himself and chuckled awkwardly. "And what's more, that scumbag is me." Jiang Tuye didn't bother to deny it, nodding calmly. "That's right, I came to the school looking for you yesterday." The realization hit Min Vu, and he stomped his feet angrily. "This is all your fault again." From a distance, Sister Trio could only sigh. "What a poor kid." Min Vu walked on muttering complaints and fuming with anger while Jiang Tuyet quietly followed behind. "Yeah, this is unbelievable. My reputation is completely ruined. Do you know that—" Jiang Tuyet tilted her head slightly, explaining gently. "The campus is too big and I couldn't find you, so I used a little technique." That day, she had disguised herself among the students, put on a pitiful expression, and asked a girl, "Do you know a scumbag named Min Vu?" Then she covered her face, her eyes welling up with tears, and sobbed while wiping them away, her voice trembling. "Yesterday that Min Vu had indecent intentions toward me. I didn't consent, so he forced himself on me. What's more, he's two-timing with over a dozen other female students playing with their feelings. He's an enemy to all women." Hearing the story retold, Min Vu was truly speechless, his mouth agape. Jiang Tuyet continued in a monotone voice. "Once the news of you being a scumbag spread throughout the school, I knew you would come find me yourself. Then I could take you back." Min Vu gritted his teeth, his eyes wide. "It's a real miracle you could come up with such a damn stupid plan." Jiang Tuyet sighed, a hint of helplessness in her eyes. "I didn't come up with this method, someone else taught me." Minvu clenched his fists on the verge of tears. An image of Din Ok with a cunning smile flashed in his mind, and for some reason he was certain who the mastermind was. He walked on, muttering and complaining, "So what am I supposed to do now? I can't be known as a scumbag for all 4 years of college." Jiang Tuyet tilted her head, her tone sincere. "Master and Sister Triu said that women love bad boys. I think you'll be more attractive to girls now." With tears in his eyes, Minvu yelled, "Are you kidding me? Where did that logic even come from?" Suddenly, Jiang Tuye stopped, her gaze turning sharp as she looked behind them. On high alert, she quickly pushed Minvu to the ground. "Get down now!" Instantly, a flock of strange birds swooped down, the sound of their flapping wings like a storm. Their eyes glowed red, aimed straight at Minvu. Luckily, they both hit the ground just in time to avoid the attack. Minvu dazedly lifted his head, his voice trembling. "What's going on?" They both looked up. A lead bird was perched on a branch, its wings spread wide, its blood-red eyes terrifying. The other birds also began to growl their gazes as if they wanted to pierce through them. The path ahead was blocked by the flock of bizarre birds, the air thick with killing intent. The lead bird let out a sharp, commanding cry, and immediately countless bird shadows rained down. Minvu dusted himself off and glanced at Jiang Tuyet, his voice apprehensive. "Hey, swordswoman, they're coming again." In contrast to his panic, Jiang Tuyet was calm, her eyes sharp. She opened her bag and drew a sword that glinted with the light of steel. Standing protectively in front of Minvu, she instructed in a calm voice, "Stay right where you are, don't run around. Stay close to me. There might be other enemies, so we need to avoid an ambush." Facing the ferocious flock, the magical energy from the sword began to radiate heat. The air vibrated rhythmically. Jiang Tuyet swung her sword, creating a whirlwind that swept up the birds. They were thrown into disarray by the magical weapon, their feathers flying everywhere and showering down on Minvu. He quickly pulled up his hood, muttering, "It stinks." Watching Jiang Tuyet stand heroically before him, he couldn't help but exclaim inwardly, "So cool!" The flock of birds fell from the sky, hitting the ground with heavy thuds, motionless. Jiang Tuyet suddenly paused, her gaze softening as she looked at the trembling birds. Their blood-red eyes were now unusually weak. She bent down gently, cradled one, and said in a low voice, "These pigeons seem to be controlled by a spell, probably a type of voodoo curse cast using some kind of poisonous insect concoction." She observed her surroundings, her eyes sharp. "To be able to control so many birds at once, the opponent is no simple foe." Minvu scratched his head, hesitating. "Someone is controlling these birds to attack me. No way, why do people hate me so much?" Jiang Tuyet turned back, her voice soft. "For now, let's go back and report to Boss Sese first." Hearing this, Minvu's blood boiled, and he shouted, "What did you say? How can we just go back? I haven't even gone to class." On a grand scale, it's about cultural inheritance. On a smaller scale, it's about finding a good job. How can I go back without attending class? Jiang Tuyet was blunt, not hesitating for a second. "So is studying more important, or is your puny life more important?" Minvu muttered helplessly, "My puny life." In the end, he had no choice but to drag his feet after her, still wondering aloud, "So what about these pigeons? They're not dead, are they?" Jiang Tuyet replied in a flat tone, "I only knocked them out. They'll wake up in a few minutes." From a distance, the gritted her teeth as she watched through binoculars. Her small hands clenched into fists, her face scowling. "That bitch is a sorceress, and she's even protecting that scumbag!" The little girl bit her nails, muttering, "Could it be that he uses some kind of spell to attract so many girls?" Suddenly, the flinched and shouted, throwing her hands in the air, "Damn scumbag! Unforgivable!" Unexpectedly, a voice sounded from behind her. "Well now, what are you doing in my office?" Startled, the turned around quickly, standing timidly with her hands behind her back, her voice sweet. "Oh, Professor, I was just studying cladistic development. It's driving me crazy, Vinegar. There are still some parts I don't understand." The little girl's eyes sparkled as she looked at the professor, a gaze that could melt anyone's heart. The professor paused, turning away with a hint of embarrassment. "Is that so? Research Lab 2 is empty. Let's go over there to discuss it." Tunda beamed with a bright smile. "Great. You're the best professor." 3 hours later, in a cozy room, the little girl bowed politely, her voice soft. "Thank you, Professor. I feel more confident about my next thesis now." The skipped down the hallway, beaming with joy. The little girl clasped her hands, a radiant smile on her face, as she muttered that Vinegar was truly interesting. Tunda, a 14-year-old student, a sophomore majoring in molecular biology in the biology department's youth class. Suddenly, Xiao Hui swooped down from nowhere and landed gently on the little girl's head. A silent breeze swept by, and the space suddenly fell into silence. The clutched her head in alarm, her voice full of confusion. I came here to deal with that scumbag, so how did I end up studying? Zhao Hui raised a wing solemnly and replied, chirp, chirp. The little girl stood up straight and nodded confidently. That's right, Xiao Hui. We must become allies of justice. Xiao Hui chimed in with a loud cry. Chirp around them, passers-by whispered among themselves. She's mentally challenged? And she has a bird on her head. So cute. Embarrassed, the lowered her head and hurried away, muttering. How annoying they called me cute again. Suddenly the phone in her pocket rang. The little girl slowly answered the phone. Hello, a voice came from the other end. Vigilante Tun. A young man sitting at the bar spoke in a deep, steady voice. We've finished the investigation on the lawyer you asked us to look into. The files have been sent to you. The bartender across from him chimed in while wiping a glass. Who is Vigilante Ton targeting this time? He poured milk into a glass while the young man rested his chin on his hand, his voice serious. Wasn't there that murder case involving the rich kid not too long ago? That lawyer was the investigator. The plaintiff was accused of fabricating evidence, threatening witnesses' tax evasion, and using yin-yang contracts. A lawyer committing major crimes indeed. The bartender held up a carton of 82 fresh milk and continued. She commissions us twice a week. The fees are enough to live on for a while. Just be her informant, that's all you need to do. The young man finished his glass of milk, shook his head wearily, and still left. That little girl doesn't know her own strength. I don't dare get close to her. The empty milk glass rolled across the table. In the dark room, two girls huddled together, trembling on the bed. On the floor, things were thrown about messily. The unfortunate young man was tied up tightly, hanging from a tree, screaming in fear. Heroine, spare my life, I was wrong. I'll turn myself in tomorrow. The watched with amusement, her voice stern. Go right now. The naked young man trudged to the front of the police station. The strolled down the street, excitedly waving a tree branch in her hand. The little girl examined the branch, judging it to be an excellent sword. Seriously, she mumbled, 10 years honing a single sword, its sharp edge has never been used. The swung the branch forcefully. Today I'll let you all see it. Is anyone being bullied? The little girl leaped up and struck the tree trunk in front of her hard. Under her power, a branch broke and fell. Quickly, the branch from above landed right on the thief's head. The little girl collapsed in pain, holding her swollen head, her eyes welling up with tears. Zhao Hui, perched across the street, let out a dejected cry. The leaned against the tree trunk, looking at the city before her, and said softly, Xiao Hui, tell me, why are there so many bad people in the world? The little girl looked up, her voice pensive. They're shameless for money, disregard morals and laws, and even risk their lives. Under the pale moonlight, the little girl whispered, and then there are those perverts always with their insatiable desires. Zhao Hui chirped loudly, Cha-cha. The lay on the grass, nodding. That's right, I'm talking about that damn old man. The little girl raised her voice angrily. Mom is so beautiful, yet he keeps a mistress here and has 2 more on the side. Suddenly, the thief's expression changed, a mischievous glint in her eyes as she raised her trembling hands. Although I later found out Mom was also keeping a man. The thief looked annoyed. Damn scumbags, both the men and the women. Birds of a feather really do flock together. Suddenly, the little girl sat up. Neither of them are good people. I have to cut ties with them, Zhao Hui chirped as if in agreement. Suddenly, the thief's stomach rumbled. Cars sped past her. The lay down again, saying loudly, I've been away from home for 5 days now. They haven't even looked for me. They're probably off having fun with their lovers. The little girl turned her head away and whispered, a bunch of trash, even worse trash than that Chu Min-vu guy. The thought of Min-vu and Jiang Shui and a feeling of annoyance welled up inside her. And that person protecting Chu Min-vu was probably tricked and deceived too. The little girl looked straight ahead, frowning. But don't think I'm out of options just because he has a protector. The jumped up, her eyes cold, and said to herself in a determined voice, I can't beat my parents, but you think I can't beat you. The little girl put her hands on her hips, exuding immense confidence. Xiao Hui, let's show them how formidable Heroine's son is. Suddenly, Xiao Hui swayed. A wave of sleepiness hit it, causing it to tumble over. The shouted, her voice echoing, Xiao Hui, don't fall asleep. On the bustling street, lively chatter and laughter rang out, lamb skewers here. This milk tea is so good, the stopped in front of a restaurant. The door opened slightly and a bell chimed. The little girl froze at the sight of the large space inside, lively music echoing in her ears. A drunk man slurred, Hey, you guys, let students in here. The woman next to him quickly reminded him in a soft voice, she's a college student. Don't let her hear you call her a kid. The walked through the door and steadily descended the stairs. The bar was on the B1 level. As soon as she appeared, lively, teasing voices rang out. Heroine, why are you here so late today? I've got the soda you like over here, come on over. Come on, have a drink with me. The little girl frowned, lowered her head, and walked on, ignoring them. Dali and two other guys cheerfully asked, not in a good mood today. Heartbroken, maybe it's because of the school health check being both short and flat-chested. The exploded, shouting, everyone! The little girl put her hands on her hips confidently, her voice firm. I have a favor to ask of everyone. Her words left the crowd baffled and confused. What is it? You can count on us to help. The bartender asked softly, the what's got you so angry? The lifted her chin and answered concisely. There's a scumbag at school who's two-timing a dozen girls. I went to teach him a lesson, but an intern stopped me. The little girl held up Jiang Shue's phone, her eyes blazing. It was this girl who protected that scumbag. The's face turned sinister. Tomorrow, whoever can keep that girl busy, I'll take care of the scumbag. After it's done, payment is negotiable. Dali puffed out his chest confidently. A small matter, leave it to me. The guy next to him chimed in enthusiastically. Dali requests to go into battle. Suddenly, the guy froze, looked at the phone screen, and shouted, Isn't this Gi Jiancho? In an instant, the three guys' expressions changed, becoming wary. Heroine, maybe we should just drop this one. The drunk guy held the bottle, his voice trembling. This girl Jiang Shui, her boss is Xue Dinge. Their underworld nickname is Gui Jiancho. Can't mess with them. The three guys crossed their arms, their voices lowering as they wondered, Zhu Dinga, that cat abuser. The three guys burst out laughing. He doesn't abuse cats, but he might treat us like cats to abuse grinding our faces into the ground. That's like a cow riding a rocket badass to the extreme. The little girl held up two fingers, her eyes cold. I don't care how badass she is, I'll pay double. Dali shook his head awkwardly. Can't mess with her. The guy next to him forced a smile. Let's just drop it, our lives are more important. 3 beer bottles clinked together, and the group said in unison, That's right. Come on, let's sing and dance! In the end, the had no choice but to leave yelling angrily, A bunch of stupid cowards! Suddenly, a voice spoke up. Young lady, don't be angry. An old man slowly approached from behind his voice, deep and warm. Perhaps I can help you. He smiled kindly and continued, Just don't be late with the payment after the job is done. As the gentle morning sun spilled over the rooftops, Minvu slowly woke up, yawned, and trudged towards the door. He dragged himself wearily down the hallway, his eyes still blurry with sleep. Arriving at the bathroom, Minvu paused in front of the mirror. His eyelids drooping, he absent-mindedly brushed his teeth. With his hair a mess, he distractedly reached for the doorknob. Without hesitation, Minvu pushed the door open and walked in. Inside, Jiang Shui was sitting on the toilet, looking at him calmly. Minvu jumped, spitting out the toothpaste in his mouth, and hastily slammed the door shut. His panicked voice rang out, Sorry, I didn't realize someone was in here. The toothbrush in his hand clattered to the floor. Jiang Shui remained seated, covered in toothpaste foam. Suddenly, a pair of staggering feet approached. Sister Zhao, her eyes still bleary with sleep, opened the bathroom door and said in a drowsy voice, Xiao Shui, are you done yet? I can't hold it in much longer. In front of her was Minvu kneeling on the floor with an awkward expression. Sister Zhao asked blankly, What are you doing here? Minvu scratched his face and stammered, I came to brush my teeth and wash my face. Sister Zhao looked down at the toothbrush lying on the floor, even more confused. Then what about this toothbrush? Minvu quickly cut her off, his voice apologetic. I'm offering a sincere apology. Oh! From inside the bathroom, a soft sound was heard. Jiang Shui pushed the door open and came out saying softly, Sister Zhao, you've been waiting long. Sister Zhao looked at her and was startled. Oh, Xiao Shui. But she immediately froze. Jiang Shui, in her flimsy, soaking wet pajamas, stood there with an unusual calmness. Sister Zhao immediately shot a cold glare at Min. Vu rushed over to grab his collar and yelled angrily, You brat, what did you do to Xiao Shui? Ignoring his explanations, Sister Zhao attacked furiously, while Minvu could only stammer, Wait, it's not like that. Hold on, help me. On the early morning, street stalls began to open for business. Minvu and Jiang Shui walked side by side, each carrying a bag of youtiao. He spoke up, his voice embarrassed. Sorry, I had just woken up and couldn't see clearly. Minvu's face was bruised and swollen. He mumbled, A yard and then a VKFC is just too brutal. He held up the 2 bags of youtiao and wondered, Can the four of us finish all these Yutiao? Jiang Shui turned back and replied nonchalantly, My dad alone can eat 7 or 8 of them. This amount would only make him 30% full. Minvu thought for a moment and mumbled, You guys were eaten into poverty by him, weren't you? Suddenly, Jiang Shui raised a hand to stop him, her voice lowering, Wait. In front of them, a dog with glowing red eyes was growling. Minvu chuckled, trying to act calm. Pfft, it's just a puppy, don't be so tense. Don't worry, I'll handle it. But when he turned back, his face went pale. Behind them, dozens of dogs were barking up a storm on the rooftops. The cats with a dense, murderous aura were baring their fangs. Chu Minvu trembled and stammered, Actually, I'm also really scared of dogs. We should still let the heroine go first. Then Jiang Tuye didn't answer, stepping forward 1 step at a time. A lead dog with glowing red eyes bared its fangs menacingly. Killing intent billowed up. Beside it, a black cat growled, its golden eyes blazing with hatred. She whispered a reminder, Be careful, don't stand too far from me. The cat suddenly charged toward Chu Minvu like a whirlwind. He flailed his arms in terror, shouting, Who the hell is targeting me? The ferocious dog lunged, opening its mouth to bite. Chu Minvu nimbly dodged. Jiang Tuyet immediately rushed forward, landing a heavy blow on the dog's head. Behind her, Chu Minvu was tightly surrounded by the cats, screaming, Help! The cats are eating people. Suddenly, the sound of steady footsteps echoed. Jiang Tuyet turned around to see an old man calmly approaching, his voice gentle. Young lady, I have a small matter to discuss. Jiang Tuyet's voice tightened, her eyes sharp and cold. Chu Minvu, go on ahead. Chu Minvu flailed his arms, his feet hastily fleeing as he shouted, Heroine, you can do it. But right after he turned back, roaring angrily, But why do they keep targeting my pants to bite? In an instant, the space between Jiang Tuyet and the old man fell silent. Her gaze was as sharp as a knife pinned directly on him. In contrast, the old man remained composed, the corner of his mouth twitching slightly. Young lady, don't look so scary. Without waiting for her to reply, he continued in a leisurely tone, I know the art of making sugar candy. Would you like to see? Not letting Jiang Tuyet speak, the old man raised a pipe to his mouth and blew. From his hands, the sugar candy gradually took shape. A bull suddenly came to life, charging forward furiously. Jiang Tuyet didn't flinch, her feet planted firmly as she faced the beast. It grew larger and larger, its aura overwhelming. The bag of fried dough sticks in her hand fell to the ground with a thud. Jiang Tuyet gripped a fried dough stick, tightly turning it into a weapon. A powerful stream of spiritual energy erupted around her as she continuously struck the bull. Before her power, its body gradually cracked and shattered, pieces falling everywhere. Jiang Tuyet coldly looked at the fragments, her hand gripping her weapon, pointing it straight at the old man, her voice stern. Why are you targeting Chu Minvu? Who ordered you? The old man remained calm, chuckling softly. Young lady, isn't it a bit rude to fight me with a fried dough stick? From his fingertips, sugar strands as fine as silk appeared. His voice suddenly deepened. I hate brats who don't understand etiquette the most. The sugar strands reached out to touch the fragments, quickly occupying the space around Jiang Tuyet. The fragments immediately reassembled, transforming into countless bulls that surrounded her. Jiang Tuyet's eyes scanned the scene as she muttered, What kind of technique is this? To be able to control so many fragments at once. The old man laughed heartily, his hands continuously manipulating the sugar candy. My art is ever-changing. Isn't it fun? The bulls formed a swirling current of energy, trapping her tightly. Suddenly, one charged forward, and Jiang Tuyet, quick as a flash, retaliated with her spiritual energy, causing it to shatter. From behind, another one advanced. She continued to attack, causing the beasts to disintegrate one by one. High above, Zhao Hui watched the chaotic scene below intently. While controlling the sugar candy, the old man took out his phone, his voice gentle. Little thee, I've held her up as planned. From the alley, the sharp voice rang out. Don't call me so familiarly. When the call ended, the little girl muttered, This old man is always trying to take advantage of me. It's not like I'm his granddaughter. Jiang Tuyet clenched her fists, gritting her teeth. But thanks to the old man, she now had a chance to deal with that guy. Ahead, Minvu was being chased by the beasts, screaming, Help! He turned back, shouting angrily, Why do you keep chasing me? Suddenly, he froze when he saw then raised his hand with a kind voice. Little friend, run away quickly. There are rabid dogs. But the paid no attention to his words. The little girl commanded in a sharp voice, Zhao Hui, attack continuously! Minvu shrieked in panic, shitbird droppings. He couldn't react in time and slammed face first into a nearby wall. The impact left him dazed, his nose bleeding profusely. The pointed straight at him, her voice steely. Chu Minvu, I've found you. The little girl stood proudly before him, declaring loudly, "You harm innocent girls, an enemy of women, your crimes are immense. Today I, the revered heroine, will deliver justice on behalf of the heavens." The Thi's eyes burned with determination. She pointed and ordered, "Rip this scoundrel's pants off and rid the people of this menace." Minvu collapsed to the ground, trembling as he tried to explain, "Wait, it's a misunderstanding. I'm a good person." The Thi was unconcerned, her voice cold. "If you're a good person, then Heman Ching is also a gentleman of honor." Minvu rolled on the ground, repeatedly explaining, "Why is it about this scumbag thing? I'm still a virgin, I've never been in love. I haven't even held a girl's hand." The Thi crossed her arms and replied slowly, "Keep acting. The whole school knows about it already. You think I'll fall for it?" The little girl continued to order, "Bite his legs for me." The beasts charged madly. Minvu's face was covered in wounds. He gritted his teeth. "I already said it's a misunderstanding." Suddenly, Minvu sprang up, getting into a running stance. Around him, a blazing red stream of spiritual energy erupted. He roared, "Are you even listening to what people say?" He raised his hands, his eyes bloodshot. "Getting bitten by so many dogs can kill a person, understand?" The blazing red spiritual energy exploded violently. He raised his voice. "Do you have any idea how frustrated I've been these past few days?" The Thi looked at the scene before her, horrified. Minvu lunged, pinning the little girl down, and roared, "Today I'll give you a gift that takes 9 months and 10 days. The Thi lay underneath, her eyes shimmering as she trembled. "Don't." The wild beasts simultaneously turned and left as if avoiding a rising storm. The blazing red aura from Chu Minvu erupted violently like a flame consuming the space. His eyes were cold and sharp, exuding the threatening air of a demon. Suddenly, Jiang Tuyet stepped out from the shadows, her demeanor resolute. "Chu Minvu, do you know what you're doing?" The sound made him turn his head, his gaze meeting hers. Without hesitation, Jiang Tuyet swung her hand and slapped Minvu hard across the face. The blow sent him stumbling back, his back hitting the wall with a thud. He clutched his head in pain, yelling, "Hey, what did you hit me for?" Jiang Tuyet stood towering before him, her voice as cold as ice. "Just now you almost lost consciousness." She glanced at the Thi, who was sneakily trying to slip away. "Where do you think you're going?" Startled by being called out, the froze and turned back abruptly. "Hello, sir and ma'am, I'm just a girl passing by." Still leaning against the wall, Minvu pointed at the little girl, his voice full of anger. "She's the one who ordered the dogs and cats to bite me." The Thi turned around, her shimmering eyes filled with innocence, her voice as gentle as a breeze. "Pretty sister, this big brother is a pervert. He suddenly pounced on me. It was very scary." Jiang Tuyet raised her weapon, her face radiating a cold, murderous aura. "You can't fool me, don't try to act cute. Tell me your real purpose." The trembled, her voice pleading, "Please spare me." The little girl pointed at Minvu, her voice hardening as she placed the blame. "It's all that scumbag's fault. It's all his fault." Hearing this, Minvu jumped up and retorted angrily, "I already said I'm not a scumbag." The Thi stood tall, surrounded by a sparkling light like a hero stepping out of a legend. "I am a friend of justice who specializes in righting wrongs, lending a helping hand, and eliminating evil. In the martial world, I'm known as the revered heroine. I heard this Chu Minvu has harmed over a dozen young women, so I came here specifically." But Jiang Tuyet remained calm, her voice even. "So you didn't come targeting the Tianggu?" The muttered in confusion. "The Tianggu that swallows the moon." The little girl sighed, looking disappointed. Jiang Tuyet moved closer, her voice soft but captivating. "The thing about Chu Minvu being a scumbag is just a rumor. According to our investigation, he's still a virgin and has never had a girlfriend in his life." The Thi's eyes widened, her voice stunned. "A rumor," the little girl insisted angrily. "But everyone says he's a scumbag." Seeing that the Thi was still stubborn, Jiang Tuyet slightly pulled down her collar, revealing a fatally seductive look. "Then watch this." She slammed one foot against the wall right next to Minvu. He broke into a sweat, a giant question mark appearing over his head as Jiang Tuyet leaned in gently, lifting his chin with her hand, her voice full of provocation. "Come to my room tonight, okay?" Minvu's face turned beet red as he stammered awkwardly. "What are you talking about? We've only known each other for a few days. This is developing way too fast." Jiang Tuyet pulled her leg back calmly, turning around, her voice soft. "Understand now." The Thi nodded her head repeatedly, giving a thumbs up, her eyes shining brightly. "I get it, you're definitely a virgin!" Minvu cried out in frustration. "Hey, aren't you guys going a little too far?" The Thi covered her mouth, trying to suppress a laugh. "Sorry, virgin guy, I misunderstood you." "I know I was wrong." Minvu's anger flared up, but he could only grind his teeth helplessly. This little brat is so annoying. The thee smiled brightly, turning to leave. Well then, pretty sister, the misunderstanding has been cleared up. If there's nothing else, I'll be going. The little girl ran off, waving goodbye to the pretty sister and the virgin guy goodbye. Minvu shouted, his voice full of frustration. What? He said with a scowl, who are you calling a virgin? He turned to Jiang Tuye and questioned her. That brat definitely wasn't sincerely sorry. Are you really just letting her go like that? Seeing her engrossed in her phone, Minvu frowned and asked, What are you looking at? Jiang Tuye replied slowly, her voice as calm as a rippleless lake. I'm looking up that kid's identity. A conversation appeared on the phone screen. Help me look this person up. This kid looks very familiar. In just a moment, the other party sent back information on Tun the Thee. The data appeared clearly line by line. Named Tun the female, 14 years old, 144 centimeters tall, hometown, Qinhuangdao Island Han ethnicity. 14 years old. 14 years old. At 14, she is a sophomore majoring in molecular biology at the junior class of the 3rd University of Science and Technology. Knowledgeable in Hong Kong sorcery, tame head sorcery, Miao witchcraft, spiritualism, divination and astrology, and Quanzhen Longmen internal arts. A jack of all trades, master of none. Personality, lively, generous, and righteous. Well-liked in the Jianghu, she calls herself a friend of justice, hates evil with a passion, and specializes in righting wrongs. Illustrious family background, parents are entrepreneurs with assets of 10 billion, but have recently been mired in scandals over their kept lovers, causing the family relationship to become strained and cold. Afterwards, Jiang Tuye scanned the information and commented thoughtfully, She's not a bad person. Just a kid who's obsessed with movies and likes to play the role of a righteous crusader. And her family is very rich. Minvu frowned and pointed at the screen, his voice bewildered. There's a lot to unpack with this person. I don't even know where to begin. Then Jiang Tuye rubbed her chin, her gaze sharp. At least she wasn't lying, so she probably won't bother you again. She bent down to pick up the fried dough stick from the ground. Jiang Tuye spoke softly, her voice gentle but firm. Let's go home. Pick up your fried dough stick. Everyone is waiting. Minvu scratched his head and replied sheepishly, I was so focused on running that I dropped them all. In a small alley, the Thee was bent over, panting, with beads of sweat on her forehead. Good thing that big sister was nice, otherwise I would have been in trouble, the little girl mumbled, suddenly recalling the words she had just heard. Jiang Tuyet, Jiang Tuyet. That beauty works for Tuye Din Ach. Her Jianghu nicknames are Ghost's Bane and the Unprovocable. The They rubbed her head and mumbled, Those people said this big sister is Ghost's Bane. What a lie! Angrily, she threw a decisive punch into the air. I don't care who it is spreading baseless rumors to harm me and getting an innocent person hurt. I will definitely drag them into the light. An image of Jiang Tuyet flashed through her mind like the mastermind behind it all. But just as she was about to leave, a voice suddenly called out, The Thee, is it done? The Thee glanced over, annoyed. I thought you'd been defeated and wouldn't dare show your face again. The man slowly walked over, his voice deep. That girl's skills are not bad. In a residential area, I couldn't use my full strength, which is why I let her escape. He gestured, his voice light but meaningful. Why did she save the person and then just leave? The quickly denied it. That's not what happened. He nodded and continued. Since the job wasn't botched, then my payment? The Thee held up her hands, her demeanor calm and confident. Who do you think I am? Would I stiff you? Just name your price. He nodded with a faint smile. That's right, that's right. Suddenly, a strange piece of candy flashed in his hand. As for me, I don't like money. The frowned. Then what do you want? His expression suddenly changed. His eyes became bloodshot and his voice turned sinister. Of course I want you, my good little niece. The words terrified the Thee and her body froze, unable to move. Meanwhile, the three of them sat around the dining table and began to eat. Din Ak spoke up, annoyed. You two were out for so long and only came back with one soggy fried dough stick. Jiang Tuyet was about to answer, but Minvu cut her off, his voice strained. It was crowded today, they were sold out. Then Jiang Tuyet took a sip of water from the glass Minvu handed her and said calmly, The person who ambushed Chu Minvu before came again. But she wasn't targeting Tian Kao. It was just a misunderstanding, and it's been resolved. Din Ak asked while chewing on the fried dough stick. It's good that it's resolved. So how much did you get for medical expenses and emotional distress? Jiang Tuyet maintained an innocent expression, focused on drinking her water, and didn't answer. Minvu gave a forced smile and answered for her. We let her go, didn't take any money. Din-ak sighed in frustration, but then he suddenly shot to his feet, his brow furrowed, his voice booming like thunder. Little Tu-ye, I've taught you since you were a child. In the Jianghu, everything is about money. When a golden opportunity comes along, you have to milk it for all it's worth. Looking at the meager meal on the table, he continued, his voice full of weariness. We have to eat pickled vegetables and mushy rice every single day. We can't even afford to buy fried dough sticks every day. It's just pickled mustard greens with chili pickled radish with garlic. He shook his head, his voice growing more frustrated. We're already this poor. Why would you pass up a chance to make money? Hearing Din-ak, Minvu glanced at him and muttered wearily, and just the other day you were feasting like a king. Din-ak walked over to Minvu, squeezed his cheeks, and said in a half-joking, half-serious tone, Look at little Chu here ambushed twice in a row. How tragic asking for 800,000 in hospital fees wouldn't be unreasonable. Minvu's voice trembled. Big brother, luckily thanks to heroin Jiang, I wasn't hurt. Din-ak patted his head, his tone teasing. Even if you weren't physically hurt, your fragile little soul must have been terrified. We can't forget about the emotional distress. Minvu played along, pretending to cry. Big brother, she called me a virgin. Jiang Tuyet's fingers flew across her phone as she spoke. I've sent the intelligence department's file to you. You can go find her and demand payment? Din-ak's eyes lit up as if he'd struck gold. Let me see. What does this person look like? How much can we get out of her? At the same time, Minvu's phone buzzed with a notification. He hurriedly opened it, his eyes widening in shock. On the screen was an email from the advisor for Class 2 of the Science and Technology Department cohort of June 2021. It read, Recently, many students have been skipping and cutting classes. Quite a few have been consistently absent from multiple courses. Among them are Tran Ki Kon Trin Tuan Luong Chu Min Vu Triu Tu Ham Duong Tao Jia and Li Lak Niem. These 6 students are in serious violation. The department's Academic Affairs Committee has decided that if any of you miss one more class, you will fail all of your courses for this semester. We hope you will take this as a warning. After reading it, Minvu's face turned pale, sweat broke out, and his whole body trembled. Seeing Minvu rushing outside, Din-ak called out in surprise, Hey, where is little Chu going? Minvu replied hurriedly, his voice panicked. To class! I'm about to fail 12 subjects! He bolted down the street, tears streaming endlessly down his face. Why do they always take attendance on the days I skip class? Please, God, don't let them take attendance today. Suddenly, the sound of fast-rolling wheels came from behind him. It was Jiang Tuyet on an electric scooter. Minvu looked at her in surprise and asked, You have an electric scooter? Jiang Tuyet turned to him, her voice calm. Stop running around. Go home and wait or you'll get ambushed again. Minvu quickly grabbed the back of the scooter, forcing a smile. Great heroine, take me with you. Nothing bad will happen with you around. Jiang Tuyet glanced at him and asked, Are you sure about that? Suddenly, a figure above them caught both of their eyes. It was little Hui. Seeing it, Minvu panicked quickly, covering his crotch and exclaiming, Again! But this time, little Hui didn't dive in to attack. It just circled around Minvu, leaving him stunned and confused. He looked up at the bird, his voice full of confusion. What's going on? It's not attacking this time. Jiang Tuyet, with a mischievous look on her face, turned to him and smiled. You can even recognize a bird's face. Minvu scowled, his voice annoyed. I'd recognize it even if it were turned to ash. He glared, veins popping on his forehead, pointed at little Hui and growled, This bird belongs to that brat, and it's put a ton of curses on me. A moment later, little Hui flew down and landed on the seat of an old yellow bicycle next to a trash can. It spread its wings wide and let out a few sharp cries. Then it pointed with one wing, put the other to its beak, and chirped something. Finally, it pretended to tremble as if it were about to faint. Jiang Tuyet frowned, pointed at little Hui, and asked, What is it saying? Translate. Minvu was speechless and shook his head. I don't understand bird language. A second later, little Hui began squawking loudly again as if trying to convey something. Minvu rubbed his chin, mumbling as if he'd just realized something. But I think I'm starting to understand. He watched little Hui's gestures intently, his brow twitching slightly. After a moment, Minvu's eyes flew open and he exclaimed in alarm, That brat was ambushed! The scene shifts to the thee as she slowly opens her eyes. Her gaze swept over the unfamiliar surroundings as she faltered, Where is this? Suddenly, the thee's eyes widened as she felt something sticky clinging to her arm. She screamed in panic, It's so sticky, what is this? From the darkness, an old man with a sinister smile spoke. "My dear grandchild, are you awake?" The shot up, her voice trembling. "Where is this? What do you want?" The old man chuckled, his eyes cunning. "It's not easy for family to reunite. Why be in such a hurry to leave?" The candy wrapped tightly around the. The little girl struggled violently, yelling, "What is this stuff? Don't touch me." In just a moment, the candy had bound her entire body. The roared angrily, "Let me go, let go." The old man's expression darkened, his voice dropping. "My dear grandchild, I'll take you to see your grandmother and father." The yelled, her eyes blazing, "Who's your grandchild? Are you crazy? If you don't let me go, I'll call people to beat you up. You're a dead man." The old man pointed towards two figures encased in candy, smiling sinisterly. "This is your grandmother, and next to her is your father." The thief's eyes widened in horror. The man and woman encased in candy sat completely still. The room suddenly fell into a silence so profound it was as if time had stopped. The old man burst out laughing, his voice echoing. "Everyone said my wife and son died years ago, didn't they?" He walked over to that woman, caressing her, and continued. "A few months ago, I saw my wife dancing in the square, so I brought her home." Then he turned to the man, touching him lightly. "My son, too, I found him at a construction site. Don't you think it's a coincidence?" The old man gestured towards his voice full of insinuation. "And then there's you, my granddaughter." The thief's face turned deathly pale, drained of all color. The old man gave a demonic smile, speaking slowly, word by word. "Didn't that allow me to find you as well?" The trembled violently, her eyes filled with terror as the old man's hand slowly approached. "Granddaughter, will you stay by my side forever, just like your grandmother and father?" The struggled and screamed, "Who would want to stay with you?" "You lunatic! Let me go!" Suddenly, the thief's eyes widened as she caught sight of Tiu Hoi's figure outside the window. The fear on the little girl's face vanished, replaced by a triumphant smile. "My assistant has arrived." The old man burst out laughing, his voice echoing, "Where would you find someone to come save you? This construction site has been abandoned for years. Who could possibly find this place?" At the same time, a familiar vehicle sped towards the abandoned construction site. The person stopped the vehicle, putting a foot down. It turned out to be Minvu and Jiang Tuyet. Inside, the was slowly being engulfed by the candy. The old man looked at the trembling girl and smiled wickedly. "Don't struggle, it'll feel good once it hardens." Suddenly, brilliant green slashes flashed across the wall. The old man turned around in surprise. Jiang Tuyet leaped in through the window, her sharp eyes scanning the scene inside. She lowered her center of gravity, her hand gripping the hilt of her sword, ready to strike. The old man, unafraid, smiled and directed the candy to rush towards her. "What a troublesome girl!" Then Jiang Tuyet focused her energy into her sword, her eyes never leaving her opponent. In an instant, she unleashed two slashes of sword energy, cutting straight through the old man's candy attack. The old man's eyes widened in astonishment. He was immediately thrown outside, leaving a large hole in the wall. Jiang Tuyet immediately jumped after him in pursuit. The old man channeled his power, concentrating candy between his palms to create a ferocious bull that charged at her. Calmly, Jiang Tuyet channeled energy into her sword and pointed it straight at the beast. A sharp wave of sword energy pierced through the bull, shattering it into pieces. The fragments immediately froze in midair. Jiang Tuyet pointed her sword forward, her gaze as cold as ice. The old man thought to himself, "The candy is frozen again, I can't control it." He created a candy spring behind him and lay on it. The three legs of this spring touched the ground. Beads of sweat dotted the old man's forehead. Before he could react, the blade of Jiang Tuyet's sword was at his face. In a flash, he delivered the final blow. Blood splattered from the old man. The old man collapsed to the ground. Jiang Tuyet sheathed her sword, her expression unwavering. "This time, it's not a fried dough stick in my hand." She took out her phone and called Minvu. Her voice was calm. "How are things on your end?" In the dim light, Minvu held the phone to his ear while struggling with the sticky candy. That damned candy clung to him, impossible to tear off. Seeing this, the gave him a weary look and said, "Hey, Virgo, aren't you a sorcerer? Don't you know any tricks?" Minvu immediately flared up, his eyes red as he gritted his teeth. "I was trying to be nice and save you. Can't you be a little friendlier?" The little girl lowered her head slightly and replied in a small voice, "Sorry, I was wrong. Thank you for saving my life." The sound of their bickering came through the phone, making Jiang Tuyet want to sigh in exasperation. Finally, she turned and walked away, speaking into the phone in a cold tone. "Stop making a racket, I'm coming to help you too." On the other side, the old man trembled all over and let out a hacking cough. In his gaunt hand, he clutched a vial of medicine, his fingers trembling uncontrollably. Then suddenly he threw the vial into his mouth, biting down hard and shattering it. The old man forced the liquid down his throat. As soon as the medicine went down, the old man's eyes bulged, turning blood red. A terrifying aura erupted from his body, as fearsome as a demon. "Whoever killed my wife and son deserves to die?" Feeling that surge of power from behind, Jiang Tuyet, who was on the phone, immediately turned her head. The old man's eyes were now blazing red, and the smile on his lips was twisted and crazed. Seeing him approach, Jiang Tuyet hurriedly said into the phone, her voice urgent, "Figure it out yourselves. I can't come help now." From the old man's feet, candy spread out, wrapping tightly and crawling up the arm of the Tan Mu Huyen Kung. The old man's mouth mumbled incessantly, "Din chi puang trung that took huatru. Your grandpa here is very angry." As soon as he finished speaking, a sharp fang grew from the corner of his mouth. Pleading would be useless. In an instant, the old man transformed into the shape of a tuk hoa tru. Before the old man could make a move, Jiang Tuyet zipped forward like a flash of lightning, appearing right behind him. With a sharp, focused gaze, Jiang Tuyet drew her sword, its steel blade flashing with a chilling aura. She swung her sword horizontally, the cut hitting the old man's stomach and sending blood flying. The old man was thrown back, slamming into a cliff wall and roaring in pain. "You should have waited for me to finish transforming before you attacked." The old man's eyes blazed red, filled with ferocious killing intent. He stomped his foot and leapt, charging straight at Jiang Tuyet. "An undisciplined child like you needs to be taught a lesson by me." He clenched his fist and punched the ground hard, causing it to crack and tremble. The old man's eyes gleamed as he flashed a sinister smile, revealing sharp teeth. He threw another punch aimed directly at Jiang Tuyet's sword. She frowned as she watched her sword vibrate violently from the impact. Not only did it fail to break her defense, but her own vital energy was repelled. Lost in thought, she was startled to see the old man's foot right in front of her face. Quick as a flash, Jiang Tuyet raised her sword to block the powerful kick. "Didn't your parents teach you not to disturb other people's family reunions?" The old man's kick was so strong it sent her flying. Jiang Tuyet slammed her sword into the ground to stop her momentum. She replied coldly, "Unfortunately, I don't have parents." She frowned and added, "But someone once taught me the art of the great Tao's path." In an instant, blue auras erupted around Jiang Tuyet like a gust of wind, carrying a resolute will and profound righteousness. The old man charged, clenching his fists and roaring in frustration. "Who can understand what you're talking about?" Jiang Tuyet slowly opened her eyes, sighed softly, and then suddenly unleashed her technique, her voice sharp and clear. Plum Forest returning crane first form, all directions intersect and fall. As soon as she finished speaking, 5 streams of energy descended from the sky, transforming into sharp ice spikes that pierced the old man's body in an instant. He collapsed to the ground, spitting fresh blood. The ice shards shattered, forming a thin layer of frost on the ground. Jiang Tuyet pointed her sword at him, her voice cold. "It means don't use magic to do evil things." The old man struggled to his feet, his eyes bloodshot, and growled, "I just want my family to be reunited. What's wrong with that?" Hearing that, she replied with wide-eyed surprise, "I just said that kidnapping is wrong." Suddenly, the old man's expression darkened. Black auras poured out from nowhere, enveloping his body. In an instant, he transformed into the Tuk Hoa Chu again. Sensing the danger, Jiang Tuyet's eyes widened in silent horror. "This aura, it's a Tien Kao!" Instantly, the old man vanished. He shot forward, roaring with hatred. "I hate all of you!" Jiang Tuyet's sword flew into the air, spinning like a flash of lightning. She took the full force of the old man's blow. The terrifying power made her spit blood, sending her body flying far away. The old man erupted with a terrifying aura, roaring, "No one can stop me from getting what I want!" Meanwhile, watching the battle from above, Manhwa couldn't help but exclaim. He stroked his chin, trying to remain calm, and muttered, "This isn't good. The swordswoman is injured. I have to find a way for her to escape first. But if I go, I'll just be throwing my life away. What do I do?" Suddenly, his eyes lit up as he remembered the power of the Tengu from before. But then he shook his head and told himself, No, that's not something I can just use at will." After a moment's hesitation, Manhwa gritted his teeth and slid down, thinking, so what if I throw my life away, saving her comes first? Down below, Jiang Tuyet struggled to her feet, wiping the blood from her mouth. Suddenly, a voice called out. Manhwa rushed over to support her, asking worriedly, "Are you okay?" He helped Jiang Tuyet stand steady, his voice urgent. "While he's still in a frenzy, let's go." Though severely injured, she still managed to say, "His power is a lot like yours. We can't just ignore it." Minvu hoisted her onto his back and rushed off, muttering, "This is no time for that. Staying alive is what matters." Just then, the crazed old man charged at them, his killing intent overwhelming. Seeing him closing in, Minvu yelled in panic, "He's caught up to us!" As the old man struck, Jiang Tuye unexpectedly shielded Minvu with her body. She took the full impact of the blow, blood splattering from the wound in her abdomen. Minvu turned back, his eyes wide with horror. The scene shifts to the laboratory of the Thong Tien Corporation. On the 3D map, a small black hole appeared. Diep Tien stepped forward, saying, "Another user of the Tam Hoa Dan." She checked and continued, "Location construction site, eastern middle section of Nam Ho Back Road, west second ring." Hearing this, the man sitting in the chair turned around and asked, "What? What were you just saying?" He smiled at Diep Tien. She replied softly with a slight smile, "Team leader, I'll handle this. You can continue playing. But watch your health. You're getting old. Don't go senile on us." The team leader replied with a forced smile, "I'll leave it to you then." Afterward, Diep Tien walked to a desk and sat down, her fingers typing rapidly as she said, "Hey, where's Class 7? I have a mission for you at the West Second Ring. Complete it immediately." The scene cuts back to Jiang Tuyet and Minvu. At this moment, she was shielding him from the old man's attack with her body. Minvu tumbled to the ground, landing face first with one leg sticking up in the air. He scrambled to sit up, blinking, and asked, "Are you okay?" Before he could finish his sentence, the sight before him made his face darken and his eyes widen in horror. How did this happen? The old man had grabbed Jiang Tuye by the neck and lifted her into the air, blood pouring endlessly from her mouth. Suddenly, the little girl ran up from behind, shouting, "Tiu hoi hoi!" The little girl waved her hand, commanding, "Go save her!" Tiu hoi received the order, shot forward, and extended its sharp claws. It lunged forward, gouging the old man's eye. He roared in pain, flinging his arm out and releasing Jiang Tuyet. She fell to the ground, severely injured and drenched in sweat. Just then, the standing behind her swung her arm and threw a sword toward her, shouting, "Sister, here's a sword!" Jiang Tuyet's hand shot out like a flash, catching the sword. She gathered her strength to turn her voice resolute. "You go first, leave this to me." The hurriedly pulled the hand of Minvu, who was standing frozen in place. "What are you standing there, stunned for?" "Let's run!" Minvu was horrified, his eyes wide as he thought, she's covered in wounds. How can she possibly fight him? No. Taking advantage of the opening, the old man threw a punch aimed straight at Jiang Tuyet. Her body, battered and wounded, struggled to dodge his relentless attacks. Jiang Tuyet gritted her teeth and turned to scream, "Just go now!" The angrily grabbed Minvu's arm, pulling hard, but he stood frozen like a statue. "What is wrong with you? Let's go!" Minvu's eyes were wide, his mind blank. A chaotic thought surfaced in his mind. I can't just stand by and watch her die. But what can I do? Suddenly, a memory flooded back, Din Ok's words echoing in his mind. "You possess a power far beyond that of a normal person. We call it the Tengu." He frowned, staring at the palm of his hand and thinking, if I lose consciousness, maybe I can awaken the Tengu. Minvu glanced at a nearby boulder, then strode toward it decisively and looked up at the sky. He took a deep breath, then slammed his head hard against the boulder, screaming, "If I really have that kind of power, then come out, you monster!" He slammed his head against it again and again. "Come out! Come out! Get out here! I have to save her!" After banging his head for a while, Minvu suddenly stopped and lay motionless. The screamed in panic, "Are you stupid? Why commit suicide?" But the very next second, Minvu erupted as the power of the heavenly dog surged violently. The sight stunned her eyes wide as she watched Minvu radiate a black and red aura. She took a step closer, her voice trembling. "Hey, are you all right?" Minvu ignored the walking right past her. The power within him erupted violently, swirling dust and smoke around him. Terrified. The raised her arm to shield herself from the immense pressure, shouting, "What are you doing? Who's the bigger monster here?" On the other side, just as the old man was about to deliver the final blow to Jiang Tuyet, he suddenly sensed the terrifying aura from Minvu. He whipped around, his astonished gaze fixed on the source of that aura. Jiang Tuyet trembled all over, whispering, "Tengu, don't!" At that moment, Minvu was like a wild wolf, his eyes glowing red as he took heavy steps toward her. Suddenly, Minvu's eyes shot wide open. He leaped high into the air and plummeted toward the old man, roaring, "Kill!" He threw a punch, its terrifying power shattering all resistance as it slammed directly into the old man's face. The punch was so powerful it snapped the old man's head to one side, sending his body flying into the distance and crashing through a dirt mound at the construction site. The old man lay motionless, unconscious, though the watch jaw agape in astonishment and exclaimed, "A one-punch kill!" After taking down the old man, Minvu lost control as the Tengu's power exploded beyond its limits. He roared maniacally, "Kill the demon?" The muttered from the side, "You look more like the demon than he does." Suddenly, Minvu whipped around, his blazing red eyes fixed on the little girl. Startled, the panicked and ran away in tears, repeatedly shouting, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I was wrong, I'm sorry." Just as Minvu's sharp claws were about to reach the girl, Dai Luke suddenly appeared, charging with a concrete block. He smashed it into Minvu's face with all his might, roaring, "Let Arthur the go." However, Minvu's hand, sharp as a blade, easily pierced through the concrete block. Seeing that hand lunging toward him, Dai Luke's face went pale as sweat poured down his face. Suddenly, a swarm of mosquitoes appeared from nowhere, surrounding Dai Luke and pulling him away from the jaws of death just in time. At that exact moment, a young man wielding a mace swooped down from above. The mace swung hard, shattering the concrete block and knocking Minvu away. Dai Luke seized the opportunity to quickly scoop up the and run for it. "Geez, lady, that was a close call. Why'd you have to provoke this monster?" The pouted in protest. "Well, isn't it because you guys were late? If you weren't, he wouldn't have turned into a monster." The young man with the mace yelled as he ran behind them, "We figured out what your pets were trying to tell us and rushed over. It took all three of us to afford the ride here," the replied dejectedly. "All right, double pay." From above, the boy in red waved frantically, shouting, "Run, he's getting up again." Dai Luke and the mace wielder looked back in horror to see Minvu standing up, his aura flaring violently. Minvu was now like a wild beast. He stomped the ground for momentum, and his figure vanished in a flash. In the blink of an eye, he reappeared right in front of Dai Luke's group. The young man with the mace hurriedly swung his weapon to attack. Without flinching, Minvu threw a punch directly at the mace. Instantly, the mace shattered, and the young man was thrown backward. The mace wielder flew backward into Dai Luke, screaming, "This guy's way too strong." Both of them collapsed to the ground, groaning in pain. The rushed in from out of nowhere, crashing into the young man and bouncing off to roll on the ground. Dai Luke trembled as he struggled to his feet, panting heavily. "We're done for. This opponent is using cheats," the mace wielder added. "I got my mace from the construction site. Maybe it's just a piece of junk." The chimed in with disappointment. "You guys are completely useless." Suddenly, Jiang Tuyet struggled forward from behind them, her voice weak. "You can't fight him head on. You can only stall for time. Wait for his power to be depleted. He'll recover on his own then. Don't worry, I won't let him harm you." The turned worriedly. "You're already having a hard time protecting yourself." Dai Luke pointed towards Minvu, his voice trembling. "Miss, that monster seems a little strange." Minvu frantically slammed both hands on the ground, jumping from one spot to another and kicking at the swarm of mosquitoes surrounding him. "Oh, so it's the red-haired boy who's controlling the mosquitoes." He turned and hurriedly told me to hold him back and use this chance to run away. Hearing this, Dai Luke and the young man with the mace were overjoyed. One of them carried the and the other carried Jiang Tuyet as they rushed over to the red-haired boy. The whole group looked down below, completely speechless. The raised a hand to scratch her face and forced a smile, somehow finding the situation a little amusing. Down below, Minvu was flailing around wildly, desperately swatting at the mosquitoes and shouting, "Monster!" He continuously attacked the swarm of mosquitoes. The red-haired boy gave a dry laugh, sweating profusely. He sighed. "How much longer controlling this many mosquitoes is killing me?" Half an hour later, the red-haired boy, looking haggard with trembling hands, cried out, "My body feels completely drained!" An hour later, Minvu, who was swatting at a swarm of mosquitoes, suddenly froze. The Tiangu's power gradually faded. 10 seconds later, Minvu's strength was depleted and he collapsed to the ground. The way he lay was strangely familiar. At the Little Sun office at 4:20 p.m., Chu bandaged the wound on Jiang Tuyet's chest, saying, "Fortunately, your internal energy is profound. The wound on your back isn't deep and didn't damage your spine or heart." Finished, she removed her gloves. "There." In the soft light of the room, Chu instructed in a calm voice, "Rest carefully for a month, no strenuous exercise. Remember to sleep on your side. Don't put pressure on the wound." She placed the gloves sticky with a red strawberry-like syrup on the table, her hands pausing for a moment as if in thought. Before leaving, she turned her head, her gaze serious, and added, "The prescription I'm leaving includes an acupuncture technique to invigorate blood and disperse stasis." Have little Touye perform the acupuncture on you once in the morning and once at night for half an hour each time. Jiang Tuyet, sitting on the edge of the bed, smiled faintly in reply. Thank you, Di Chu. From the doorway, Din Ak poked his head in his voice, a mix of curiosity and worry. Hey, sis, how is little Touye's wound? Sister Triu, standing by the opposite door, also leaned in and added, Is everything all right? As the door closed, Di Chu calmly reassured them, Don't worry, in 2 months there won't even be a scar. Din Ak, as if a thought just occurred to him, blushed and laughed awkwardly. That's good then. It would be a pity for little Touye's chest to have a scar. Seeing the expressions of the two in front of him change, Din Ak frantically waved his hands, his voice hurried. Just kidding, just kidding. He held up a bag containing broken shards and said to Di Chu, Sis, I have something to ask of you. He held out the bag, his eyes lighting up. These are shards from a medicine bottle the culprit left behind. Sis, see what kind of medicine this is? Di Chu sighed and waved her hand dismissively, her voice low. No need. Someone has already reported the situation at the scene to Van Hop Duong. She paused for a beat, then continued. We've also been looking for the Tiangu for the past few years. Not long ago, we discovered this thing and noticed its aura was similar to the Tiangu's, so we've been targeting it. She lowered her voice to explain, this is called a Tam Hoa Dan. Am Vong has been circulating it on the black market for at least 3 months. It can enhance one's power in a short amount of time. At this, Di Chu's expression darkened, her voice heavy. But how to buy it and who the creator is remains unknown. Those in the martial world who want to maintain good relations will naturally volunteer information. She raised an eyebrow, her tone sharp. Didn't you all also take the initiative to tell me the identity of that Tiangu kid? Din Ak gave a placating laugh and replied, Isn't it because we felt you were trustworthy that we told you? Di Chu snorted, retorting, I think it's more that you trust in your own strength, so it doesn't matter if the information gets out. Din Ak laughed humbly, shaking his head. How could that be? Not wanting to drag it on, Di Chu turned and walked away, her voice decisive. Let's go see the Tiangu kid. His problem is more serious than little Touye's. In the backyard, a crowd stood around, their eyes glued to the young man sitting in a chair who was making strange noises. Seeing Min Vu's disheveled and dazed appearance, Sister Triu couldn't help but cover her mouth to laugh, her shoulders shaking. Young Din Ak stood nearby, scratching his face, his voice tinged with resignation. I told this kid that using his power recklessly would make him an idiot. We had no choice but to tie him up here. Di Chu sat down in a nearby chair and took Min Vu's pulse. Feeling the unstable pulse, she frowned and immediately concluded, the vital energy in his body is chaotic, his meridians are blocked, and it's impacting his consciousness. To treat this... Before she could finish, the jumped out from nowhere and shouted at them, the Yijin Jing. The little girl continued aggressively. In wuxia novels, they say, when your true qi and internal energy are unbalanced, you use the Yijin Jing to resolve it. Dichu Din Ak and Sister Triu burst out laughing, almost wanting to kneel before the little girl's naive theory. Dichu was baffled and asked aloud, where did this idiotic little brat come from? Hearing herself called that, the furiously jumped up and shouted, Who are you calling an idiot, you old hag? Suddenly Jiang Tuyet appeared. She slowly approached, calling out softly to Di Chu. She stopped, her voice gentle yet firm. Chu Minvu forcibly released his power and lost control because he was trying to save me. Please, Auntie, find a way! Looking at Minvu's dopey expression and runny nose, Di Chu sighed helplessly and muttered, To be so reckless despite knowing the dangers of the Tiangu. At that moment, the puffed out her chest, trying to look as confident as a queen, but appearing as clumsy as if she'd just stepped out of a comedy skit. Holding a piece of paper and pretending it was money, she declared loudly, As long as you can save him, name your price. Di Chu walked over, grabbed one of the thief's pigtails, and pointed at her, saying in an annoyed voice, This little girl is too noisy. Someone take her away, the struggled, shouting loudly, Let me go. Someone take her away, the struggled, shouting loudly, Let me go. Sister Triu quickly hugged the and gently coaxed her, Stop it, sweetie. Dr. Chu is a very important person. The pouted and retorted, More like a damn old hag. Din Ak knelt on one knee beside the adopting an enlightening tone. Right now, the world of sorcerers has 3 great sects, the Thong Tien Corporation, the Quoc Thuat Guan, and Van Hop Duong. He paused, then continued. This Dr. Chu is one of the 5 great branch masters of Van Hop Duong. He lowered his voice and added, She's also the paternal aunt of Van Hop Duong's master. Hearing this, the Thie's eyes widened in astonishment as she exclaimed, "The aunt from Van Hop Duong. Oh my God! Does her family also have someone named Duong Kwa?" Dichu paid no mind, turning to look at Min Vu, her voice thoughtful. "His problem isn't necessarily difficult, but it's not simple either. His vital energy is chaotic and his meridians are blocked. We just need someone to clear them." She stroked her chin thoughtfully. "But the vital energy in this boy is too powerful. Clearing all his meridians will be extremely draining and could easily cause a backlash." She turned her head slightly, her gaze sharp. "Unless that person's power far exceeds the ordinary." Din Ak understood her meaning and immediately summoned his power. A stream of energy flared in his hand as he said, "In that case, it looks like I'll have to do it." Jiang Tuye quickly spoke up, worried, "Wait." But Din Ak had already decisively placed his hand on Min Vu's head, reassuring them in a confident voice, unafraid of the backlash. "Don't worry, I'm just that awesome." A powerful force emanated from his hand, enveloping Min Vu. The screamed in alarm, "Don't," she witnessed. Din Ak's internal power spread out in all directions. She couldn't help but purse her lips and exclaim, "My God, what realm is this?" In a gloomy shrine, the sound of apologies echoed ceaselessly. A figure knelt in the middle of the hall, shoulders trembling repeatedly, muttering, "I'm sorry, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry." Nat Khan suddenly spoke in a cold voice. "Lao Dian reported that the arm has been reattached. I pleaded for you." Van Phi, drenched in sweat, exclaimed in terror, "I'm sorry." Suddenly, a foot stomped hard on his head. "Yes," Nat Khan forcefully pressed Van Phi's head down, his voice cruel. "I'll let you off this time, but there won't be a next time." Van Phi struggled to reply, "Yes." Nat Khan turned away and said to another figure, "Second brother, can that broken-down body of yours really protect the Tiangu? Don't come asking this little brother for help in the future." Meanwhile, in a laboratory at the Thong Tien Corporation, two people were performing surgery on a motionless body. One person used forceps to extract a crystal from the body, amazed. A heartfire crystal this big is a rare sight. That person carefully placed the crystal onto a tray. Diep Tien watched from behind a glass panel. Suddenly, a wisp of energy shaped like a small human face began to speak. "The Tiangu appeared today. Many people saw it. One of my two great wishes has now been fulfilled. But as for the wish to eradicate the great calamity, do you have any brilliant ideas?" She replied calmly, "All humans must eventually die. He cannot stop Master's grand plan of resurrection." At that moment, Min Vu sat still in the chair, a raging aura surrounding his body. His eyes slowly opened, his face still dazed. Seeing this, the cheered joyfully, "He's awake." Min Vu turned his head with a start, his mind in turmoil like a raging storm. Dao had once warned that if the Tiangu's power wasn't controlled properly, it would turn him into an idiot. But for little Tuye's sake, that courage was admirable. Min Vu frowned worriedly, wondering to himself, "Has my consciousness been devoured by the Tiangu? I think I just saw something strange." The chimed in excitedly, her voice bright. "Hey, Virgin Big Brother, did you know? When this Big Brother here was channeling his energy to heal you, he was totally awesome." Hearing this, Min Vu grew pensive. Channeling energy to heal wounds in wuxia novels usually consumes a tremendous amount of power. Could it be that Din Ak appeared this way due to his exhaustion? He looked like he was about to turn into a dried-up corpse. He quickly turned to Din Ak and bowed respectfully. "Uncle Tiet, thank you." The who had snuck up behind Din Ak at some point chimed in, That's right. You really don't know how to talk." Then the little girl tried to curry favor, her voice as sweet as honey. "From now on, I'll give you a massage every day. And when you're free, you can teach me a few moves, okay?" Din Ak, getting his shoulders massaged comfortably, directed her a little to the left, a little lower. Min Vu took the opportunity to get closer, his eyes full of hidden meaning. "Brother Tiet, thank you for saving me. I will definitely repay you." Ding Ek looked disgusted and pushed him away immediately. No. You should still call me uncle. Otherwise, the order of seniority will be all messed up." The giggled while rubbing Ding Ek's shoulder. "Big brother, even a 34-year-old woman can be called big sister. What's there to worry about with seniority?" Her words annoyed Ding Ek, who turned to Ming Yu. "This little brat is talking like she's asking for a spanking, isn't she?" Then he propped his hands on his knees, stood up abruptly, and said in a serious tone, "Zhu Ming Yu, let's get down to business. You should consider dropping out of school and focusing on your training to control the Tiangu as soon as possible." Ming Yu nodded and replied succinctly, "Oh, okay, no problem." But Ding Ek, seemingly not hearing him clearly, continued to ramble. I know you've just been introduced to the world of sorcerers and don't understand much. Since you were a kid, you've dreamed of college life, getting a job, getting promoted, marrying a beautiful and rich wife, and having children. But now you have to put all that aside and focus on your training. Suddenly, he stopped frowning. Wait, what did you just say? But then Ming-Yu pointed to himself and repeated, I said I agree to drop out and focus on training. I'm too weak. I can't keep letting others protect me, and I certainly can't let them risk their lives or get hurt because of me. But then, as if remembering something, he raised his hand. Wait a minute. Ming-Yu lowered his head, his voice a regretful whisper. Isn't dropping out directly a bit too rash? It was so hard to get into college. How about finding a reason to defer my studies? Ding Ek scratched his nose, a hint of surprise in his eyes. Your previous words really made me see you in a new light. You've got the air of a manga protagonist. The thee sighed helplessly beside them. But the second half of that sentence was just too cowardly. Ding Ek waved his hand dismissively and turned away. I'm going to bed first. Tonight, Xiao Shui will teach you how to train in my place. That night, after more than 20 long chapters, Zhu Ming-Yu finally began his journey of cultivation. Jiang Shui held the book and remarked calmly, Your body must have gotten used to the primal energy. Just relax your mind and you'll be able to feel the fluctuations of primal energy within you. Ming-Yu sat still with his eyes closed. But he thought to himself, the handwriting in this book is so bad, yet she can still read it. As if reading his mind, Jiang Shui took the book and smacked him on the head with it. Stop letting your mind wander. Ming-Yu quickly composed himself and continued to relax. The incense stick beside him was about to burn out. He lamented miserably, I can't feel any primal energy at all. He blamed himself for being useless. The enchanting Jiang Shui sat down beside him. Then let me teach you. She gently rubbed Ming-Yu's abdomen. I'll help you find your dantian first. The warm spot was her hand touching his lower abdomen, spreading warmth like a flame. Flipping through the book, she said, During the day, Boss Seisei created a sea of chi vortex in your dantian. Focus on feeling your body. Ming-Yu's nose started to bleed. He stammered, his whole body flushing, repeating over and over, warm, 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 warm. As the fire in Ming-Yu's abdomen flared up, Jiang Shui calmly explained, The Erlangshen technique says there are 3 types of qi in your body. The Tiangu's qi, the qi your father used to seal the Tiangu, and your own qi. Adding the qi boss Seisei left behind when creating the sea of qi vortex that makes a total of 4. In midair, a vortex appeared and surrounded Ming-Yu as if trying to suck him in. Jiang Shui spoke. This vortex is the sea of qi. Ming-Yu closed his eyes, immersed in his training. As Jiang Shui's hand gently rested on him, transmitting warm streams of qi, she said in a steady voice, Let your consciousness follow the movement of the sea of qi, go with its flow. Don't resist. Her eyes glanced at the page as she continued, Utilize the intersecting paths within the primal energy vortex. Continuously draw in the Tiangu's power from the outside like a current of water washing everything away, just like how peeing both releases and flushes. She read the short line of English on the page, then looked up and chanted, Become urine, my friend. After saying it, she tilted her head slightly bewildered. In his mind, Ming-Yu pictured the vortex as water swirling in a toilet bowl, focusing on the idea that he was that very water merging with the qi vortex. Jiang Shui's hand slowly left his abdomen. She stood up, her gaze serious. The sea of qi created by Boss Seisei will disappear in 2 days. You have to rely on your own strength to maintain it. Under the bright sun, Jiang Shui and the thee were fast asleep, holding each other. The thee rested on her chest, mumbling, Mommy. Ding Ek stretched and yawned lazily, rubbing her back. Xiao Shui, wake up. If you don't, the stand will sell out of everything. Suddenly, he froze and then shouted in alarm, Kid, what happened to you? Ming-Yu's face was now swollen red and itchy from mosquito bites. Despite this, the effectiveness of his training had skyrocketed. Yes, a moment later, Ming-Yu held a bag of fried dough sticks and sighed. I think it's better to train indoors next time, Jiang Shui replied as she walked. I was going to remind you, but I forgot. Ming-Yu was speechless, muttering, Next time for sure. There's a next time. As they talked, a mysterious figure quietly appeared behind them. Ming-Yu tilted his head slightly and frowned. Another stalker. Just going out to buy breakfast. Why is there so much drama? Jiang Shui didn't seem to care and instead praised him. You've only trained for 1 night and you can already detect a follower. Impressive. Ming-Yu replied humbly, It's nothing, my hearing is just pretty sharp. Jiang Shui explained calmly. The disturbance you caused wasn't small and it was at a construction site. Many sorcerers must have detected it and came to check you out. Ming Yu frowned in confusion. Why do I feel like there are as many sorcerers as ants? Jiang Shui chuckled lightly. But there aren't that many sorcerers, only about 200. 300 in the whole city. She continued reassuringly. Don't worry, this is Boss Cease's territory. They won't dare get close to you, just ignore them. Hearing this, Ming Yu couldn't help but feel a sense of admiration. He thought to himself what a domineering aura for a cat sitting on a roof. The two of them walked side by side into the small courtyard, their eyes landing on the little girl. The giggled. I just got some huge intel. Want to know? But unexpectedly, the two of them just walked past her. Jiang Shui said decisively, after you eat, go train immediately. Make sure the Sea of Qi is maintained. Ming Yu nodded. To protect my life, I don't dare to be lazy. He continued, his eyes gleaming. Once I've stabilized my Sea of Qi, shouldn't you teach me some moves like the 18 dragon subduing palms? Jiang Shui shook her head. I don't know the 18 dragon subduing palms. The couldn't take it anymore and shouted, don't just ignore me. I'm mad, I'm not playing with you guys anymore. The little girl crossed her arms looking mysterious. I have a commission worth 50,000. Jiang Shui immediately rushed over, excited. Didn't the little girl say she had some intel earlier? Now this big sister is very interested. Ming Yu was stunned by the sudden turn of events, not expecting the heroine to act like this. The petite girl was just as flustered. Ming Yu had thought Shu Nan would be the one to fall for the trap, but it turned out to be his older sister. A while later, the whole group gathered around the dining table, the atmosphere slightly tense. Her hands froze, her eyes sparkling with the sight of money, her mouth nearly drooling. She spoke up. So my smart and beautiful little girl, what commission do you have? The replied in a steely voice, I learned from CZ about the elixir trafficking ring from last time, and I want to investigate its source. At this, the little girl's eyes sharpened like blades as she muttered, when the time comes, we'll catch them all in one fell swoop and rid the people of this scourge. Ming Yu frowned and asked curiously, what is CZ? Jiang Shui, still chewing her food ravenously, immediately explained, it's the name of an information broker in the martial world. She paused for a moment, then continued. He's a real estate agent who also sells intelligence. He's a shady merchant with a thing for cute and lively little girls. After hearing this, Ming Yu muttered in a daze, so we really don't need to call the police to have him arrested. The immediately shouted, drawing everyone's attention. Hey, can you two be serious? We're talking about important business. Ming Yu took a bite of fruit, chewed slowly, and said in a low voice, that power is very similar to mine. I want to investigate too. But I'm too weak, joining in would only drag you down. Hearing this, the snorted contemptuously. I wasn't counting on you anyway. Then she turned to Jiang Shui, suddenly excited. Sister Shui, let's go catch the bad guys. Before Jiang Shui could hesitate and answer, Ding Esh waved his hand and said sternly, you haven't recovered yet, you can't work for the next 2 months. The Thie's sparkling eyes immediately shifted to Ding Ek, her voice sweet. So the domineering big brother is willing to take action himself. Hearing this, Ding Ek choked on his strawberry juice, coughing violently, then weakly explained, I used my power to heal someone, so my strength is greatly diminished. I can't do it either. Besides, who are you calling domineering big brother? Can't you come up with a better nickname? Hearing this, The's face soured. The little girl stood up abruptly in frustration. Fine. So you're saying none of you want to help me, is that it? Not even for more money? Ming Yu, Jiang Shui, and Ding Etch refused one by one, their voices soft but firm. I'm too weak, Boss Says won't let me go. I just bought a new game, I'm planning to grind it for the next few days. The trembled with anger, her cheeks flushed, and her eyes welling with tears. Then she stood up decisively and left the table. You have no sense of justice at all. She called out, Xiao Hui Hui, let's go, Xiao Hui Hui. The little bird landed on her shoulder, gripping it tightly with its feet. Before slamming the door, the turned back, her eyes filled with disappointment. And I thought you were the good guys. I was wrong about you. Goodbye, the little girl added. Also, thanks for saving me. Let's not meet again. With that, she walked away, her footsteps filled with frustration. Min Vu mumbled worriedly, she's not going to do something reckless on her own, is she? Jiang Tuyet glanced at a stack of documents and replied, she hates evil and she's very smart. Din Ak nodded in agreement, adding, she's probably not that foolish. She'll find someone else to help. In a small shop, the looked up at the person who had just entered, her voice firm. You're finally back. Deliver the goods first, you'll get your money. A man in a green hat stood in front of the shop, his eyes fixed on the sign, muttering, I'm a financially struggling worker. He entered slowly, descending the steps, thinking to himself, if this goes well, I can pay my rent. Suddenly he saw the figure of the sitting there. You're finally here. Deliver the goods first, you won't be shorted on the payment. The man in the green hat paused, momentarily surprised by the little girl. The held up her phone, her voice firm. The goods are here, scan the code. I've never stiffed anyone. The old bartender nearby smiled kindly. Don't worry, our lady hero's son is good for it. The man in the green hat touched the brim of his hat, his hand in his pocket, and muttered, if Boss Liang guarantees it. He then held out a small vial. This is what you need, it was just made this week. It's guaranteed effective and hasn't expired. The took the vial, examining it and asking curiously, so this is the Heartfire pill, it can increase one's cultivation level? The man in the green hat nodded, his voice low. Those with an unstable temperament can easily lose consciousness if they take it. He paused for a moment, advising, you're young and have plenty of time to cultivate. It's best not to take this. The Thea glanced at him, her eyes sparkling with interest. Mr. The Intelligence Bureau says you can also create custom formulas. The man in the green hat was startled and frantically waved his hands. I'm not greedy enough to have a death wish. The immediately spoke, her voice sweet but persuasive. I can help you with housing or find you a place in a good school district. My family has several properties in good school districts. You can take your pick. The man in the green hat wavered for a moment, his eyes filled with hesitation. But in the end, the allure of a house in a proper school district in a big city was irresistible. With the transaction complete, he quietly left the shop. The old bartender frowned slightly, reminding the Thea in a low voice, real estate speculation is unethical. That's ill-gotten money, you know. Hearing this, the grinned mischievously. Of course I know, but my parents are the unethical ones, not me. The old bartender sighed helplessly and shook his head. The man in the green hat entered the train station, relieved, muttering to himself as he went to check for good school districts. He opened his phone to look at a map, silently planning to resign once the matter was settled. I wonder how little Lou is doing. Suddenly, a familiar voice spoke next to his ear. Class President Lou of the 6th grade, I hear you've come into some money. Someone had just approached him. He said in a cold voice, swapping expired pills slated for destruction for new medicine. Did you think the team leader wouldn't find out? Brother Chiang and his underling suddenly appeared, blocking the man in the green hat's path. From behind, another figure slowly approached. Liu Yi, carrying a bag on his shoulder, spoke softly as if recognizing an acquaintance. Boss. He ran over, his voice full of surprise. Boss, what are you doing here? Are you here to see me? The man in the green hat quickly waved his hand. Little Lou, stay back. But Brother Chiang didn't hesitate. He stepped forward and punched the man in the stomach, growling, Don't worry, none of you are getting away. The punch sent the man in the green hat to his knees, causing him to spit up strawberry juice, which stained the corners of his mouth red. Brother Chiang straightened up and ordered his underling, Go silence that kid. The underling nodded, Okay. In that instant, to their astonishment, Liu Yi rushed forward, yelling, What did you do to my boss? He then landed a kick straight on Brother Chiang's face, catching him off guard and sending him flying into a nearby truck. The underling screamed in shock. Liu Yi rushed to support the man in the green hat, calling out worriedly, Boss! Boss! The man, breathing weakly, gasped, They won't spare my family. You have to get my wife and child out of here. He held out his phone with a trembling hand and said, The password is 6 digits. Inform Lady Hero's son, tell her the deal has been exposed. His head slumped as he mumbled, It's all up to her now. Liu Yi quickly grabbed the phone and rushed off, saying over his shoulder, I don't know what's happening, but I'll definitely save your family. The man in the green hat lay collapsed on the pavement, thinking with deep regret, Sure enough, greed makes you risk your life. On a busy road, the sat in the back of a car, thinking smugly to herself, I handled that all on my own. I didn't need you guys at all. She imagined Jiang Tuyet and Min Vu kneeling at her feet in admiration. Lady Hero's son, you're incredible. We are in complete awe, Lady Hero. Please accept me as your follower. At this thought, the couldn't help but smirk smugly, completely oblivious to the driver's expression twisting into a sinister look. The held her phone, her eyes bright as she giggled. I got the item. Aren't I amazing? The car suddenly swerved, causing her to sway, but she continued. In 2 more days, there will be an even more shocking secret. She said loudly, So are you impressed or not? The car lurched again, and the lost her balance, but she excitedly continued. I can even give you the credit for it. Isn't Wan He Tang investigating this too? You can take the item and claim the reward? Suddenly, the thief's face slammed into the seat in front of her. Trembling, she said, "Driver, that's some reckless driving." The sat up straight, rubbing her nose as she continued, "This road is straight and wide. Anyone who didn't know better would think—" Suddenly, she turned to look out the window, her voice lowering, "that we were on a mountain road." After saying this, her face darkened, her eyes glued to a text message announcing the pill seller's failed transaction. Realizing something was wrong, the thief asked, "What do you want?" The driver replied with a smirk, "What do we want?" He sneered, "To kill someone, of course." And with that, the car continued toward the meeting point. Rolling mountain ranges came into view. Then the tires screeched as the car stopped. The thief's lips were pressed together in anxiety. Ngui stepped forward, resting a hand on the car roof with a cigarette in his mouth, and asked her, "Little girl, who sent you?" The pointed straight at the driver and replied, "He said he wants to silence me. So wouldn't it be incredibly stupid of me to say anything?" Ngui touched the car door, his voice gentle and coaxing. "Don't listen to his threats. You're just a kid tricked by someone into doing something you shouldn't have. We uncles don't blame you. Just tell us everything you know. We're all on the same side here. We won't hurt you, okay?" Hearing this, the smiled and clasped her hands together. "Really, you're such a good person." Then her expression suddenly changed, her voice turning cold. "Did you really think I'd say that?" Provoked, Ngui gritted his teeth, cursing inwardly. "You damn little brat!" The driver lost his patience and snapped, "Stop wasting your breath on her. She mentioned Wanhei Tang on the phone earlier. We'll know everything once we check her call log." Ngui sighed with feigned regret. "Oh, to have to end another innocent life with my own hands." From behind, an underling holding a gun spoke up, "Captain, the hole is dug." At that moment, the thief touched the glass, her voice trembling. "Wait. I'll turn to the dark side. I'll talk, okay?" The girl put on an aggrieved look and hesitated. "Actually, Ngui smiled expectantly. "Actually what?" The clasped her hands, her voice resolute. "I am a friend to justice. I heard a harmful pill was in circulation, so I was investigating." This enraged Ngui, who bellowed, "Men! Drag this brat out!" An underling moved forward to pull the thief out of the car, and she screamed, "Let go of me!" Immediately, the thief clasped her hands and began muttering an incantation. Insects suddenly stirred, and the tip of the parasol seat emerged. As swift as the law commands, as swift as the law commands, the two men cried out in shock, "Gu insect sorcery!" A stone suddenly flew through the air and struck the underling square in the face. Ngui shouted in alarm, "Who's there?" Another nearby underling was also struck by a stone. Immediately after, another stone hurtled toward him. Ngui raised his hand to block it, and the stone shattered on impact. Before he could recover, a figure flashed toward him. Without a word, Liu Yi landed a heavy punch on Ngui's stomach, causing him to spit up a mouthful of blood. Liu Yi jumped up, snapped Ngui's head back, then brought his clasped hands down hard, slamming Ngui's entire body onto the rock below. "Liu Yi." The whites of Ngui's eyes showed as he lay motionless, completely defeated. The still terrified, muttered, "This goo insect art doesn't work at all. I should have studied harder." She suddenly froze, staring blankly at the figure outside the car, and let out, "Huh, who is it?" Liu Yi just stood there quietly, glancing at Cheeky. A car sped up the mountain. Ming Yu looked at the digital map and confirmed, "This is the place." Jiang Shui put her foot down, stopping the vehicle. The two quietly entered the nearby bushes. Ming Yu, glued to his phone screen, said, "That girl's location is here." Jiang Shui wondered, when did those two separate? Ming Yu, still focused on the screen, replied, "I don't think that's the main point. What's important is that the girl might be in trouble." Both of them suddenly stopped and looked up at a group of people standing in the distance. Then Jiang Shui asked, "Do they look like good people to you?" Observing the suspicious actions and fierce expressions of the group, Jiang Shui's body suddenly emitted a murderous aura. She answered herself, her voice icy, "I don't think so." The wind suddenly began to howl through the forest. The two groups faced each other, their auras blazing. Jiang Shui raised her sword, her gaze as sharp as a blade. She commanded coldly, "Hand her over." Jiang Shui swung her sword. A flash of power erupted from her body, knocking the weapon from the leader's hand. He trembled, his voice cracking. "Everyone be careful, she's an expert." Without hesitation, Jiang Shui raised her sword, her eyes cold, and unleashed a powerful slash at the ground, carving a deep gash and sending dirt and rocks flying. The group opposite them screamed in panic, "Get out of the way!" leaving behind the cracked earth and a cloud of dust. From the chaos, two men rushed out of the smoke. One of them yelled, "I'll hold this bitch off. You go get that guy." "Okay," the other one replied curtly, aiming straight for Ming Yu. Ming Yu stood his ground, clenching his fists, the corner of his mouth curling up. "Ha ha ha! I'm not the same person I was a few days ago." A powerful aura radiated from his body. As if to test the results of his training, Ming Yu closed his eyes and concentrated intensely. Streams of energy swirled around him, forming a fierce vortex. Against all odds, he merged different types of inherently repulsive elemental energies, temporarily forming a stable thread. Opening his eyes, he clenched his fist, channeled energy into his hand, and threw a powerful punch forward. But the punch didn't cause any damage at all. Both were stunned for a moment. The other guy sneered, his voice full of contempt. "Ha ha, you think you're One Punch Man?" He swung his club at Ming Yu. Panicked, Ming Yu turned and fled. As he ran, he lamented, "I knew it. I've only been learning for a few days. It's basically useless." Ming Yu screamed, "Heroin, save me." "My ultimate move isn't working." Jiang Shui glanced over her voice, weary yet emotional. "What kind of character setup is this?" "Are you kidding me?" Ming Yu grew even more panicked as he saw the guy about to catch up. Jiang Shui tried to reassure him, her voice echoing, "Trust me." Hearing this, Ming Yu stopped, turned around, and muttered, "Besides trusting you, I don't have any other choice right now." He raised his hand and shouted, "God, please help me, this has to work." The guy laughed scornfully, raising his club. "Ha ha ha! Young people these days sure love to be comedians, don't they?" But right after, he froze. Ming Yu threw a punch, and a swirling current of energy shot forward, forming a giant fist that hurtled toward his opponent. The earth shook, and a cloud of dust billowed, startling everyone around. The guy quickly jumped out of the punch's path. The energy gradually dissipated, leaving a scorched mark on the ground. He trembled, his body nearly collapsing, and stammered, "Holy... Is this guy One Punch Man?" Sweat poured down his pale face. Thrilled, Ming Yu continued to attack. "Ha ha! Take another punch!" Dust rose again, and rocks flew everywhere. The continuous punches made the guy struggle to dodge. Jiang Shui stood in a corner, observing quietly, thinking, "This method is pretty good." Ming Yu started to get tired and shouted angrily, "You bastard! How dare you dodge!" The other guy was also exhausted, drenched in sweat, and growled, "I'd be an idiot not to dodge." "Have you even practiced? You're slow as a snail?" Ming Yu leaped up and angrily threw another punch. "Screw you." The other guy sneered contemptuously. "Looking at your moves, even a cripple could dodge them." But just then his body stiffened. From behind, Jiang Shui plunged the tip of her sword into the ground, creating a sharp line of ice that pinned his feet. He broke into a sweat and glanced back. Jiang Shui stood there, her aura blazing, her stance as firm as a rock. Seizing the opportunity, Ming Yu rushed forward and landed a direct punch. The devastating damage sent the guy flying into the air in extreme pain. 5 minutes later, the black car was parked in the middle of the forest, its mirror shattered. The group from before was now battered and bruised, their faces swollen, begging pitifully, "Hero and heroine, spare our lives." An expert already rescued that girl. When we arrived, no one was there. "It's all a misunderstanding." Jiang Shui replied coldly, "So you did indeed kidnap her." Her words left the group speechless. Ming Yu pointed to a hole in the ground, his voice stern. "And what about this hole you dug?" "You weren't planning on killing her to silence her, were you?" The group's faces darkened. They lowered their heads, avoiding eye contact and pretending not to hear. A while later, Ming Yu and Jiang Shui left. Ming Yu asked, "Who did you say rescued that girl?" Jiang Shui replied curtly, "She's rich, she doesn't lack friends." The two left, leaving the group buried waist-deep in the hole, screaming for help in a panic. On the highway, a young man was pedaling furiously on his bicycle, carrying Chiki. The wind blew through the little girl's hair. Chiki looked grateful, her eyes shining big brother. "Thank you for saving me." The girl tapped on her phone, giggling, and sent a message to her parents saying she had run away with a handsome guy. "I bet this will piss them off." The young man suddenly spoke, making Chiki look up. "If you want to thank someone, thank my big boss. Before he died, he still told me to send you a message to warn you, afraid you'd be in danger." Chiki was lost in thought, her mind replaying the messages that had appeared on her phone screen. He tilted his head slightly, his gaze distant, and said slowly, "My big boss was a very good person. If it weren't for him, I would have starved to death long ago." He continued his story, his voice lowering as if pulling back broken fragments of memory. That year, when his parents sold their house and fled, he wandered around with nowhere to go. In desperation, he rummaged through trash cans for leftover food. Suddenly, a voice called out to him, "Hey, kid!" Looking up, he saw a man with a radiant smile, his voice gentle and warm. "I'm looking for some help." Want to work for a living? Without a moment's hesitation, he nodded and followed the man. After more than a month of wandering, he was taken in by the big boss, who even got him a job at the Tongqin Group. The man placed a copy of the Yijin Jing in front of him, his gaze serious. Everyone in the martial world is an adept. You practice this. Try to integrate with us as soon as possible. Recalling this, he couldn't hold back his emotions, his voice choked. Not only did the big boss pay you 500 RMB a month, but he also taught you a top-tier cultivation manual. Then he burst into tears, sobbing, "Good people don't live long, big bro." After hearing this, Chiki was momentarily stunned, a look of disbelief on her face. The little girl muttered, "Your parents are even worse than mine. Besides, your big boss scammed you. Temporary labor pays more than 500 yuan a month. And the Yijin Jing is all over the internet." Suddenly, he stopped short. His eyes were glued to a trash can on the side of the road. Chiki instinctively followed his gaze, curious. He signaled to stop the bike and gleefully pulled a bag of scraps from the trash can. Chiki stood beside him, questioning incessantly. "You said you're from the Tongtian Group, so was your big boss too?" He didn't answer, just stared intently at the bag of bottles and then burst out laughing excitedly. "I'm rich." Chiki raised an eyebrow, thinking to herself, so that elixir was made by the Tongtian Group. "I have to keep this witness. I can't let him get away," the girl said, annoyed, her tone sharp. "Are you even listening to me?" At the police station, he led the little girl to the gate, calling out cheerfully, "Officer!" Still clutching the bag of scraps as if afraid it would be stolen, he beamed and gently pushed Chiki forward. "This little sister is lost. Please help her get home." Chiki was stunned, unable to react. His task done, he returned to his old bicycle. Pedaling and waving, he said, "Well, I still have to go meet up with my big boss's wife and kids. Bye." He left, leaving Chiki standing there with a dark, stormy cloud seemingly hanging over her head. The police officer smiled kindly, his voice gentle. "Don't be scared, little girl. Where do you live?" In the front yard of a house, an elegant man in a suit walked in and asked in a gentle yet formal tone, "Excuse me, is this the Little Sun office?" He adjusted the hem of his robe, smiled, and introduced himself. "I am Tonghua Bin, willing to spend 1 million to find my daughter." Dinok's eyes lit up as if he smelled money, and he immediately became welcoming. "Welcome, welcome." He shook the man's hand, not forgetting to turn and order, "Secretary Triu, bring up the finest Longjing tea." Hua Bin chuckled, but Miss Triu beside them bluntly exposed the pretense, "Thanks. We don't have that. Black tea, 10 yuan a box, want some?" On the old wooden table, a cup of hot tea was placed down, a faint wisp of steam rising from it. Hua Bin clasped his hands, his voice low and full of anxiety. "My daughter's name is Tondada. She left home about 7 or 8 days ago. She suddenly sent a message saying she eloped with a handsome guy." He continued, his voice earnest. "A 14-year-old girl. How can she fall in love so young and get married? As her father, I absolutely cannot accept this. Please, great hero, help me." Din-ak beamed, his eyes sparkling with only the thought of money. "Ah, yeah, of course, of course." He rubbed his hands together enthusiastically. Miss Trio beside him stroked her chin thoughtfully. That little girl?" Hua Bin paused to look at Miss Trio, his voice tinged with suspicion. You are Miss Trio." She lowered her face slightly, placing her index finger on her lips as if hiding something. Hua Bin cleared his throat, inwardly suspicious. "The eldest young lady of the Trio family. Why is she here?" He took out a check, his gaze firm. "Consider this check a meeting gift. Please bring my daughter back." A brilliant aura of wealth seemed to radiate from him. Din-ak looked serious, his hand clenching slightly, his voice resolute. "Rest assured, I guarantee it will be done." Overhead, the deep blue sky was dotted with lazily drifting clouds. The Thee walked in, her hand on the door frame and a weary look on her face. "Hey, is anyone here? I have something I need you to solve." The girl looked up, her eyes flashing with surprise, and she cried out, "Dad?" Hua Bin immediately turned at the sound of her voice. The father broke into a radiant smile, his eyes sparkling with joy and his voice filled with emotion. "Daughter." He rushed forward to hug the girl tightly, raising a hand in gratitude. "I've long heard that you are a master sorcerer, but I never expected you to use a spell to make my daughter walk right into the trap." "I'm impressed." The smile on Din-ak's lips froze for a moment. He replied succinctly, "Ah, yeah, it was nothing." Holding the check, he thought to himself, making money is so damn easy. At the bustling train station, people moved back and forth like a weaver's shuttle. In waiting room number 11, an emotional woman placed her hand on a young man's shoulder. "Xiao Lu, thank goodness for you." Beside her, her son looked up, his eyes full of gratitude. Suddenly, she covered her face and burst into sobs. He was so desperate for money he risked his life, and in the end he brought ruin upon himself. If you hadn't arrived in time, my son and I... The image of the young man fighting alone against a gang of thugs with clubs reappeared in her mind. She lifted her head slightly, her hand still on her son's shoulder, her voice trembling. "You said you had to go save someone else. Were you able to save them?" The young man smiled gently. "Yes, they're saved." When it was time to say goodbye, the mother and son walked toward the ticket gate. He stood there waving, "Sister-in-law, take care." They smiled back and gradually disappeared from view. Only when their figures were gone did he let his tears fall silently. "Brother, I've done what you asked. Rest in peace." The station was still bustling. A man stood in the middle of the station, a cigarette dangling from his lips, his face clearly showing his annoyance. "I definitely found out they bought tickets for this line. Why haven't they entered the station yet?" In a corner, the young man was excitedly rummaging through a trash can, muttering, "It was so hard to get to the station. I have to collect a few bottles before I go." Then his actions caught the eye of a nearby security guard. He walked over, yanked the boy's shirt, and yelled, "Hey, kid, you can't collect trash here." With tears in his eyes, the young man clutched the pile of bottles and ran for his life, thinking, "Don't worry, brother. Even though you're not here, I can still rely on myself to keep living." Behind him, the security guard's harsh voice still rang out, "Stop!" In the morning, in the small courtyard, gentle sunlight filtered through the leaves. A few lazy cats were stretched out on the eaves, occasionally letting out soft meows. Inside the house, Minvu was brushing his teeth while humming a tune. His eyes closed, his hand moving the toothbrush in a steady rhythm. He casually pushed open the bathroom door, not noticing the occupied sign hanging there. The door swung open, revealing Din Ok sitting on the toilet and holding a newspaper, looking up in bewilderment. Both of them were stunned, the air thick with an indescribable smell. Minvu stopped brushing his teeth, white foam lingering around his mouth. Miss Trieu stood nearby, leaning against the door with her arms crossed, and said coldly, "You did that on purpose, didn't you? How many more times are you going to barge into the bathroom without knocking?" At the dining table, Minvu stared grimly at his bowl of white rice with a few sparse pieces of pickled vegetables, his heart heavy with disappointment. Sitting next to him was the Thee. Across from them were Din Ok and Miss Trieu. There were only a few simple dishes on the table. Din Ok's eyes flared with anger as he picked up a piece of braised pork, dropped it into his own full bowl of rice, and yelled, "What are you looking at? There's none for you, kid. This is what you get for peeking at me in the bathroom." The Thee beside him teased mischievously, He's so big, bro, has such a hobby. How rude, how rude." Minvu immediately glanced at the girl, his eyes unfriendly, and said, "Why is there another freeloader here?" The Thee snorted coldly in response, "I'm the one who paid for this breakfast." Minvu shifted his gaze to the empty chair. "Just curious, where's Yao Shui?" Din Ok, annoyed, chewed on 2 pieces of meat and snapped, "Is Yao Shui a name for you to be calling?" Minvu quickly corrected himself. "Then where is the heroine? Aren't you going to call her for breakfast?" Din Ok tightened his grip on his chopsticks, his voice stern. "Her wounds haven't healed. She's in her room circulating her energy to recover. Finish eating and go train." He paused, his gaze sharp and cold. "I heard it took you half a day to execute a single move yesterday. So disgraceful." Minvu silently speculated, thinking to himself that her wounds must have reopened yesterday. He stood up, holding a tray of food. "I'll take her breakfast first, then I'll go train." The Thee rested her chin on her hand, quietly assessing, "This guy has a conscience." But just as he stepped outside, Minvu's scream rang out. "I didn't do it on purpose. I didn't see anything." The picked up her chopsticks, a mischievous glint in her eyes. "Stop being a coward. Make a bold move and you can stop being single." Din Ok snorted, his gaze cold, this troublemaker. Yesterday, the father and daughter of the Tun family had a frank, heartfelt conversation. Despite encountering many obstacles, they gradually found common ground. Mr. Tun gently coaxed his daughter, his voice full of hope. "Come home with Dad." The resolutely refused, crossing her arms and turning her back to him. "I'm not going back. I refuse to live with that scumbag and that bitch." With no other choice, Mr. Tan turned to Din Ok, standing nearby, offered a check, and said sincerely, "Great Hero Tiet, please let my daughter stay here. Room and living expenses will be 100,000 a month. Is that all right?" Din Ok's eyes lit up, his gaze blazing with excitement. Filled with a sense of righteousness, Tiet Din Ok nodded in agreement to let Tonda the stay long-term. He suddenly turned to the girl, his voice stern. "Little sister, if you're going to stay at my place, you have to follow the rules here." The Thee tilted her head, her eyes questioning, "What rules?" Din Ok slowly instructed, his voice low but clear. The martial world is treacherous, and you've already been in danger several times. From now on, don't go looking for trouble, but it's a different story if others provoke you. The other closed her eyes, her voice stubborn. But I still have to be a champion of justice. Dinok suddenly smiled, a hint of cunning in it. Upon hearing about this primer on mystical arts, These eyes immediately lit up, her desire palpable. From today on, I'll be good. Dinok thought to himself, his mind full of calculations. With more and more people, this place is about to get lively. Under a deep blue open sky, a small deserted alley came into view. The young man was diligently rummaging through a trash can, beads of sweat on his forehead. Suddenly, a voice from behind startled him. Part-time worker 36, Lou Ditch, right? The higher-ups told me to... Lou Ditch's gaze immediately sharpened, and he glanced quickly behind him. Before the man could finish his sentence, he dropped the bag of bottles and lunged forward like a flash. The opponent immediately created a magic talisman, casting it to attack, but Lou Ditch was faster. He threw a punch that shattered the talisman, following up with a powerful kick to the stomach that sent the man tumbling to the ground. The man looked up, his whole body trembling. The mother and son are in our hands. Bring his phone to Cool Long Mountain Villa in the western suburbs of that due for the exchange. Lou Ditch's voice was cold, radiating killing intent, his gaze fixed on the man like daggers. You people have no humanity. The man smirked triumphantly. Get it now, kid. If you dare! Lou Ditch turned and walked away quickly, his eyes as cold as ice. You just wait. In the western suburbs of that due, the scenery was picturesque. Mountains and rivers blended together, dotted with the sweet pink of cherry blossoms. Kulong Mountain Villa was hidden amidst overlapping cliffs surrounded by suspension bridges. On the bridge, a young man spoke softly, his voice tinged with sarcasm. Finding a place this remote, do you think I came here for a vacation? The middle-aged man beside him quickly waved his hands, his voice slightly panicked. Everyone says that guy is extraordinary. Isn't this because we're afraid of causing too much of a commotion and exposing ourselves? So we chose a deserted place. The young man glanced at him, his eyes cold and sharp. Later, if the fight isn't satisfying enough, I'll throw you off. The man immediately felt a chill run down his spine, sweat beading on his face. On the other side of the bridge, two figures, one tall and one short, approached, drawing the attention of them both. The young woman was Liu Luo Mai of the Indo 12 Laws, chugging a bottle of liquor with a steely voice. Our Indo and the Tongchen group have always cooperated happily. The one walking beside the Indo 12 Laws member, Kinoshita Fuji, smiled faintly and said teasingly, Lee-san is the youngest among us, exceptionally gifted. He surely won't keep getting his ass kicked by someone his own age. The words hit a nerve, and Li Yunfei of the Indo 12 Laws Wu Shi, his eyes blazing with killing intent, stomped furiously across the suspension bridge. He was Liu Yi, a part-time worker at the Tongchen Group's Biomedical Research Institute. Suddenly, a powerful surge of energy descended from above, causing the bridge to shake violently. Yunfei landed opposite Liu Yi, his eyes flashing with excitement and his lips curling slightly. Get it now, kiddo. If you dare. After that, Liu Yi clenched his fists. His sharp eyes stared forward, a fierce aura radiating from his body. In a nearby room, a gagged mother and child could only let out faint, muffled sobs. They were tied up securely, lying on the bed with two guards beside them. One of them looked bored. I heard quite a few masters are coming today. I really want to see the masters fight. The other one leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, and said bluntly, The hostages are our leverage. Isn't that just putting us in the line of fire? The other guy muttered, startled. Damn, that actually makes sense. On the suspension bridge between the cliffs, Liu Yi and Yunfei faced off, their killing intent flaring intensely. From a higher vantage point, three figures stood watching, their gazes fixed and unwavering. Luo Mai lifted her liquor bottle, commenting in a level voice, Wasn't it just about secretly selling medicinal pills? He's already dead. You guys even captured his wife and child. That's a bit much. The old man beside her suddenly became agitated, his voice trembling. What if he also stole the pill formula? If the other sex find out how to refine this Zuodan, we're done for. His face grew stern, his expression grave. Anything he left behind cannot be overlooked. We must investigate it strictly and be extremely careful. He clenched his fists again, furious. Don't forget this pill formula was given to us by you people from Indo. If we get targeted by the other sex, you won't be able to escape either. Fuji waved his hand. Don't get so worked up. Luo Mai is an upright person. She just doesn't approve of your kidnapping methods. Getting the pill formula back is our business. But, his expression hardened slightly, If the trader's phone doesn't have the pill formula, our trip here will have been for nothing. How do you plan to compensate us? The old man forced a smile, holding up 2 hands to negotiate. 2 jars of 15-year-old Mao Tai liquor and a first edition signed album set by Old Songs Nemec. The other 2 perked up upon hearing this. Luo Mai yelled, "Xiao Lizi, hurry up! Finish him in 3 minutes for me, go Li-san, I love you like a mouse loves rice." The old man and Luo Mai immediately shot him a judgmental look. This old guy is truly sinister and shameless. On the suspension bridge, the heavy atmosphere had not yet dissipated. Billowing clouds swirled beneath the bridge's deck. The surrounding majestic mountain scenery further highlighted the aura of the 2 people standing there. Yunfei sized him up. "You must be Liu Yi." Unable to contain his excitement, he suggested, "Fight around with me." The old man above heard this and flew into a rage, shouting a reminder, "Fight my ass! We have the hostages, tell him to hand over the phone." Liu Yi held out a brick phone, saying seriously, "Here. Let the people go." The old man lost even more control. "Whose piece of shit phone is that?" "I want the trader's phone." Ignoring the shouting, Liu Yi handed the brick phone to Yunfei. "Here, let them go." He casually took it and had the people released. "Huh? So obedient?" Yunfei held the item up towards the 3 people above and shouted, "Got the item. Let's release the people." The old man suddenly gave a profound look. "Is there a need to be so kind? God sees them again. The devil only knows if he has another copy saved." He looked displeased, glancing upwards. "You dare give me orders after this is over." But in the next moment, Yunfei's eyes widened in astonishment. He was so surprised by the scene before him that he couldn't react in time. Liu Yi was rushing towards Yunfei at lightning speed. His hand was extended, about to grab his opponent using the 9 stances of the Azure Dragon's probing claw technique. Yunfei frowned and yelled, "You're playing dirty, a sneak attack!" He sidestepped nimbly, successfully avoiding the incoming attack. Liu Yi slightly rotated his hand and streams of energy coiled into a ring. He said with a stern face, "A bunch of villains like you have the nerve to use the words playing dirty." Immediately, Yunfei's body was bound tightly by that stream of energy, unable to move. He began to panic. "I'm screwed!" Liu Yi's body then shot forward, grabbing Yunfei's head. He squeezed his opponent's head with force, his eyes ice cold. Liu Yi slammed Yunfei down in one smooth motion, smashing his head hard against the bridge's surface. The resulting impact caused the suspension bridge to shake violently, sending shock waves rippling outwards. The 3 people above witnessed everything. One was surprised, one was panicked, and one began to scheme. The force of the blow caused the wooden surface of the bridge to crack and splinter, sending dust and debris flying everywhere. Liu Yi's gaze remained sharp and resolute. He suddenly glanced upwards. The old man terrified hid behind Luo Mai. "He's looking over here! Sister, save me!" Liu Yi pushed off with a powerful kick, launching himself straight up at lightning speed. Fuji was sweating a look of disbelief on his face. No way Li-san was insta-killed just like that. As Yunfei lifted his head, a large section of the bridge's surface was gone, and several suspension cables had snapped. He shouted loudly, "Who said I was insta-killed? I just underestimated my enemy and got hit by one move." Beneath the cold moonlight, Liu Yi shot up towards the stone bridge, his body like an arrow cutting through the wind. The old man trembled, his face pale, and stammered, "He's coming! He's here!" Liu Yi's terrifying leap caused the cliff face to shake, sending loose rocks clattering down. He hovered in midair, hand raised in a stance, eyes blazing, and roared, "Give me back my big brother's wife and child." Then his hand swung down forcefully with the momentum of a thunderclap. Fuji's eyes widened in terror at the sharp sword energy, but Luo Mai, as graceful as a drifting cloud, raised her hand and blocked Liu Yi's attack. He was momentarily stunned while she skillfully sidestepped, deflecting the trajectory of his attack. Liu Yi's eyes widened in utter astonishment. Luo Mai smiled faintly, her voice gentle. "Brother, the people are in the room behind us. Don't hurt them." Liu Yi lost his momentum and fell onto the bridge, creating a thunderous explosion that sent earth and rocks flying everywhere. Luo Mai leaned on the railing, leisurely taking a sip from the liquor bottle in her other hand, as her gaze swept over the chaotic scene. Liu Yi staggered to his feet, his aura still blazing, and said in a firm voice, "You're a reasonable person. I've already given you what you want, so give the people back to me." Opposite him, the 2 men trembled as they hid behind Luo Mai. The old man snarled, his eyes cold. "How can you guarantee you don't have a backup copy?" Fuji interjected, "Don't come over here, Mai-chan is really formidable." Liu Yi held up the phone, his voice unwavering. "I don't have a backup copy. I can't afford a USB, a computer, or a phone. I just want to take my brother's wife and child home. Wu Yu, cradling a crystal ball, spoke up. My divination says he's not lying. I also calculated that he's so poor he can't even afford to eat vegetables. The old man frowned doubtfully. Is that so? Is your divination reliable? Luo Mai gently rubbed her temples, her voice soft but sharp. Being too cautious isn't a good thing. She glanced at the old man, her eyes twinkling with amusement. But those 2 bottles of Mao Tai aren't getting away. Fuji smirked and chimed in. Miku's first edition album isn't escaping either. On a table, the phone was connected to a laptop, its screen flashing with data. A young man turned his head to report, "This phone has had no data copying activity in the last 20 days. He continued in a monotone voice. Whether it contains our research materials still requires time to investigate. Could it be that the research data really wasn't leaked? Fuji smirked. Being cautious is good, but being overly cautious is just stupid. The old man, furious and red-faced, retorted, Cautious-type protagonists are trending right now. I'm just following the trend! Fuji yelled back, his voice dripping with scorn. A bald guy like you could never be a protagonist. Hitting a sore spot, the old man roared, I'm a genius scientist. Why can't I be the male lead? Fuji shot back. Are there any bald male protagonists, huh? Male protagonists are all average-looking with nothing special about them. Suddenly, a cold voice cut through their argument. You two get out of the way. Liu Yi clenched his fists, his gaze as sharp as a knife. The old man's face grew stern, his voice deepening. What an arrogant brat! Have you forgotten whose territory this is? Fuji smirked dangerously. Just because I put on a little comedy act, you think I'm Jen Lan Sky Kai Ha. Liu Yi tightened his fists, growling, move. The 2 old men, startled, hastily backed away, stammering. Just kidding, just kidding. Go on, go on. Liu Yi turned and gave a reassuring smile to the mother and child. Don't worry, I'm here. The mother nodded slightly, her voice trembling. Thank you. Luo Mai leaned against the railing, her voice calm. I'm letting you go this time because we have no conflict of interest. Don't even dream of avenging your big brother. She took another sip of wine, her eyes sharp and cold. In the world of sorcerers, revealing the organization's secrets won't lead to a better end than his. Liu Yi clenched his fists, thinking to himself, this woman is unfathomably cunning. For the sake of my sister-in-law and the child, I can't get any more involved. He looked her straight in the eye, his voice firm. From now on, we'll stay out of each other's way. Then he cupped his hands to bid farewell. Luo Mai raised an eyebrow slightly, calling after him, Wait. A golden card flashed as it flew towards him. Liu Yi caught it between 2 fingers, his eyes scrutinizing it. Luo Mai smiled. With skills like yours, dressing in such rags is a disgrace to all sorcerers. Take this shopping card and get yourself some decent clothes. She looked up at the sky and waved leisurely. Take care. We'll meet again if fate wills it. Liu Yi turned to the mother, his voice warm and deep. Sister-in-law, take big brother's remaining money and go live somewhere else. Luo Mai commented softly, her eyes twinkling with amusement. Fuji stroked his chin, musing. What's that supposed to mean? Luo Mai replied gently. Can't you feel that this guy's energy is very similar to his? Fuji was startled, an image of Ding Yi flashing in his mind. No wonder you stepped in to end the conflict and even showed concern for that kid. Fuji narrowed his eyes, a mocking sneer on his face. However, among us, there's an idiot who just can't read the room. At some point, Yun Feizi had appeared standing imposingly in front of Liu Yi. His eyes blazed like fire, the corners of his mouth curling into a challenging smirk. He. You can leave, but you must fight me first. His aura erupted like a tempest, his posture ready for battle. The old man observed the scene, his brows furrowed, his voice filled with doubt. Is that guy really one of the 12 laws? Fuji chimed in, his voice heavy. Don't ask. The Grandmaster selected him personally. There were objections at first. Luo Mai stood there, her expression darkening, her anger flaring up like a wildfire. Liu Yi, she yelled forcefully, throwing the wine bottle at Yun Feizi. Brat, stop causing trouble. Get your ass back here for me. Both Liu Yi and Yun Feizi looked up startled. Yun Feizi's mouth fell open in surprise, but still unwilling to back down. He pulled out iron nails and held them between his fingers, his voice resentful. Why? I haven't even done anything yet. The wine bottle shot forward like a cannonball, tearing through the air with immense force. Yun Feizi couldn't react in time and was struck by the bottle getting knocked backward. He lay sprawled on the bridge floor, the rim of the bottle clearly imprinted on his forehead, completely unconscious. Liu Yi glanced over, a worried look in his eyes, silently hoping he was okay. The woman gasped softly, and the child clung tightly to her in fear. Luo Mai sighed, resting her chin on her hand with a weary expression. At the train station, Liu Yi waved, seeing the mother and child off with a lingering gaze. "Goodbye. I'll visit you both when I'm free." He looked up the image of the worker's smiling face flashing through his mind. Liu Yi had fulfilled his wish, seeing off the wife and child of that unreliable big brother. He muttered, his voice choked with emotion. "Big brother, in the end, I didn't let you down." A tear gently rolled down from the corner of his eye. He stood in a daze, feeling relieved as if a great weight had been lifted, ready to start a new life. Then he cheerfully rummaged through a trash can, casually picking up a few more bottles and muttering, "The security guard dragged me away last time, so I have to get more this time." Suddenly, he pulled out the card and wondered, "Right, I wonder how much I can sell this shopping card for." Afterwards, he sold the 5000 value shopping card for 18. A few days later, a surprising rumor began to spread. In the living room, Ding-yi sat in an armchair. Beside him, Auntie Chu was sipping a cup of hot tea. Auntie Chu tilted her head and asked, "I heard you took on another disciple and even fought with one of the Yin Tu." Ding-yi turned to her, bewildered. "Don't you already know about Tiangu?" Unsatisfied with his answer, Auntie Chu dropped her nonchalant demeanor, her voice serious. "Not the kid Tiangu, another disciple. Zhao Shui is practically your daughter, so don't change the subject." "Tell me the truth." Upon hearing this, Ding-yi's face contorted as if his pressure points had been struck. Outside in the courtyard, Chi-Chi led Liu Yi in. Her clear voice rang out, "Everyone come on out, let me introduce you." Liu Yi forced a smile, waving his hands in embarrassment. "There's no need, really. Saving my life was nothing." A moment later, in front of everyone, Chi-Chi enthusiastically introduced Liu Yi. "This is my lifesaver. He can take on 10 guys at once. Plus, he practices the Yijin Jing. Isn't that awesome?" Ming Yu shouted excitedly, "The Yijin Jing, that's a legendary martial arts technique, so badass." Chi-Chi trotted over to Jiang Shui and Ding-yi, saying cheerfully, "This handsome guy and beautiful lady are the heroes I told you about. They help those in distress and fight evil. They saved me before and even took me in. They're the best." Ding-yi beamed, waving his hand. "That's right, I'm that good person." Jiang Shui maintained her cold expression, saying calmly, "I'm Jiang Shui, hello." Chi-Chi then rushed over to Auntie Chu and hugged her tightly, exclaiming, "This lady of extraordinary grace and superior bearing is Auntie Chu, a big shot from Wanhitang. Although she's powerful and holds a high position, she's down to earth and approachable. She's a divine doctor." Auntie Chu smiled, her eyes still on the girl. "A bit over the top, but I like it." When it was Chu Mingyu's turn, Chi-Chi shot him a glare and pointed at him reluctantly. "This one's a tenant here. You can ignore him." Mingyu was indignant at her attitude and grumbled, "Hey!" Liu Yi, flustered, could only bow to each person. "Hello, hello, hello." After the introductions, Chi-Chi got straight to the point. Although Benefactor Liu is powerful, he's down on his luck, has nowhere to live, and is extremely poor. "Handsome uncle and pretty sister, are you still hiring?" Ding-yi looked intently at Liu Yi, unconsciously stroking his chin in thought. He's already entered the Xiantian realm just by practicing half of the Yijin Jing. Moreover, why is his energy somewhat similar to mine? Could he be the person from the rumors? Ding-yi spoke up, his voice low. "A few days ago, did you fight with one of the Yin Tu?" Liu Yi asked back, puzzled. "Yin Tu." Ming Yu, standing nearby, quickly sketched a picture and pointed at the portrait. "Have you seen this guy? He's one of the Yin Tu." In the soft light of the room, Jiang Shui stood silently nearby. Her eyes glanced indifferently at the drawing as she offered a faint compliment. "Oh, nice drawing." Liu Yi, in contrast, was stunned by Ming Yu's sketch. He pointed at the figure in the drawing, his voice trembling with astonishment. "It's him!" One of those weirdos who isn't all there in the head. Jiang Shui, Ding-yi, and Ming Yu nodded in unison, their eyes meeting as if they had all reached the same unmistakable conclusion. Ding-yi was lost in thought, his brows furrowed. His mind drifted through thoughts of the Yijin Jing being a half-step into the Xiantian realm and fighting a Yin Tu. If word of this got out, it would most likely spell disaster. He suddenly looked up at Liu Yi, his voice decisive. "I can offer room and board $2,900 a month. You in?" After hearing this, Chi-Chi, who was standing nearby, shrugged disdainfully. $2,900. "Are you giving handouts to a beggar?" But Liu Yi looked as if he had struck gold, his eyes shining like headlights, his voice full of excitement. "I'll do it. Such a high salary, I have to take it." Ming Yu, sympathizing with Chi-Chi, frowned at Ding-yi and said, half-jokingly, "Hey, I think my rent is also $2,900. But Liu Yi remained grateful, his eyes welling with tears, his voice trembling. "The market rate for rent is $2,900. I get room and board plus a salary. That's actually over 5,800. 1 month of this is equal to what I used to make in a whole year. Upon hearing this, Din Ok sighed, walked over and patted his shoulder, his voice deep and warm. Your previous boss was truly cruel. Min Vu, standing to the side, mumbled sarcastically, I don't think you're in any position to call others cruel. Overcome with emotion, Liu Yi rushed forward with tears streaming down his face and hugged Din Ok's leg tightly. Boss, I would follow you through fire and water. Startled, Din Ok stepped back, his tone half joking. No need to be so dramatic. Just listen and do your job. Auntie Chu, standing nearby, suddenly spoke up, a smile in her voice. After offending Yin Tu, you're the only one who would dare take him in. This fake disciple has turned into a real one. Din Ok burst out laughing, slinging an arm over Liu Yi's shoulder, his voice hearty. Come on, tell us how you played the hero saving the damsel in distress. And how did you get mixed up with the Yin Tu group afterward? Meanwhile, Jiang Shui slipped away from the crowd and sat quietly in a corner waving a cat toy to play with the cats. At the table, the Thi and Min Vu listened intently, their eyes shining brightly. The Thi exclaimed excitedly, saving someone single-handedly, so cool. Liu Yi, however, sank into a less pleasant memory, his voice low with regret. Although I saved the boss's family member, my skills were insufficient. Not only did the bad guys get what they wanted, but I also couldn't bring them to justice. After hearing this, Din Ok's gaze softened as he comforted him. Matters of the sorcerer world can only be resolved internally. Being able to recognize the disparity in strength and knowing when to retreat already makes you stronger than many. He turned and pinched the cheek of the who was standing beside him, teasing, Isn't that right, heroine son, you almost kicked the bucket. The little girl mumbled resignedly, I was wrong. Please forgive this ignorant one who didn't know the dangers of the world. Min Vu, his voice gloomy with a hint of sarcasm, looked at the I told you not to investigate some elixir, but you just wouldn't listen. Hearing this, Din Ok immediately switched from the to grabbing Min Vu's ear, his voice stern. You've only been training for a few days and you're already out there fighting? A stern voice. Mocking my ass, get back to training for me. You can go out and party when you can defeat me. In the server room of Thong Tien Corporation, a blond man typed rapidly, reporting in a monotone voice, the recently deleted documents are still intact. Yiklao has also been decrypted. There is no sensitive data. Only 3 old elixir formulas were found in the phone's archive. He stopped typing and looked at the old man standing behind him. Although they are 3 semi-finished formulas, if Wan He Tang gets them and combines them with their plant-based elixirs, our secret refining process might not be safe anymore. He continued typing, his voice firm. But are you sure there are no traces of them being copied? The fortune teller sitting nearby overheard the conversation and scoffed at the superstitious scientists. You all should stop doubting my divination. I already told you he wasn't lying, but you still wouldn't believe me. On the street, Liu Yi strode alongside Jiang Shui and Chu Min Vu, panting as he ran. I was always worried that there might be a spell to see through lies. That's why I didn't copy the data. Instead, I hand-wrote it and hid it under the copy shop up ahead. Although she didn't show it outwardly, the praise in her words was crystal clear. After that, Min Vu also gave a thumbs up, hiding a tree in the forest. Brother Liu, you're really something. A moment later, the 3 of them were standing in front of the copy shop, but the unexpected scene before them left them stunned. The 3 of them stood frozen in front of the fire. You've got to be kidding me. A fire. From behind a gloomy-looking man with white hair emerged, lightly tapping Min Vu's shoulder and whispering in his ear, Don't worry, I'll tell you whatever you want to know. I'm not like Boss Shu. Whether it's about the Heartfire elixir, the Tengu, or even your father's matters, I have no intention of hiding them from you. As soon as Jiang Shui saw him, she quickly got into a defensive stance. Yin Tu, why are you here? Hearing this, Liu Yi also hurriedly got into a defensive stance. What? He's also one of the Yin Tu. Yi Gung remained calm and smiled, ignoring the other 2 and staring intently at Min Vu's face. Just ask whatever you want to know. Min Vu was too frightened to speak, only able to stare at the man standing before him. After staring at each other for a moment, he stammered and asked the person in front of him, Are you a member of Yin Tu? Although he dared to ask, deep down he was terrified. This person has a strange, terrifying aura. Yi Gung's eyes narrowed and a chilling smile formed on his lips. But this kid clearly has a lot of questions, yet he can remain so calm. He maintained that creepy expression. Well, then let me introduce myself first. In this chaotic world of sorcerers, I abandoned my real name long ago. You can just call me. Jiang Shui didn't interrupt him. She directly exposed his identity. You are the leader of Yin Tu, the biggest criminal organization in the sorcerer world. We can all just call him Yin Tu. Yi Geng put on a provocative expression, coughed twice, and said, That's right, I am Yin Tu, and Yin Tu is me. Yi Geng didn't let him say anything more. Jiang Shui moved to Min Vu's side and told him, Actually, his real name is Yi Geng. He was once a sworn brother to Boss So-So and your father. Now he's committing arson and murder robbing and stealing everywhere. There's nothing he won't do. Hearing what Jiang Shui said, Yi Geng didn't argue, I admit it. Why would you expose someone's weak points right off the bat like that? Geez, you've been so naive since you were a kid. With an IQ that low, you'll definitely never get married. Min Vu frowned. A sworn brother of my father. I've never heard about this. Yi Geng again, with that chilling expression, said, Judging by your face, that Jiang Shui still hasn't told you, has she? That's not the only thing she's hiding from you. Jiang Shui, standing right there, explained, Boss So-So said that after you found out you two were relatives, you might skip out on rent, so he told me to keep it from you. Both of them shared the same helpless expression. That's just like him. Liu Yi, standing there, couldn't take it anymore and shouted, What are you people doing? That guy is a villain who committed arson to destroy evidence, so why are you all chatting so casually? As the leader of the Yin Tu, of course, he wouldn't be as ordinary as he just appeared. Liu Yi, suddenly interrupting the conversation, greatly annoyed him. Instantly, his true nature was revealed. Shut your mouth. This is no place for you to be insolent, Liu Yi. Seeing the person who was just talking with Jiang Shui's group now exuding a deathly aura was quite startling. A deadly black aura emanated from Yi Geng's entire hand, then gathered into a single point in his palm and shot straight toward where Liu Yi was standing. Watching the aura hurtling toward Liu Yi, Min Vu stood frozen to the spot. The bewildered expression on his face was very clear. Liu Yi stood there. He assumed a defensive stance, a white aura enveloping his body. Upon contact with Yi Geng's column of black aura, Liu Yi was just as bewildered as Min Vu. What is this aura? It's completely suppressing me. This isn't just a difference in cultivation level. The gap is too vast. Liu Yi was gradually pushed back by the column of black aura, his feet unable to hold their ground any longer. Instantly, he was thrown against the wall behind him. Liu Yi coughed up a mouthful of bright red blood. Yi Geng turned back using that same horrifying expression to speak to Min Vu, who was trembling like a leaf. All right, let's continue. Do you really have nothing you want to ask? Although Min Vu was terrified and trembling, he still asked, Uncle Yin Tu, may I ask what the secret of the heart fire elixir is? Why did you have to destroy its formula? Yi Geng smiled with satisfaction, his eyes twinkling as if he had found the perfect answer. Very good, let me answer. He gently lifted a glass vial inside which a single elixir shimmered its faint light, seeming to hold a world-shattering secret. His voice deepened as he slowly explained, The heart fire elixir is something I created by simulating the power of the Tengu refined from the thoughts and meridians of sorcerers. Once the major sects find out, it will likely cause great trouble. After all, they all yearn to use the Tengu to find the homeland of 10,000 gods, thereby transcending mortality and ascending to divinity. If it gets out that I'm creating a Tengu, I'm afraid the entire sorcerer world will once again unite to hunt down and kill my Yin Tu organization. After hearing this, Min Vu felt as if he'd been struck by lightning, breaking out in a cold sweat, speechless at the words that had just been spoken. The homeland of 10,000 gods and artificial Tengu. These concepts were so far-fetched that they made his head spin. Yi Geng didn't stop his monotonous voice, continuing to lead him on. Legend has it that the Kunlun Mountains are the homeland of 10,000 gods, a place where humans can ascend to godhood. But its entrance is a mystery that no one can solve. Over 100 years ago, someone broke in, causing 7 types of divine powers from the Star Palace to descend upon the mortal world. The Tengu inside you is one of them. Furthermore, it is the only inheritance in the last 55 years, the sole clue leading to the homeland of 10,000 gods. Min Vu trembled. His gaze was fixed on the Tengu created from his own aura. His mind was in turmoil. The divine power of the ice immortal. Why me? Why is it inside me? Not Khan's initial nonchalance faded, his face turning cold, his voice as heavy as stone. The heavenly dog within you is what your father traded his life for, Jiang Tu Yet. Suddenly, a sharp, cold voice rang out from behind Minvu, cutting through his thoughts. Say no more, don't forget our agreement. Both of them turned simultaneously, their gazes landing on the phone in Jang Tuyet's hand where Din Ak's face appeared on a video call. His expression was as dark as a thundercloud. Chu Minvu has no obligation to shoulder the mess our generation left behind. Nat Can narrowed his eyes, the corner of his mouth curling slightly, his voice full of challenge. He's the one who decides, not us. Or are you scared? After all, you're just a useless cripple stuck at home, unable to even break a barrier. Din Ak on the screen looked anything but pleased, his eyes sharp as a knife, his voice full of irritation through the phone. Just how much free time do you have to spend researching barriers specifically targeting me? His voice deepened. After 2 years, I finally managed to break the barrier that Natkan meticulously set up, even if it's only temporary. Natkan thought to himself, a flash of surprise in his eyes. This guy is still as brutal as ever. Who's the real villain of the sorcerer world anyway? At the same time, Din Ak landed where they were gathered, his presence imposing, Little Tuyet, Little Chu, are you two unhurt? This barrier requires 10 people to maintain it, 5 inside and 5 outside. So I disabled the 5 outside. Don't feel too bad about it. A chilling white aura as cold as ice emanated from Din Ak. His face was cold. Not only did you act personally, but you also brought people from the Tap Nai Luat. Such an overwhelming presence. Are you trying to have a showdown with me? Watching Din Ak approach Natkan casually put his hands in his pockets. As for the matter concerning your father and the heavenly dog, just ask him. I'm sure that after you hear it, you'll come with me. After all, we are the inheritors of your father's will, allies of justice. Hearing those last few words, Din Ak shrugged, his voice sarcastic. Are you done talking ally of justice? He scoffed. Will you dare to look for my little Chu again in the future? Din Ak's black shoe lightly kicked a stone at his feet, sending it flying up. He kicked it again. The stone shot towards Natkan like an arrow. I'll get really angry. Unfazed, Natkan smiled calmly and gently reached out to catch the stone. A mysterious black aura faintly emanated from his fingertips. The stone flew at an astonishing speed, leaving a faint streak of light in the air. In the end, he caught the stone between 2 fingers as gently as catching a falling leaf. I may not seek him out, but if he comes looking for me, I won't let myself be at a disadvantage. He flicked the stone back, and the black aura enveloping it sent it hurtling toward Din Ak. Quick as a flash, Din Ak raised his hand to create a power shield, catching the stone he had just launched. He growled in a low voice, You brain-dead fool, don't you dare twist the facts. Natkan just chuckled, his voice calm. Who gave me the letter of introduction in the first place, huh? Din Ak sneered, his voice dripping with sarcasm. That's right, you always liked to imitate me back then. You even had to dress exactly the same. The two launched into a fierce argument, their heads practically steaming. Natkan retorted, straining his neck. I'm wearing the Andu uniform. How is that imitating you, huh? Din Ak gritted his teeth, his gaze icy. Only the two of us wear this childish uniform. Minvu and Jang Tuyet watched from the side, breaking out in a sweat rendered speechless. Minvu quietly asked her, Are they good friends matching outfits? Jang Tuyet replied sympathetically, Matching outfits. Hearing this, the two of them whipped around and yelled in unison, Who's friends with him? This is a uniform. Lu Ditch, who had just woken up, cracked open his eyes, glanced over, then quickly shut them again, muttering the enemy's situation is still unclear. Continue playing dead. Natkan turned back to Minvu, stood straight, and said in a firm voice, I am now the head of Endu. The uniform and all authority belong to me. You're the one imitating me. If you don't like it, then fight me. Minvu silently watched the two of them. One was emitting a black aura while the other erupted with a sky-high white aura. He gave a forced smile and tried to mediate. Please calm down, both of you. I still have a few things I want to clarify. Earlier, you told my father you were sworn brothers. You are members of Andu. Does that mean my father was also a member of Andu? As if waiting for this question, Natkan replied in a firm voice, He was our big brother, a member of Andu. The image of a great father in Minvu's heart collapsed and his mind spun. Then wasn't my dad a villain who committed all sorts of crimes? Atkan sneered, glancing at Din Ak. Aren't you going to tell him the truth? He'll misunderstand forever. Din Ak's face was ice cold as he asked in a low voice, Why must you drag everyone into this conflict? As if his sore spot had been hit, Notkan lunged forward, grabbed Din Ok by the collar, and yelled, "My wife is dead, my father is dead, the organization is disbanded. If I don't drag the entire sorcerer world down with me, how can I get my revenge?" In the end, he only grabbed his collar before turning away. A black aura erupted, enveloping his entire body. "You and Big Brother may have admitted defeat, but I haven't." "Never." Din Ok's green eyes lowered slightly, hiding unspeakable sorrows. That Khan continued, his voice sharp and cold. "In your current condition, how long can you protect him?" "It would be better to let him come with me." He didn't want his big brother's only son to follow the same disastrous path. Nat Khan emphasized, "In the world of sorcerers, strength is the only thing that matters." Din Ok opened his calloused hand and then clenched it into a fist, his voice deep. "We both know what lies at the pinnacle of power. Must you force everyone into a corner?" Then Jiang Tuyet walked over to Din Ok's side. Her voice was soft but firm. "You once said that once sorcerers get a taste of power, most of them lose their minds and rush down a path of endless pursuit. But I don't think Chu Minvu will be like that." She pointed at Minvu, who was standing there on the verge of tears, looking disheveled. "He just wants to finish college and find a job with no interest in pursuing power." Din Ok nodded, sensing the logic in her words. But the next second he went off topic, his voice tinged with emotion. "It's been years since I've heard you say this much. I'm so touched." In the boarding house courtyard, the Thi was carefully dabbing medicine on Lu Dish. The little girl asked curiously, "Aren't you supposed to be very strong?" "Who hurt you?" Lu Dish trembled in pain, but still managed to say, "This cotton is expensive, use it sparingly." In the room, Jiang Tuyed sat quietly by the door, stroking a cat. At the table, Din Ok was telling a story to Minvu. "The story of your father and me begins on a night 15 years ago." He spoke in one breath. "Back then, I was a cool 20-year-old hanging out with my friends at an internet cafe when we ran into a bunch of thugs who came in to beat people up. Turns out they were all sorcerers, so like a hero, I ended up offending the power behind them. A few days later, they brought a whole gang. But I was young and strong, powerful enough to take on 10 of them without breaking a sweat, and I wiped them out on the spot. Who knew they had hundreds of brawlers? Even I couldn't hold them off." Minvu knew immediately that he was exaggerating, and with a weary look, held up a hand to stop him. "Let's put aside your youthful image for now. Can you get to the point in 30 words or less?" Din Ok, seemingly losing his enthusiasm for storytelling, answered concisely, "Your father, the hero, saved this handsome guy. After that, we teamed up to become allies of justice under the name Ondu." Minvu had a sudden realization, as if he had just pieced together scattered fragments. Din Ok's eyes glittered sharply as he slowly recounted, "Ondu was actually a good organization punishing the wicked and eliminating evil. He once told me about the day he met Notkan. Later, we took in a kid who is now the current head of Ondu Lam Notkani. Lam Notkan's talent far surpassed that of ordinary people and the rest of Ondu. Under our protection, the lower-class sorcerers grew strong, quickly nurturing the dream of changing the dog-eat-dog world of sorcerers." At this point, Din Ok's green eyes darkened slightly, as if sinking into a painful memory. When the previous wielder of the Heavenly Dog's power was revealed, the legendary homeland of Van Than was shaken. The sorcerer world launched a massive hunt for the bearer of the Heavenly Dog, while Ondu stepped up to protect her. Conflicts with the major sects constantly erupted, but in the end they managed to keep her safe. Suddenly, a sorcerer calling himself Kim Dan Tu appeared, murdering people to seize the Heavenly Dog. His power was beyond imagination, and he slaughtered the major sects. Din Ok Minvu's father and Lam Nat Khan had to join forces and push past their limits to luckily defeat him, leaving the Heavenly Dog without a host once again. The Heavenly Dog was weakened from constantly losing its hosts. Din Ok turned to Minvu, his voice low and sorrowful as he continued. "The fierce battle left them exhausted, and they only hoped to avoid a repeat of the chaotic struggle in the sorcerer world. Your father, influenced by tales of the martial world, used his life's power to create a cage sealing the Heavenly Dog within your dantian. But once the Tiangu's power recovers, it can't be suppressed forever. Therefore, they constantly sought ways to separate and use the Tiangu's power, ensuring it wouldn't become too aggressive." As memories flooded back, Ding Yi yawned, waved at Ming Yu, and said in a tired voice, "That's how it is. Go back to your room and rest. I need to catch up on sleep. Talking so much is exhausting." Ming Yu was momentarily stunned and hadn't yet replied when he quickly stopped Ding Yi. "Uncle Shua, don't go yet. There are probably at least 4 more things you need to tell me." The space fell silent, and Ding Yi looked annoyed, as if he wanted to leave. Ming Yu poured out the questions he had been holding in for so long. You still haven't told me why Yin Tu ended up like this or what grudge it has with the world of sorcerers. You also haven't said where my father is, whether he's alive or dead. The Tiangu and the previous keeper are clearly very important, but you only mentioned them briefly. What's your relationship with that person? What did you mean when you said you couldn't protect me for many more years? Ding Yi turned back his face full of weariness. Are you playing 20 questions? A barrage of questions rained down from Ming Yu, and he continued, Who is my mother? If you don't answer, I'll keep asking. How old are you? Are you married? What cultivation technique do you practice when Yin Tu mentioned a dead wife? Who were they talking about? Did you really just find Jiang Shui? Have the adoption papers been filed? Also, how old are you really? How much is the Sihe Yuan worth? How do you stay so handsome? Are you married? Ding Yi, like a farmer trapped in a noisy city, couldn't stand the storm of questions and shouted with teary eyes, Stop! Fine, I'll tell you all right. A moment after Ming Yu's rain of questions subsided, Ding Yi regained his serious expression and answered one by one. If a person is too outstanding, they will inevitably be met with jealousy and resentment. That year, we defeated Jin Danzi. Yin Tu's power led many sorcerers to see us as a threat, so they joined forces to besiege and destroy us. Our people were severely injured, and your father lost all his powers. Even though Lin Yigang fought to the death, he couldn't save the situation. In the end, to protect the members, Ming Yu's father announced the disbandment of Yin Tu. The three major sects of today were formed from that crusade against Yin Tu, and they have now become the force that maintains order among sorcerers. The Yin Tu re-established by Lin Yigang still protects lower-class sorcerers, but it's more violent and extreme, resorting to any means to achieve its goals. After hearing this, Ming Yu's heart burned with anger. You guys stopped Jin Danzi from slaughtering sorcerers, yet those other sorcerers repaid your kindness with enmity. Second Ding Yi placed a hand on Ming Yu's head, giving a warm smile before suddenly raising his fist, his voice low. The path of cultivation is inherently risky. The nature of sorcerers is that they are a bunch of madmen who trade their lives for power and benefits. There's no chivalry in the world of sorcerers. Looking at Ding Yi's wrinkled face, Ming Yu trembled. That can't be true, right? Don't scare me. Ding Yi softened, putting his hands in his pockets, looking like a heartbroken man, reminiscing about his big brother's smile. Only your father was different. He was the last chivalrous man in the Jianghu. But the last time I saw him, he was like a lamp running out of oil. I don't know why he left without a word. Hearing this, Ming Yu's hope seemed to crumble. Is that so? Is he really gone? Ding Yi sighed and continued. Your father left a cage of primal energy inside you, which is set to dissipate when you turn 20. At that time, you'll have to control the Tiangu on your own. There's nothing more I can do to help, which is why I said I couldn't protect you for many more years. Ming Yu was startled, his heart tightening. What? 20 years old? What do you mean, many more years? Isn't that just 1 year from now? Right now, I rely entirely on you, old man, suppressing the Tiangu to use its power. If that suppressive force disappears... Ming Yu rushed forward, crawling on the floor, kowtowing repeatedly, which made Ding Yi break into a cold sweat and feel awkward. He clung tightly to him. His voice was pleading, Master Ding Yi, you dashing hero of unparalleled martial prowess, please continue to teach me how to cultivate. Ming Yu clung even tighter, refusing to let go. Ding Yi gave a forced smile, then replied coldly, his voice like ice water poured on him. The primal energy in your body is too chaotic. You can't learn normal sorcery. I really have nothing to teach you. Ming Yu burst into tears, wailing loudly. Uncle, don't abandon me. If you can't teach me sorcery, then teach me some fist and leg techniques or how to use a sword, at least for self-defense. I'm a magic practitioner. I don't know any physical combat arts. Even Xiao Shui's swordsmanship is self-taught. Jiang Shui, who was standing in the room, was about to speak up for Ming Yu, but her words unintentionally poked at his sore spot. The last time he fought with the Tongqian Corporation, Ming Yu's poor skills meant he couldn't even land a hit on his opponent, and he was humiliatingly mocked. He hugged Ding Yi's thigh tightly, his hand inching upwards, which tickled him and made him shout in embarrassment. Stop moving your hand up! Ming Yu didn't care about the salt being rubbed in his wound. He only knew that Jiang Shui was trying to help him. Emboldened, he wailed even louder. That's right, I'm your direct disciple. If I use my ultimate move and just hit the air, it would be so embarrassing if word got out. Ding Yi pondered for a moment and then suggested, How about you try the National Martial Arts Hall? They are masters of physical combat. Although they don't publicly train outside sorcerers, we can try to contact them. But you have to be careful there. Those people are usually up to no good. Don't underestimate any sorcerer. You must be on your guard about everything. Ming-yu nodded vigorously in agreement. Suddenly, Ding-yi grabbed him by the collar, lifted him up like a chicken, and threw him out the door, his voice firm. The time I'm giving you is for you to go work hard on your cultivation behind the scenes, seizing every second. Got it. Ming-yu was used to Ding-yi's blunt way of kicking people out and smiled brightly. Thanks, Uncle. I'm going back to my room to cultivate. I'll wait for your good news. As Ming-yu's figure disappeared, Jiang Shui finally spoke up. Did he forget something? Ding-yi returned to his calm demeanor, no longer as unruly as before, and replied to her, if he forgot, just let him forget. Don't remind him. Jiang Shui agreed verbally, but her heart burned with curiosity, thinking to herself that she was also very interested. In his room, Ming-yu sat in meditation, but his mind was in turmoil, repeating the questions. Did he change the subject on purpose? Why didn't he mention the previous Tiangu keeper? At the Yin-Tu base, a black flag bearing the organization's symbol fluttered in the air right in front of the main entrance. In the elevator, Yun Fei and the old fortune teller were heading to the 19th floor. The old fortune teller spoke first. Little brother, I heard the boss invited the Tiangu to join. What kind of treatment do you think he'll get if he really comes? Will he get a seat among the 12 laws? Then we'll have to make a spot for the Tiangu. You don't think it's your position that's going to be pushed out, do you? On the 40th floor hallway, Luo Mei and another girl who seemed to be from two different worlds were waiting for the elevator. The elevator doors slid open and Luo Mei stepped forward to peer inside. Both were stunned by the bizarre sight the old fortune teller was being pinned down by Yun Fei. Luo Mei frowned and asked, "What are you two doing?" Yun Fei had one hand grabbing the old fortune teller's bald, shiny head while the old man was crying like a child who'd had his candy stolen. Sister Lu. Sister Lin. This old man said my position is going to be replaced by the Tiangao. Now, the other girl, Lin Wan, gave a gentle, angelic smile. That hasn't been decided yet. I'll be on your side, don't worry. She was Lin Wan, one of the 12 laws of Yin-Tu. Luo Mei, holding a bottle of wine, slapped Lin Wan on the shoulder and laughed heartily. Since Sister Lin has spoken, I'm on your side, too. Stop your damn crying! Then she kicked the two men out of the elevator, her voice sharp. I've ordered a candlelight dinner. Wait for the delivery guy to bring it to the rooftop. Yun Fei turned around, bewildered. A candlelight dinner, but it's still daytime. However, the delivery guy didn't leave them wondering for long. Like a Superman, he single-handedly carried a huge table over and announced, Your candlelight dinner table has arrived. Enjoy your meal. Yun Fei's eyes widened as he thought to himself the delivery fee must have cost as much as the food. On the rooftop, although the place looked like a wasteland, a closer look revealed it was meticulously cared for. A romantic, sun-drenched banquet table was set in the middle of the space. Luo Mei swirled a glass of red wine, her eyes dreamy, rejected by President Lin for the 11th time. That noisy Feng even teased me for being 27 and not having a boyfriend. Her face flushed. It was unclear if it was from the wine or from self-pity. Lin Wan smiled comfortingly. Don't be sad. Come on, let's have another drink. Our boss only cares about those two men. He's such a blockhead. But in her heart she thought, You drunkard? What the hell are you complaining about? I'm gentle and kind, and I don't have a boyfriend either. Although Luo Mei was single, she had a big mouth and stood up to lecture, Sister Lin, you're still young. You don't understand the pain of an old single woman. These words seemed to twist the knife in the wound of age, making a vein pop on Lin Wan's forehead. She said nothing but cursed inwardly. I'm older than you. I have to pretend to get by, and on top of that, I have to hang out with this drunkard. Lin Wan poured more wine into Luo Mei's glass. Sister Luo, you can drink much better than those useless men. You have to find a boyfriend who can drink better than you. Luo Mei became even more enthusiastic, nodding, Exactly. If he can't drink as well as me, he can forget about courting me. Little Lee, bring out the 85-year-old bottle of Dumelao. I have to drink with Sister Lin until we're both drunk. Lin Wan laughed loudly. Wow, Sister Luo is so cool. The two of them staggered down the street. Jiang Tuyet pointed and suggested, Boss, the National Arts Center doesn't have any new classes, only the one from last month. I'll take you tomorrow. Minvu said dejectedly, Why do I feel like my best friend is signing me up for a training course? Jiang Tuyet sighed and explained, The vital energy the boss left for you is about to dissipate. Can you maintain your sea of qi for 24 hours? Minvu scratched his head. I can during the day, but at night I rely on an alarm. Jiang Tuye lowered her eyes and pouted. That's pretty fast. She wagged her finger and continued. In the next stage, once your body develops a reflex, you'll automatically maintain the circulation of your sea of qi even while sleeping. Hearing this, Minvu pointed to his chest and asked in surprise, "My wise lady, are you unhappy because I'm learning too fast?" Jiang Tuyet turned away, her eyes glancing over no. She stopped in front of a shop, placed her hands on her hips, and confidently called out to the owner, "Boss, the usual 6 bottles of soy milk and a double order of fried dough sticks." The owner gave a short nod in response. Minvu looked at her, an idea flashing in his eyes, and suggested, "How about we get some snake cakes instead? I'm so sick of fried dough sticks." Suddenly, a voice came from behind. "That's right, eating fried dough sticks all day isn't healthy at all." Nat Can and Lam Van walked up, their faces full of mockery. "At my place, you'll get good food, good drinks, a high salary, and great benefits. Chu Minvu, have you thought it over carefully?" Jiang Tuyet immediately took a defensive stance, her eyes sharp and cold as she discreetly hid something with her hand. Minvu raised a hand to stop her, his voice low but firm. "Let me handle this." His eyes burned with determination as he faced the two of them and spoke. "Since that day at the scene, I've already made my decision. There's no need to even think about it." Minvu pointed, his voice booming like thunder. Whether it was the madman Li Van Phi, the creation of the Heartfire pill, or the destruction of Cao's faux shop, it's all more than enough to show that we can't be on the same side. He covered his face, his eyes looking a bit dazed as his voice dropped. "Li Van Phi is indeed a bit crazy, but the Heartfire pill is only sold to sorcerers with evil intentions, so you could say it's a way of ridding the people of a menace." A dangerous glint appeared in his smile. "As for destroying Cao's faux shop to eliminate the evidence, I already compensated the owner double." Minvu suddenly froze, stunned. He angrily pointed directly at the two of them and shouted, "You even killed Big Brother Lu Dich Lao Day! How do you plan to whitewash this?" Lam Van smiled gleefully, her voice full of rebuttal. "He betrayed the organization and revealed its secrets. The moment you become a sorcerer, you've already willingly abandoned the ways of modern civilization." Infuriated, Minvu pointed to his own chest, his voice steely. "I'm a sorcerer now too, but I have no intention of abandoning the ways of modern civilization." Lam Van sneered, continuing in a mocking tone. "In the world of sorcerers, the big fish eats the small fish. Even if you are a Tengu, you currently lack the power to make such claims." Minvu pointed and shouted, his voice filled with indignation. "And Du always talks about helping the weak, but you just do whatever is convenient. But deep down, you still believe that the strong should rule. You don't even have the guts to break the rules of the sorcerer world." Lam Van gave a provocative smile, her eyes sharp and cold. What a lovely and naive organization. She was so angry she trembled, unable to speak. Lam Van turned to Notkan, whining, "Sect leader, I'll leave this guy to you." Full of contempt, Jiang Tuye took out her phone and began snapping pictures furiously. Minvu smirked, his voice filled with surprise. "So that's how it is. You can actually respond like that." Notkan reached out to rub his head, his voice deep and warm. "I really don't have the guts to break the rules of the sorcerer world and establish new ones. I can only protect the lower-class sorcerers under the existing rules." He stepped closer to the two of them, his gaze sharp. Notkan patted Minvu's head, his voice low. "But if you look down on us, then I'll wait for you to do what I don't dare to." He gave Minvu a challenging look, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, "I have high hopes for you." Notkan turned to leave, calling out, "Old Four, let's go." He suddenly kicked over the owner's stall, causing the man to roar in anger. "Son of a bitch! You psycho!" Notkan raised a hand and called back, "Oh, right, tell old Tia to eat fewer fried dough sticks. They're not good for him." Jiang Tuyet looked at Minvu, her eyes shining with excitement. "I didn't realize you had such a grand ambition." "I underestimated you before." Minvu trembled as he recalled the tense atmosphere, his voice shaky. "Did you feel that aura just now?" "Man, that was intense. I almost stopped circulating my sea of qi. That was terrifying." Hearing this, Jiang Tuyet sighed and shook her head. "I take back what I just said." Minvu composed himself and cheerfully went to help, saying to the owner, "Boss, let me help you clean up." He smiled brightly. "I don't know that guy from earlier either. He's definitely crazy." The owner laughed in relief. "Thank you, young man. What bad luck running into a psycho today." Tun the Thi and Din Ak gathered around Minvu. He mumbled for over 10 minutes before calming down, muttering, "Such grand ambition, so intense." The next morning at breakfast, Jiang Tuye recounted the story. After hearing the story, Ton the Thi and Din Ak were full of admiration. Minvu was focused on eating when he was suddenly startled and shouted, "Hey, slow down, you haven't even given me any." But after only 3 minutes, everyone went back to eating as if it were the most important thing in the world. Tanda fought with Minvu for food, laughing loudly. Respect your elders and love the young, that's me. Minvu refused to back down, retorting, I haven't even had a single bite. After the meal, Jiang Tuyet and Minvu got on the motorcycle to get back to work. Chu Minvu was on the path to becoming stronger, heading toward the West City branch of the National Arts Center. He placed a hand on her shoulder, his voice apologetic. I feel bad always having to ride on the back. She replied calmly, I'm not letting you drive my bike, so give up on that idea. Minvu exclaimed, slightly peeved, I'm not trying to steal your bike. The scene at the center was peaceful and refreshing. Teacher Ma could be seen playing happily with a group of children. The children ran off, not forgetting to wave goodbye to Teacher Ma. Teacher Ma watched them leave, reminding them gently, be safe on your way and remember to get home early. He turned and suddenly spotted Jiang Tuye calling out happily, Little Tuye. Teacher Ma spread his arms wide, welcoming Little Tuye with a radiant smile. Long time no see. He firmly shook Minvu's hand, his voice hearty. This young man must be Senior Tuye's disciple, right? Hello, Jiang Tuyet introduced him, her eyes sparkling with pride. This is head instructor Ma of the National Arts Center. He's the one who taught me my basic skills back in the day. The three of them walked side by side down the hall of the National Arts Center, the air buzzing with energy. Teacher Ma laughed heartily, his voice booming. Speaking of Senior Tuyet, I wonder how old she is. He grabbed Minvu's hand, his face beaming. Skill makes the master. It's only right to call her Senior Tuyet. He turned to the two of them, his voice filled with enthusiasm. The basic close combat course for sorcerers. It's exactly 1 semester, 200,000 N card or cash. Minvu and Jiang Tuyet were stunned into silence. Suddenly a clear voice rang out, Count me in too! The walked over, holding a sparkling gold card with a mischievous smile. I'll cover the fees for both of them. Consider it my way of repaying you for saving my life. Teacher Ma nodded and began his lecture with great enthusiasm. He stood in the middle of the courtyard, his voice resonating. As you all know, every sorcerer has the heart of a close combat fighter. What is the root of close combat? He smoothly took a stance and swiftly landed a powerful punch on the sandbag. Your strikes must be fast. Another punch landed with perfect precision. Your aim must be true. The sandbag shook as he yelled, and your move must be vicious. The students watched his perfect form intently, as if engraving it into their minds. Teacher Ma turned back to the students, his voice like steel. Even a lion uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. Only by taking down your opponent in a single move can you guarantee your own safety. He shouted, understand. The students and they answered in unison, their voices echoing, yes, teacher. Minvu raised a fist and awkwardly repeated, got it, got it. He thought to himself, embarrassed. Is this for real? They're all kids, this is so embarrassing. Suddenly, a student raised their hand and asked, Teacher, what if I can't take down the enemy in one move and they counterattack? What should I do? Another child struck a pose and added, obviously you use the Jiehua Fa technique and ignore them. Teacher Ma raised a hand to calm them, his voice composed, settle down. A technique like Jiehua Fa is too advanced. Your skill level isn't high enough, so you don't need to learn it. The frowned and asked, so what should we do if an enemy counterattacks? Teacher Ma yelled decisively, obviously you run away. He clenched his fist, his eyes burning with determination. When you run, your decision must be swift and your escape route must be precise. He yelled, striking an imposing pose, then shouted viciously, watch this move! He continued imagining that the enemy would be on guard, giving everyone the opportunity to escape. Teacher Ma's eyes widened as he shouted, remember, in the world of sorcerers, winning many times is great, but losing just once can cost you your life. The and the students muttered helplessly, Teacher, that's just too cowardly. Suddenly, Minvu clapped his eyes, shining brightly. As expected of you, Master, what a brilliant tactic. The atmosphere at the National Martial Arts Hall was lively and bustling. A girl raised her hand, smiling as she greeted Jiang Tuyet. Hey sis, first time meeting you. Are you new here today? Which one is your kid? The struck a pose and praises rang out from all around. You're so amazing, so cool. Jiang Tuyet pointed at the little girl with the pigtails over there. The girl was stunned, her voice filled with disbelief. Oh my God, you take such good care of your skin, I couldn't tell you have a child that old. Another girl spoke up, looking puzzled. Whose son is that boy over there? He's already so old, why is he still in the basic class? Minvu stood silently, a helpless look on his face. Jiang Tuyet calmly explained, yes, he's mine too. The crowd suddenly broke into a flurry of whispers. No way, no way! No matter how you look at it, there's no way she could have a son that old. He must be her husband. This couple is so young. She must have some kind of anti-aging secret we have to ask her. They cheerfully turned to invite Jang Tuyet. Hey sis, want to join our VKFX group? Sis, I brought some fruit. Would you like some? Here's my husband's business card. Please take it. In the end, Jang Tuyet joined the National Martial Arts Hall Basic Class Moms chat group, Master Ma Ton. The Minvu and the other students strained to hold their horse stance. The after-class atmosphere was lively. The class, only an hour long, ended quickly. The students bid their master farewell in unison. Only the Minvu and Master Ma remained. He said sternly, "Next is your private lesson time. Are you ready?" The two shouted in unison, "We're ready, Master." Master Ma took out 2 talismans, his voice calm. Cultivating close combat footwork is very arduous. I hope you two will not be arrogant or hasty, but improve yourselves thoroughly. The 2 talismans fell onto the wooden floor. He continued, "The first step is footwork training." Wooden poles shot out and Minvu frantically ran around a pillar. Thi and Minvu looked at the wooden stakes, panting with exhaustion. Here Master Ma gracefully moved through the wooden poles. His voice was calm. When the 2 of you can move freely back and forth left and right among the wooden stakes without touching any of them, you will have mastered the basics, the 2 said in unison, surprised. Yes, Master. Master Ma crossed his arms and commanded, "Listen to my command. Charge into the wooden stakes." The 2 rushed forward like moths to a flame. He shouted, "Left, right, forward, back, front, left. Back, right!" The wooden poles slammed into their bodies, causing excruciating pain. The cried, "Oh my God, it's so hard right from the start." Minvu wasn't any better. "What kind of fate is this? Please just put me out of my misery." Jang Tuyet covered her face, helpless and unable to watch. Suddenly, Nat Do spoke up to greet Miss Jang Tuyet. "Long time no see." He continued, his voice cheerful. "To meet again is fate." Jang Tuyet frowned in confusion. Nat Do recounted the incident to her. "Last year, we were riding a motorcycle without helmets and got caught and fined. What a fateful encounter, right? Have you forgotten all about it?" Jang Tuyet seemed to have a sudden realization, her voice soft. "It's been too long, so I didn't remember." "Yes." Nat Du bowed deeply in a regal manner. "It's all right, I am by Nat Du." "It's a pleasure to meet you again, Miss Jang Tuyet," he enthusiastically suggested. "I wonder if Miss Jang Tuyet is in the mood to go for a drive with me. Driving a Lamborghini SVJ, the city air feels fresh and clear." Min Vu suddenly thought to himself, his eyes helpless. "I'm supposed to be the main character, but I feel like I don't even exist." He muttered, "Chow Min Vu, I'm now dueling with some handsome guy who came out of nowhere." Outside, Tun the Thie cheered relentlessly. "Go big, brother, take down that sissy." Hearing this, Min Vu broke out in a sweat, muttering about the reason it all started. Seeing the excited look on that person behind them, everyone could probably guess 80 to 90% of the situation, right? Jang Tuyet watched Tun the Thie's actions and asked, "Do you have a grudge against Chow Min Vu or that V Not Do guy over there?" Under the dim light, the image of the Thaian Min Vu appeared, chatting animatedly. The curled her lip, her voice sharp. "Hey, big brother, can you stand it? Don't you want to punch that idiot who's hitting on your girlfriend?" She continued, her steely voice seeming to stir up trouble. But why did she want to incite conflict? The leaned close to Jang Tuyet's ear and whispered discreetly, "This guy is a beast in human form. He comes from a wealthy family, but secretly pays for sex. He's no good." Hearing this, Jang Tuyet raised an eyebrow and asked in return, "But you're telling Chow Min Vu to fight him. What if he can't win?" The grinned, her eyes glinting with intent. "I know he can't win, but once he gets beaten up, you'll have a reason to step in." She acted nonchalant, as if it were all just a game. Jang Tuyet shook her head, her voice calm. "You might be disappointed." At that moment, Natdo stood tall, his overwhelming presence bearing down on Min Vu as he looked at him disdainfully. "Not bad, kid. You dare to provoke me." He continued, his voice low but full of arrogance. "But I won't bully a rookie from the basic martial arts class." And Atdu smirked, his expression full of contempt. "I'll give you 3 moves. Attack as you please. How about it?" Hearing this, Min Vu's eyes lit up, unable to believe his ears. "Is this for real?" He stomped his foot on the ground, his energy surging, and eagerly took a stance. "Well, then it would be disrespectful to refuse." Yes." The Thie stood aside, looking at Jang Tuyet with curiosity in her eyes, and asked doubtfully, "Was his past training that effective?" Jang Tuyet smiled to reassure the little girl. "Don't be hasty, just keep watching." Yes, he is practicing the second level of the Erlang Shen technique, officially entering the inner core path. Min Vu roared, his internal energy surging his body, brimming with power. Nat Do looked at him, a bored expression on his face, as he muttered to himself, "Is this guy really a sorcerer? He's no different from an ordinary person." Suddenly, Min Vu stomped his foot, and the fist technique he had just learned from Master Ma erupted. He shouted, throwing a thunderous punch, "Palm fist!" and Nat Do had no time to react, only managing to exclaim, "This is bad. I was careless." Min Vu's punch created a powerful blast of air that sent Nat Do flying. A stream of blue light pierced through his body, shattering the wall and sending dust flying everywhere. Nat Do crashed into the wall, leaving a large crater, speechless with pain. The blue aura continued to surround Min Vu, blazing like a flame. The thief's jaw dropped. Unable to believe her eyes, she whispered, "Have you been playing dumb this whole time?" But Jiang Tuye remained calm, as if everything was within her expectations. At the same time, Master Ma pushed the door open and entered. Seeing the scene of destruction, he was stunned and roared in anger. "I was gone for a bathroom break, and you all started tearing down my room." The and Min Vu quickly stood straight, pretending to be in their training stances. 30 minutes later, Master Ma sat beside Nat Do, carefully treating his injuries. He asked sternly, "Why didn't you circulate your ki for protection? Why are your meridians so severely damaged?" Nat Do winced in pain and replied, "His penetrating vital energy was too strong. It's running rampant throughout my body." Master Ma closed his eyes to meditate, muttering, "I recently decided to take on 2 disciples, and I was wondering if the person who came here was the heavenly dog among them. It seems I was spot on." Hearing this, Nat Do's face went pale as a sheet, and he suddenly coughed up a mouthful of fresh blood. Master Ma turned his voice reproachful as he looked at Jiang Tuyet. "You must have guessed, didn't you?" Hopelessly smitten. He stood up, clasped his hands behind his back, and silently assessed, "His attack power is very strong, but without a foundation in footwork, I'm afraid he won't be able to beat anyone in a real fight. That's why he came to train with me." He respectfully continued, thanking his martial uncle for the guidance. He turned back to remind Nat Do to go apologize after he recovered. "But if you insist on leaving, I won't object either. Maintaining a good relationship with the people from Little Sun won't be a loss for you. I have big boobs, I'll stand in front." Nat Do nodded, his voice weak. "I understand." He continued respectfully, "Thank you for your guidance, martial uncle." Jiang Tuyet replied calmly, "Don't worry, he knows it himself." In the National Martial Arts Training Hall, the atmosphere was bustling with dozens of new students from all walks of life training diligently. Min Vu stood in the middle of the crowd, a look of such blissful idiocy on his face that he was almost drooling, attracting everyone's attention. But in just a moment, he gently diffused the chaos. He raised his hand and cried out pathetically, "I just said I like girls who are gentle, virtuous, understanding, good at both public affairs and housework, and can cook well. Why? Why did you all leave?" His lament caused 2 nearby girls to explode in anger, yelling in unison, "Such chauvinism! No respect for women." Min Vu grew even more desperate and shouted, "I just want a salary of 100,000,000. Why did you leave?" Hearing this, the 2 coolly replied, "We can't afford to support you." "Sorry, I can't afford you." He waved his hand helplessly in the air again, his voice cracking. "I just wanted to ask what you gentlemen think about dialectical materialism. Why did they leave?" The person next to him heard this and muttered like a mantra, "Can't aim so high, can't aim so high." "The great Chen Tong, the great Chen Tong." The patted Min Vu on the shoulder, laughing heartily. "So you were just acting." "I misunderstood you." Jiang Tuyet gave a thumbs up, her eyes full of admiration. "Repelling the enemy without a fight, impressive." Teacher Ma observed from a distance, silently assessing, "He scorns the 3 great temptations, power, beauty, and wealth. With such a steadfast temperament, he is certain to achieve great things in the future. I must maintain a good relationship with him." But at that very moment, Min Vu buried his face in his hands and sobbed in despair, ending his dream of reaching the pinnacle of life. Afterward, the and Min Vu practiced diligently, but they were both repeatedly hit by the wooden poles, crying out in pain, "This is too hard." It seemed they had no talent for the footwork at all, their bodies beaten black and blue. In contrast, Liu Yi, who occasionally brought them food, dodged gracefully as if he had subconsciously learned the skill. Teacher Ma praised him lavishly. "You're very talented. Come spar a few rounds with me." He rushed forward to attack. Liu Yi raised his hand to block his movements fluid. The shouted excitedly, "Amazing!" So cool, both she and Min Vu stared wide-eyed in astonishment. Is he using a hack? He learned it just by watching a few times. Jiang Tuyed, in contrast to the commotion, calmly enjoyed her meal and remarked softly, "Today's meal is delicious. It doesn't seem like Boss Su's cooking." In the midst of the fight, Liu Yi still managed to block Teacher Ma's powerful punch with one hand. Dust billowed up around the two of them. He called back cheerfully, "I cooked today's meal. Is everyone enjoying it?" Eating fish and meat every day is a waste of money and is also bad for your health. We need to have a balanced diet.